The story begins with a story about the youngest martial artist in the world, Wu Zingi. The young martial artist Wu Zingi, for mocking a large number of people, was subjected to revenge for his atrocities. In the battle with his enemies, he flared up and used the strongest Kai energy, scattering all his rivals in a wave, terrifying them, but failing to cope with it, eventually fell, being absorbed by it. But the story of Wu Zingi did not end with the absorption of Kai energy. The soul of the young martial artist Wu Zingi was reborn in the body of the young King Wu Shuang. King Wu Shuang himself belonged to the lowest noble rank. Wu Zingi, persecuted wherever he went and came, the one who hates evil, decided and chose the path of comprehending the peaks of martial arts. Night fell on the industrial zone of the city, illuminated only by the light of a bright moon. In a deserted industrial zone, there are only faded factories, a lot of abandoned construction debris and black crows that break the grave silence with their cry. But the guests of the destroyed zone are not only crows, but also several people standing opposite each other. Standing on huge pipes, illuminated by the light of the moon, 4 people in long black raincoats, with burning red evil eyes and crazy smiles, look down at a guy with a lifeless girl in his arms. One of the crowd tells the black-haired young man, calling him Wu Zingi, that the guy is so important to people that someone from the top offered a very good reward for his capture and head. A guy in a black raincoat tells a young martial artist that he will die today, to which he silently gently lowers the body of a blonde girl to the ground. Wu Zingi, being sad and furious at the death of his dear sister, frowning and flashing golden eyes, promises that the murderers will pay with blood for the death of his beloved sister. A man with white hair and wavy tattoos on his arms laughs loudly at the guy's words and says that for a person in a very precarious position, Wu Zingi talks too much. As soon as the man finishes his speech, the guy attacks with lightning speed, not allowing the opponents to attack first and speak further. Wu Zingi flies up to the man at the speed of light and punches him in the face with all his might. The man, confused, does not have time to put a block and allows himself to be hit. The guy's blow was so strong that the man instantly loses consciousness, flying off into the floor, destroying it into large fragments, losing half of his teeth along the way. The rest of the guys in raincoats, who were watching this, could only stare in horrified surprise at the stricken ally, who was sprawled on the debris from the floor. Wu Zingi furiously looks at the other guys in raincoats until they decide from all sides, all together, to attack only one guy. He, in turn, standing still, collecting and concerting explosive Kai around him, tells his rivals to go to hell. Wu Zingi releases all his concentrated Kai energy, scattering all enemies with a bright blast wave that they fly into the walls, losing consciousness. The building begins to collapse from the Kai energy, falling to the floor, collapsing into small pieces. The guy looks at the crushed and defeated enemies, when suddenly his heart is stitched with a painful cramp. With his eyes wide open, with his capillaries broken, the guy realizes with horror that in order to win, he used his true Kai to strengthen himself, which is abuse. A dark aura begins to thicken around Wu Zingi and dust rises. He groans in pain and realizes that such an abuse of Kai energy will end very badly for him. Through the haze, barely opening his eyes from the pain, the guy stretches out his hand to the lying sister, desperately calling her, trying to reach his sister, but to no avail. A haze envelops him, and he closes his eyes, falling into oblivion. While still conscious, he thinks that unexpectedly, he, Wu Zingi, the youngest master of ancient martial arts, ended his life in a similar way. He thinks how sad his end is until Wu Zingi's consciousness completely dissolves into a haze. In a bright universe, there are many different planets that differ from each other in size, color, and atmosphere, as well as a huge number of blinding stars. One of these stars, lightning fast, crosses the entire outer space, bursting into the Earth's atmosphere, a bright meteorite. The burning star has its own path and its own destination. It lands directly in the country of Beiyu, surrounded by many majestic mountains. In the pitch darkness, the voice of a young girl is heard calling someone by name and begging to wake up. But no one answers her pleas to wake up. Then the girl stubbornly continues to call and beg for awakening. The first thing the awakened person sees is a crying red-haired girl in a white robe. The guy with black hair opens his eyes abruptly and jumps up, shouting and calling his sister. A girl sitting on a chair near the bed where the guy is, wipes her tears with her palms and calls a guy named Wu Shuang. The girl, with relief in her heart, seeing that the guy has woken up, begins to cry harder and rushes to hug him, stuttering along the way, saying that she is glad to wake up Wu Shuang, who, as she was told, was killed in a duel. The guy is confused, in no hurry to rejoice and hug her back. On the contrary, He thinks who this girl is and why she so suddenly pounced on him with hugs. The girl, crying bitterly, says that she questioned all the doctors and everyone, as one said that the guy would not survive after the fight. The young man is confused, does not understand what Wu Shuang and the duel the girl is talking about, looks at his hands, surprised to notice that they are very small. Then, the guy looks around and only now notices the unfamiliar environment around. A huge living room in light colors and a large bed in the middle. A light breeze blows from the open window, swaying the burgundy curtains. Outside the window stretches a wonderful view of high, green and majestic mountains that surround the whole country. After looking at the amazing and unfamiliar view from the window, the guy remembers with horror about his murdered sister, who is still lying in the wreckage of the old factory. In a panic, the young man grabs the girl, who does not understand anything, asking where his sister is. She gently takes him by the shoulders and, wondering, says what is wrong with him. Does he not recognize his sister? To which the young man asks in surprise if she is his sister. Puzzled, examining a red-haired girl with big, amazed, blue eyes, the guy notices that she looks 17 or 18 years old, looks very similar to his real sister. The guy gets out of bed, holding his head, while the girl asks him if everything is okay and if he has any pain. The young man argues that if he was absorbed by Kai energy, he should be dead now. He notices a mirror standing next to the bed, runs up to it, puzzled, and looks at his reflection in it, seeing a completely different person. Looking at himself in the mirror, he realizes that he has become a black-haired boy, with big blue eyes like the girl next to him, and strange triangular marks under his left eye. When suddenly the bandaged head is pierced by a strong pain that the guy grabs it, grunting and absolutely not understanding what is happening to him at all. Suddenly, memories of this life come to him. Kai Wu Shuang, a child from an impoverished aristocratic family from Donglan King City. He lives with his father and his only sister. Also, Wu Shuang is studying at the Wudong Academy. Due to the interests and rumors swirling around the entire nobility, Wu Shuang Academy was often bullied by noble children from more noble families. There are memories of past times when Wu Shuang was bullied by noble children, saying that he was unworthy to study at their academy, laughing at the fact that the young man could not even stand up for himself, pushing him to accept a challenge to a duel from a certain Xian Jiang. In Wu Shuang's memories, children dressed in white clothes, wearing the same haughtily smiling mask on their faces, called names and laughed in the face of the young man, to which he only clenched his fists until they squeaked. Further memories, like these same children, kick Wu Shuang with their feet, telling him to die and giggling viciously. The young man thinks that, apparently, that Xian Jiang is a real scumbag. Also, he reflects that his soul could have migrated into the body of this child King Wu Shuang. Looking in the mirror and going deep into his thoughts, he notices how a worried girl stretches out her hand to him, asking if everything is fine with him, to which he replies that the wound just ached and he is fine. The young man thinks that in this life he now has a father, whereas in the past he grew up without parents, only with his sister. He ponders thoughtfully what a father would do if his son was killed, coming to the conclusion that he would definitely take revenge. He turns around with tension and turns to his sister, asking where their father has gone. She looks at him puzzled and says that his father has gone on business. Then, the young man presses and asks to tell the girl more specifically where he went, to which the girl exclaims that the guy needs to forget about it and think about his health, adding that the future of their family depends on him and it is impossible to allow something like this to happen to him again. The guy once again tries to find out where the father of the family went, assuming that he went to the city to find the Zhang family, to which the already perplexed girl says that he just left without saying anything before leaving. The young man realizes that the Zhang family is one of the most influential families in Luojiang province. Such great strength and a deep past of one of the influential family, the impoverished king family, is not even a match for them. He, frowning, looks seriously at the girl and says that he is not dead and before it is too late, it is necessary to catch up and return the father, who is going to avenge the death of his only son, to which the girl, realizing, silently opens her eyes wide. Evening is gradually falling on the city. The crowded streets of the city are painted orange in the evening. People crowd around the man walking forward, gossiping behind his back. People, perplexed, ask each other why the head of the King family has a gun in his hands, to which someone replies that the only young master of the King family was beaten to death in a duel with young Mr. Zhang, and it must be the head of the King family is going to avenge the death of his son. A man with a sinister aura, as if he does not notice all the conversations around, only walking forward, clutching a weapon in his hand and incinerating everything with a furious red look. Finally, the girl, who has been running all this time, trying to catch up with her father, calls out to him. The man, frowning, turns to his daughter and seriously asks what Zhu is doing on the street if he told her to stay at home, next to Wushuang. Zhu, shedding bitter tears of relief, trembling in her voice, tells her father that she has finally found him and that Wushuang is alive. The shocked man asks again if Wushuang is really alive, and, without waiting for an answer, breaks into a run, heading back to the house to his son to make sure that he is really alive. The man, not hearing anything, runs away, leaving behind his daughter with an abandoned weapon, who shouts to her father to wait for her. Xinghe, being in the body of a young man, looks at the reflection in the mirror and touches his face, realizing that his soul has really been reborn in the body of Wushuang. At this time, the father of the King family comes into the room. With a worried face, he stretches out his hand to his son, trying to touch him and make sure that it's true. Wushuang is really alive. Xinghe turns around at the man who came in, realizing that this is King Wushuang's father, King Lianshan. The young man, at the sight of his father, experiences feelings still unknown to him, assuming that this is his father's love, which he never managed to experience in his previous life. The man gently strokes his son's head and looks into his eyes, frowning and seriously asking if this second son of the Zhang family forced Wushuang to fight in a duel. He asks Wushuang to tell about everything so that the father will restore justice for the sake of his son. Xinghe frowns and thinks that he remembers all the ridicule of Wushuang, but he is not interested. Xinghe looks at the man and says that let all the grievances remain in the past. Now you need to look only forward. The guy understands perfectly well that Wushuang was afraid of the Zhang family like fire in the past, but it doesn't matter to him. Now that he, Wu Zingi, has been reborn here, it disgusts him to think that he will have to deal with these spoiled children of noble families. The only thing that Xinghe now wants, having been reborn and given a second chance at life, is to see everything in Luojiang province, and even in the Beiyu kingdom. Lianshan looks at his son in surprise, repeating his words about looking ahead, thinking that such a loner and a daredevil like Wushuang had to suffer at the hands of Xianjiang, and it would not be surprising if he wanted to take revenge on the offender himself. But he is surprised and stupefied by the fact that his son is so calm and does not express a bit of hostility towards Xianjiang. Xinghe looks at his now other small hands and tells his father that looking ahead, it will still be difficult to forget all the hatred of the King family towards the Zhang family. He continues that, however, by hatred alone, they will not be able to help the family get out of poverty. Inspired, Lianshan grabs his son by the shoulders and says that he is absolutely right, and we need to move forward. So, from now on, Wushuang stops going to the academy and starting tomorrow, he himself will teach him ancient martial arts. Serious Lianshan says that the martial techniques inherited from their ancestors will help them reach heights in true martial arts. The head of the King family adds that their ancestors were powerful and rich, even though the King family is in decline now. This does not mean that they can let others destroy them so easily. Zhu also inserts her word, who just ran home and overheard the conversation between father and son, saying that it would be the right decision not to attend the academy anymore, where the ridicule will continue, and stay in Donglan City. However, Xinghe stops his family, asking them not to rush to a decision. Xinghe thinks that home, family and sister are things that he did not appreciate in his past life, until the moment of his death, but now he will do everything in order to keep it. The young man, clenching his fists and looking at his family, says that if it is a dragon, then he will be able to turn rivers and seas, and if a tiger, forests and mountains will quiet down, confidently adding that he will not allow anyone else to mock the King family, which greatly surprises his father and sister. Xinghe himself understands that such speeches, which Wushuang would never have uttered in his life, frighten the surprised Lianshan and Zhu a little. Therefore, Xinghe, pretending to yawn, says that he is a little tired and wants to go to rest, to which the father relaxes and sends Wushuang to rest, saying that they will discuss everything else tomorrow. Already at night, lying in his bed with his hands behind his head, Xinghe cannot sleep because of the events that have occurred. He discusses what kind of malice is gnawing at the Zhan family in relation to the King family, and why there is such devastation in his family. Xinghe thinks that, for sure, one of the reasons is the interests regarding the War of Nations, the assessment of families that are held every 4 years. If King Wushuang dies, then the King family will be cut off, which will lead the King family to lose its place in the evaluation of families, respectively, a place among the nobility. Without this place, everything that belonged to the King family would be distributed among the rest of the families. But, despite the losses in the economy, the worst thing is the loss of social status. After all, in this world there is a wide gap between the nobility and ordinary people. Xinghe realizes that duel between Wu Shuang and Xianjiang is definitely part of a conspiracy between more noble families. The young man promises himself that he will definitely protect his family. At this time, the news of Wu Shuang's miraculous resurrection quickly spread through the city, reaching the ears of the nobles and elders. A month later, Xinghe had fully recovered and started practicing ancient martial arts at the Qing family's training ground. He, with enthusiasm, thinks that he will finally be able to train. In his previous life, Xinghe was called a combat madman, and he got this nickname for a reason. Before, he could not spend a day without training. On an unusually sunny day in the city, he begins training and assessing the state of Wu Shuang's strength and body, praising that it is strong enough, and the basic skills are quite solid. Noticing that the only drawback is that Wu Shuang has never practiced powerful techniques. But Xinghe has practiced first-class techniques enough in his past life, so it won't be difficult to make up for it. He confidently clenches his fists, smiling and saying that he will make amends for all his regrets from this and past life. While he is training, a breathless Zhu'er comes running to the parade ground, anxiously calling Wu Shuang. She quickly approaches the young man and says that, at the request of his father, he needs to come to the pavilion, where Ding Jinbui from the Wudong Academy is waiting for him. The young man arches an eyebrow and thoughtfully brings his hand to his face, cupping his chin, asking why he came. The girl replies that after everything that happened at the academy, he came to offer his eradication condolences to the Qing family. Then Xinghe realizes that Jinbui, that old fox, definitely did not come to express his sincere condolences. He remembers that when King Wu Shuang was fighting Xianjiang, Jinbui was there. This scoundrel only watched everything from the side and admired what was happening, thereby taking the side of Xianjiang. He watched as Wu Shuang was treated badly, and then with a sneaky grin announced the death of the young man to his relatives, who came running in horror after hearing about the duel, offering their condolences. Emerging from deep memories and reflections, a dissatisfied Xinghe frowns, turning to Zhu'er, tells her that it's time to meet their guests. Walking towards the pavilion with a confident step, together with a puzzled sister, the young man tells himself that King Wu Shuang, from now on, will begin to restore the good name of the Qing family. Entering the pavilion where 3 black figures are standing, even despite the sunny day, Jinbui asks with feigned interest about Wu Shuang's well-being. The pavilion of the Qing family is consecrated by the sun rays and ennobled with wooden seats and tables for the arriving guests. When Xinghe and Zhu'er enter the pavilion, they are already sitting there. The lobbyist, Gu Shen, a gray-haired, stout middle-aged man with a dissatisfied face and a long goatee. A notable person, Zhu Sihai, a middle-aged man with long brown hair pulled into a hairstyle. Jinbui, Dean of Wudong Academy, with a long braid on his shoulder, shiny red eyes hidden behind round glasses. Noticing a young man and a girl who entered the pavilion of the Qing family, Jinbui, sneering meanly, asks Xinghe about his well-being and how his wounds have healed. An angry Xinghe looks at the dean and indignantly thinks that this old scoundrel dares to call himself a good person. The young man recalls that when he treated Wu Shuang badly right in front of Jinbui, he did not even move to do something and stop the duel, only grinned nastily when, desperate, the guy turned his gaze to the teacher without even receiving sympathy in response. Xinghe glares at Jinbui, wondering with interest why he showed up at their house. The guy spreads his hands and answers the teacher, thanking him for his concern and concern that his wounds have fully recovered. Also noting that such a rapid recovery will discourage many who hoped for his sudden death from the duel. Starting to get a little angry from the calmness of the young man, Jinbui notices that Wu Shuang behaves quite differently. He suggests that the home environment allows Wu Shuang to feel much more confident to go against an adult. Then, the gloomy head of the Qing family bursts into the conversation between the student and the teacher, asking the purpose of the visit, such honorable gentlemen, because they could not come here just for the sake of talking about his son. Lobbyist Gu Shen enters the conversation, smiling nastily and folding his hands, looking and addressing the head of the Qing family, saying that the purpose of his arrival at the Qing house is to give one piece of advice. The lobbyist, grinning slyly, asks the head of the Qing family if he is aware that the assessment of families is carried out every 4 years and about the situation of his family, to which, frowning, Lion Shan asks what he is driving at. Still grinning nastily, Gu Sheng says that the head of the Qing family should understand perfectly well what will happen to his family if she loses her place in the family assessment and what will happen to her in the future without a status place. Gu Shen throws up his hands and says that he knows how to get out of such a sensitive situation. but does not say right away, referring that the head of king will not want to hear it. Then, Xinghe responds to the lobbyist, drawing the attention of all observers to himself, that they would be happy to listen to Gu Shen, and, if the idea is really good, even generously thanked him. Lobbyist Gu Sheng steps back a little and holds out his hand, pointing to a man sitting in a wooden chair holding a cup of tea. He, pointing to a stately, richly dressed man, introduces him as Mr. Zhu Zihai, the younger brother of the noble and wealthy Zhu family. Speaking for Zhu Zihai, Gu Sheng continues his speech that the junior lord of the Zhu family can give them one promise if the king family wants to give up their place among the nobility after 4 years at the family assessment, in which case, the Zhu family guarantees the safety of the king family. Angered by the words, the head of the king frowns, asking if he understands correctly that Gu Shen is hinting at the king family's loss. Smiling, Gu Shen replies that the head of king himself understands what a precarious situation his family is in right now. The lobbyist cites the example of the Niu family, which owns a herb shop in Donglan City, and the fact that such a powerful family with many useful connections, the king family with such competitors, will definitely not be able to keep their place. Then, the head of the king family, starting to lose his temper, says that everything is run by the sacred Zhenwu land, and the responsible persons are appointed by the emperor himself, so the presence of connections does not matter at all. Gu Sheng chuckles and says that Lion Shan really thinks that the great and powerful emperor has nothing to do to such an extent that he will bother with such a small province. Besides, the strongest survives in this world, so no one cares what methods you use to achieve your goals. Arriving in a rage, Lion Shan shouts at Gu Shen that they came in order to interfere and block the king family, to which, without hiding their vile intentions, the lobbyist replies that in any case, they will leave their place in the assessment of families and among the nobility, and they will follow this closely. Adding, Gu Shen notes if the king family can hold out for all 4 years at all and does not fall earlier under the oppression of other more noble families. The head of king's face turns black from the rage he feels, and he says that the king bloodline has experienced a decline over the years, but it has not fallen so low that other noble families do with it what they want. He challenges, saying that they can come and take whatever they want, but they will survive anyway. Suddenly, there is a loud clink of a cup on a saucer, attracting the attention of all watching. Junior Mr. Zhu, touching his beard and frowning, asks Lion Shan if he understands correctly that the head of the king family would prefer to die with honor, instead of living contemptuously. Angrily looking at Zhu Zihai, the head of the king loudly replies that his ancestors established a rule. Anyone who tries to harm the king family should be destroyed at any cost, without exceptions. The head of the king family jumps up from his seat in a rage, which scares the onlookers, and heading for the exit, orders Zhu to escort the guests out the door. In angry feelings, lobbyist Gu Shen shouts to the head of the king that if he does not want to leave in a good way, he will be forced, and when the king family is thrown out into the street, he will be the first to throw a stone at them. Then, after listening to everything, Xinghe enters the conversation, grinning and saying that if Gu Shen came here to demonstrate his diplomatic abilities and strength, but they look more like a dog barking at people. Enraged by the insolent boy who dared to call Gu Shen a dog, he points his finger at the young man, saying that like father, like son, and that they will regret their decisions and words. The disgruntled junior Mr. Zhu, getting up from his chair, says that since the head of king insists on his own, then he has nothing more to say to him, about to leave the king house. Leaving, Jin Bui appeals to Wu Shuang that since his wounds have healed, he should return to study at the academy, adding that there is no one among the noble children who would not like to study at the Wudong Academy. Xinghe confidently replies to the dean that he will return to the academy and thanks him for reminding him about it, to which Jin Bui, grinning maliciously and flashing red eyes, says that he approves of the guy's infusion and instructs to be focused on studying so that it does not happen at the academy. Looking after the guests, Xinghe tells them to be careful after them. A lot can happen on a long road, but he will not accompany them. Left without extra ears and eyes, the worried head of king asks his son if he is really going to go back to the academy, to which Wu Shuang answers why he should not go back there. The head of king explains that Jin Bui is a famous hypocrite in Luojiang province, and his invitation to the academy alone does not bode well for him. To which Wu Shuang seriously replies that this trio is not as simple as it seems, and his appearance at the academy is already a matter of honor. He shares his reasoning that his last duel is definitely a conspiracy, but not against Wu Shuang himself, but against the king family. Then, the head of king asks his son, even though he is still going to return back to the academy, To which, clenching his fists, Wu Shuang replies that the survival of the King family depends only on him and on his father. If he doesn't accept the challenge and just runs away, hiding in the house, he won't be able to lead the King family to unprecedented heights. Proud of his son, the father puts his hand on his shoulder, asking him to promise him that upon returning to the academy, he will withstand all difficulties with his head held high, and will not give others a chance to lead him into a trap again. Enthusiastically looking at his father, the young man replies that he has nothing to worry about. After that incident, he understands perfectly well what he should do and what not to do. The head of the king instructs his son to go only forward and do whatever he sees fit. He will fully support him. Wu Shuang folds his hands in front of his face and thanks his father for his trust and support. After the decision was made to return to Wudong Academy, Wu Shuang was in no hurry to return to Liujiang province, and instead he decided to extend his training for another month. Wu Shuang, sitting on a huge stump in a picturesque sunny forest, is concentrating on training his inner strength. Wu Shuang thinks that in his past life martial arts required courage, so in this one he will choose King Kong Fist as his main attack technique. In this world, there is one rule of cultivation that is very different from those in his past world. Back then, there were no qualification boundaries for indoor and outdoor cultivation. In the same world, only the external force trains in order to reach those boundaries and heights that the body only allows. From outer to inner strength, one can create strength within and enter the stage of cultivating inner strength. In this world, the external stages are called the stage of the power of might. After passing through the external stages, then you enter the stages of true power. In comparison, Wu Shuang is now at the first level of martial arts, whereas his father is at the first level of true might. In his previous life, Xinghe had fully comprehended both cultivations, and was absolutely invulnerable. Reflecting on this, the young man thinks that, depending on these stages, in a previous life he would have been a master of true power of the 9th or higher level. Wu Shuang thinks, if only he could use all the experience from his past life in this one. Already a month later, after long training, Wu Shuang reaches the 7th level of strength and power. He reasons that if he continues like this, then within 3 months, he will be able to break through all levels of strength and reach the levels of true strength. He needs to regain 70 or 80% of his former strength before evaluating families. He breaks a thick tree trunk with one swing, knocking it on its side in order to test his strength. Wu Shuang, seeing the result, thinks that this is more than enough for the test. Ideally, he needs to reach the peak of the 9th level of true power, but he is still far from that. Wu Shuang enthusiastically thinks that as long as there is a family, there is hope. He returns from the picturesque forest back to the house of the King family, noticing that his sister is sitting in the yard worried about something. He approaches her, scaring her with his sudden appearance, asking her about the reason for her concern, to which Ziwer jumps up from her seat, and hurriedly replies that she is fine, also interested in her brother's success and training. But Wu Shuang does not believe his sister's words, noticing that something is wrong on her face. Then, a frowning Wu Shuang stares at Ziwer and tells her that if she considers him a brother, then let him not hide anything and explain what is the matter. Discouraged, Ziwer looks at the young man in surprise, amazed at his impudence. But eventually, he gives up and sits down heavily on a stone chair in the garden of the King family's house. She puts her hand to her sad face and tells her brother what she was hiding. That bean came from the farmland's estate yesterday, and told her something about which they talked for an hour. And this morning the news passed through the province that his body was found at the entrance doors in the morning. Puzzled Wu Shuang, even his face changes, asking how this could have happened, to which, dropping bitter tears, the girl says that the demon who has been tormenting her for 6 years is to blame for everything. The discouraged young man looks at his sister in shock, asking what she means, to which she replies, when she was 12, this demon said that he liked her. Ziwer boasted that he would take her away in 10 years. This demon scared the head of the King family by not allowing Ziwer to marry another. Otherwise he would return to Donglan City in 10 years and destroy the entire King family. The girl, trembling, clasps her hands and says that her father did not specifically say anything about this demon curse to Wu Shuang, knowing that he would lose his temper because of his character. Wu Shuang clenches his hands into fists, unhappy with the fact that everything was deliberately hidden from him. The girl shakes her head, saying that for 6 years, all the guys who talked to her either died a strange death, or went missing, stuttering, adding that she became a Death Star. Frowning, the young man, saying that since 6 years from 10 have already passed, it means there are only 4 left. To which Ziwer raises her eyes full of tears at him and says that she is not afraid of the demon. If Wu Shuang leads the King family forward, and does not disappoint her father and ancestors, then the girl is ready for any sacrifice. The young man confidently looks at his sister and says that she has nothing to worry about, because he will not even allow a demon to take his dear sister, and punishes her to live all these 4 years in peace. Zhu looks at her brother with relief and thanks him, dropping tears of relief on her light skirt. Wu Shuang promises himself that he will definitely protect his sister from adversity, as he could not protect her in his previous life. The large and majestic building of the Wudong Academy sparkles in the rays of the sun. Wu Shuang approaches the gates of the academy and, gathering his courage, full of confidence, passes by a huge and high gate, on which a wooden plaque is hanging, indicating that this is the Wudong Academy. The large courtyard is already full of onlookers who want to see Wu Shuang, who has returned from the other world. As soon as Wu Shuang appears in the field of view of the noble children, chatter begins how in general, after such a defeat, he dared to come back to the academy. In the crowd of noble children are Xianjiang and another child, a rich and noble Zhu family. They look angrily at the returned Wu Shuang, and Xianjiang, frowning, folds his arms over his chest, telling Zhu Ting how King Wu Shuang dared to return back to the academy at all, adding that it seems that the young man does not take them seriously. Passing by the crowd of children gathered in the courtyard of the academy, Wu Shuang looks at them with a smile, relaxed, striding forward with his hands in his pockets, wondering what kind of a bunch of brats are gathered here. The dean stands in Wu Shuang's way and greets the returned student, while radiating enemy energy towards the young man. Wu Shuang looks at the man with displeasure and thinks that he is really very impatient, assuming that Jin Bui probably has an incredible variety of ways to ruin his life at the academy. Jin Bui asks if the young man's head injury has completely healed, to which Wu Shuang rudely replies that the dean needs to speak more clearly, otherwise he does not understand him. The stunned Jin Bui from the rudeness and impudence of the boy stops and looks at him angrily. Even despite the rudeness said towards the adult, the dean says that the events that the young man did last time brought negative consequences. He expresses the hope that now Wu Shuang will be more restrained in the future. Wu Shuang looks at the old fox, once again amazed at his hypocrisy, and outraged that Jin Bui still allows himself to talk about himself as a kind-hearted person. The man smiles, seeing Wu Shuang's displeasure, asking if he thinks that the dean is wrong in his judgments. An angry Wu Shuang lowers his head and replies that the dean is absolutely right. He will have to endure all the ridicule when the noble children again deign to beat him to death. And if they deign to rob the king family's lands, then Wu Shuang would have to let this happen by giving them all the oil production and trade. The young man glares at the dean from under his forehead, asking if he understood everything correctly. The confused man looks attentively at the young man, not understanding when he became so arrogant, but he quickly comes to his senses, returning his grin. Jin Bui points his finger at the young man, saying that he understands perfectly well that the moment Wu Shuang decided to return to the academy, he just wanted to cause even more problems. But this won't work anymore, and Jin Bui warns Wu Shuang that if he interferes with them, he will already answer to the law. Then, Wu Shuang reminds that it was the dean himself who invited the young man back to the academy, and asks exactly how he wants to deal with him if Wu Shuang will climb where it is not necessary. To which, adjusting his round glasses, Jin Bui gloatingly replies that he will expel him and expel him away. Displeased, Wu Shuang, frowning, turns away from the dean, saying that he understood Jin Bui's intentions and will remember his words. When dusk falls on the city, Wu Shuang approaches the door to the room intended for his personal residence, as stated by a small wooden sign at the door. He opens the doors to the room, examining the surroundings, a room in bright colors, a simple single bed and a dark oak spacious wardrobe. Before he can cross the threshold of his room, Wu Shuang is hailed by a young man with a red scarf. From the surprise of the boy's appearance, Wu Shuang abruptly turns around. Seeing the boy, remembers that this is Hu Pinyin, Wu Shuang's friend and neighbor. He runs to Wu Shuang, simultaneously shouting, asking why he returned back to the academy. Pinyin excitedly asks his friend why he returned to Wudong Academy. Does he not know that he has become the target of Xianjiang and the others? To which Wu Shuang calmly replies, feeling the bed, that he knows this perfectly well. Then, a worried Pinyin asks if a friend knows about the danger. Then why is he still here? Warning that Xianjiang will not just leave behind and will get Wu Shuang, so he needs to be constantly on guard. Wu Shuang sits down on the bed in a relaxed manner, asking that Pinyin rushed here headlong to say this and whether he is not afraid of becoming an object of ridicule because of what he is doing with Wu Shuang. To which the friend replies that they grew up together in Donglan City, and although he can't help him, he can't watch his friend being mocked. Tense Wushuang, frowning, is silent on the words of a friend and thinks that this time his enemies will create a lot of problems for him and it is better not to involve others in it, so that no one gets hurt. He looks attentively at Pinyin and after a short silence, tells him not to come to his room unless it's something important. Wushuang confidently says that he can handle all the problems alone. After putting his friend out the door, Wushuang slams it loudly in Pinying's face, to which he only awkwardly scratches his head, not understanding what has come over him. It was the dead of night in the city, illuminating everything with moonlight. Under the moon, on the roof of one of the houses for students, Wushuang is sitting in the lotus position, training his strength. Suddenly, he is distracted by a rustle, and he is distracted from training, opening his eyes with interest. Wushuang sees two black silhouettes of young men trying to get into his room, and hears their conversation that they are discussing among themselves where to hide something in Wushuang's room. Along the way mentioning young Mr. Zhu, who promised to get Duqiu to one of the guys for a favor, while the guys hide the thing in the closet in Wushuang's room, telling each other to hurry before he comes. Wushuang himself descends from the roof, hiding behind the wall at the door to his room. When he hears the familiar name Zhu, he remembers that Zhu Ting is the youngest son of the head of the wealthy Zhu family, also known for his ridicule of the students of the Wudong Academy. After a while, the guys carefully leave Wu Shun's room, heading away, while Wushuang himself is watching them closely from behind the pillar. Wushuang reflects that the last time he saw Zhu Zihai at the king house, who was then accompanied by Jin Bui, realizing that the old fox was involved here too. He walks into his room after strange guys, immediately heading to the closet. Wushuang opens the cabinet doors, seeing the contents left by strangers, smiles maliciously. Examining the contents in the closet, Wushuang thinks that since Zhu Ting likes to play dirty, then so be it. Wushuang accepts the conditions. The silence of the dead of night is broken by a girl's scream, voicing that a thief has been started in the girls' living rooms. In the women's dormitory of the Wudong Academy, girlish exclamations are heard from all sides about the theft of girls' underwear. Everyone from the men's dorm comes running and starts waking up the others, shouting that the thief is wandering somewhere among the women's bedrooms and needs to be caught. They gather in a bunch, starting to discuss who could stoop to such a humiliating occupation. Among the crowd, there are smiling Zhu Ting and Xian Zhang, watching from the sidelines. Then, Zhu Ting enters into a heated discussion, asking one of the guys, Lai Fei, whether he saw the thief. He responds positively, saying that he was going to the toilet when he noticed someone's silhouette jumping on the walls. Grinning slyly, Zhu Ting asks if Lai Fei saw what the silhouette looked like. The one who mirrored Zhu Ting's grin replies that he did not see it because it was too dark. He only noticed movement on the walls of the bedrooms. Zhu Ting points to the side with his hand, explains that there is a men's dormitory in that direction. In other words, the thief is somewhere there. Other guys only gasp in surprise that there is a thief of girls' underwear among them. A grinning Xian Zhang enters into a heated discussion, saying that if the thief is still inside, it will be easier to find him. You need to gather all the guys from the neighborhood and search all the rooms in the men's dormitory. His idea is happily supported by Zhu Ting, praising Xian Zhang for an amazing idea. Then, Xian Zhang suggests starting with rooms that are locked and without residents, since they are more suspicious. Zhu Ting also supports him. Zhu Ting shouts through the fence separating the women's dormitory from the men's that they are going to investigate and report any suspicious movement. But suddenly a girl with long purple hair appears from behind the wall, who falls on the tiles of the wall. The angry girl tells the assembled guys that there is no need to wait any longer. She wants to personally go there and check everything. This girl is Yun Qingyan, the daughter of one of the three great families. She gracefully descends from the wall in one leap, while Zhu Ting asks her if any of her belongings were stolen from Ms. Yun, to which the girl menacingly orders Zhu Ting not to approach her and to start an investigation immediately. The girl goes ahead of everyone else, thinking that the one who stole her underwear will not live. They begin to go around all the rooms of the men's dormitory, approaching the nearest one. Yun Qingyan stops at the door to the room and opens the door with his foot, scaring everyone who was watching, and the guy who was inside the room. He is half asleep, frightened by such a sudden appearance of guests, jumps out of bed while Yun Qingyan and Xian Zhang inspect the room, warning the guy to stay where he is if he is innocent. Yun Qingyan turns away and says it's not a thief, so they go around all the rooms, breaking in without knocking on their feet, and not finding the thief. On the next room, trying to open the door with her feet, the girl feels resistance, since the door is locked from the inside. She throws a furious glance at the closed door of the room, asking who lives in it, to which, smiling maliciously, Xinghe answers her that a child from an eastern city lives there. The girl angrily says how he dared to lock the doors. Then, Xinghe shouts loudly that a native of the King family should immediately open the door in front of Ms. Yun if he has nothing to hide. Enraged, Xinghe, thinking that they will not be opened, swings his foot to knock down the door, pretending to apologize for the rudeness. Suddenly, the door opens abruptly, and the girl's leg flies right in front of the calm Wushuang, who managed to dodge it. A sleepy Wushuang rubs his eyes with tears from a yawn and asks what such a crowd needs from him in the middle of the night. Frowning and clenching his fists, Xinghe asks the sleepy guy if he didn't hear long and loud knocks on the door, to which Wushuang, yawning once again, replies that he was fast asleep and why are they even breaking into him at such a late hour. Muttering discontentedly, Wushuang complains that if they hadn't come and started breaking into his room in the middle of the night, he would have married a beauty in a dream. An agitated Xinghe starts shouting at Wushuang to stop pretending to be an idiot, saying that a robbery took place in the women's bedrooms and someone from the men's dormitory is to blame. So if Wushuang has nothing to hide, he should join their investigation and let his room be searched. Confused, Wushuang calmly stands next to the door of his room, crossing his arms over his chest, asking the crowd why on earth he should let someone into his room to rummage through his things. Screaming loudly, Xinghe pokes his finger at Wushuang and shouts for him to immediately give them passage, and if he refuses, then he has something to hide. Outraged by such an accusation, Wushuang says why shouldn't Ms. Yun first check the rooms of Xinghe and Zhu Ting? Perhaps it is they who are hiding something. Adding, Wushuang notes that it is possible to check his room, but where is the guarantee that none of them targeted him to discredit Wushuang's honest name? So, Wushuang demands to start checking all the rooms, and then he will provide his room for inspection. Xinghe looks at the young man, saying that he talks too much and that they have already checked a lot of rooms before him. So which rooms does he want to see? Wushuang confidently replies that this does not make sense, since their owners can simply refuse to inspect their room. A frowning Zhu Ting asks Wushuang who he is trying to drag into all this, to which, grinning, Wushuang replies, why don't Zhu Ting set an example and let him look around his room? Zhu Ting, putting his hand on his heart, says if Ms. Yun demands to check his room, he will not object. Other boys follow his example, shouting that Xinghe can check their rooms without obstacles. Frowning with displeasure, Xinghe looks at Wushuang saying that he heard everything, so he'd better get out of the way and let his room be examined. Annoyed, Wushuang replies that she can inspect his room, but let her know that he does not allow it out of respect for her. Smiling, Wushuang adds that he is just curious to know the end of this whole story. While the girl goes inside the room, Zhu Ting is grinning nastily in the crowd, foreshadowing a huge scandal. Xinghe walks into Wushuang's room while everyone is watching her actions outside. She approaches the large closet of the room, about to open it, to which Wushuang tries to stop her and shouts at her not to open the closet. The whole crowd, seeing Wushuang's reaction, starts shouting for Xinghe to open the closet. He's definitely hiding something there. Xinghe glares at Wushuang and pulls on the closet doors, when suddenly, a pile of dirty socks falls on her, falling on the girl's head. Everyone is shocked to see this picture, especially Zhu Ting, who knew for sure that the stolen things of the girls were to be found in Wushuang's closet. Enraged, Xinghe, holding a bunch of stinking foreign socks in her hand, shouts at Wushuang, thinking that he did it intentionally and who is putting piles of dirty socks in the closet at all. Chuckling softly and blushing, Wushuang says that he warned not to open the closet, and since his room was checked, it is impossible to neglect the other rooms of the men's dormitory. Outraged Xinghe, who literally has steam coming out of her ears from the situation, quickly walks out of Wushuang's room, telling him to follow them, to which, with his hands in his pockets, smiling Wushuang obediently follows her. They stop at the door of a room with a wooden sign number 1. Xinghe stands awkwardly and looks at the door, not daring to go in, because this room belongs to the power of the country of Liujiang, Dai Xiangyu. Having never found the courage to disturb such an important person, the crowd along with Xinghe just pass by, stopping briefly at the door. Wushuang smiles and folding his arms on his chest, asks why Ms. Yun missed and did not check this room. Is it possible that Xinghe only checks those who are weaker than her, without getting a response from the confused girl? Wushuang then turns to Zhu and Zhang with the same question, to which Xianjiang whispers that Wu Shuang is simply unworthy of such an honor. Laughing loudly at the faces, Wu Shuang walks past the room, loudly saying that a bunch of kids were just scared of such an important person in the country. Although, in fact, young Mr. Dai Xiang does not even live in the academy. Wu Shuang approaches someone's room, asking whose it is and noticing that he feels some kind of fragrance, so he assumes that this is the room of one of the girls, to which Zhu Ting gives a voice, saying that this bedroom is his, displeased by adding that he is innocent, so Wu Shuang insults him with his baseless. Zhu Ting threatens Wu Shuang that if he does not stop, he will sue him for slandering the nobility. Wu Shuang, smiling maliciously, says whether Zhu Ting is guilty or not, they should check his bedroom anyway. Putting pressure on Zhu Ting, Wu Shuang asks him if he is against. If so, then they have the first suspect. Already addressing Yun Qingyan, Wu Shuang says that if Ms. Yun does not personally check Zhu Ting's room herself, then he is no longer an assistant here. Having calmed down, Zhu Ting, putting his hand on his heart, turns to Yun Qingyan, saying that if she wants it, he will provide the bedroom at the disposal of Mrs. Yun. The girl opens the doors of Zhu Ting's bedroom, saying that she has no reason not to check on her. Yun Qingyan carefully examines Zhu Ting's room, going to the closet and abruptly opening the doors. From the closet, a pile of stolen underwear falls on the girl, settling on the floor. Everyone watching is in shock, looking at what happened, not finding words, just opening their mouths. Yun Qingyan looks furiously at the stolen items, noticing his underwear in the same pile. While everyone is shocked to digest what is happening, Wu Shuang laughs and calls Zhu Ting an animal, wishing to himself to enjoy his torment of Zhu Ting. Yun Qingyan, in a rage, breathing fire, approaches Zhu Ting, shouting his name, intending to hit him for stealing underwear, to which he, not understanding how this could happen, tries to justify himself, but does not have time, screaming in pain. The news that Zhu Ting was stealing the underwear of the girls from the Wudong Academy quickly spread throughout the country. Even the leadership of the academy was shocked by such news. They had to calm the girls down, as well as restore the honest name of the Wudong Academy, and Zhu Ting himself. Everywhere Zhu Ting went, he was called a scoundrel and a pervert, recoiling from him as from fire. The dean assured Zhu Ting that this was a terrible conspiracy against the Zhu family, to which Zhu Ting replied that for now they needed to be quiet, and not attract too much attention. After a while, Jin Bui gathered all the students to announce that after their investigation of the incident, they found out that Zhu Ting was practicing martial arts with other students at the same time as the incident occurred, which means Zhu Ting has a strong alibi. Jin Bui also added that Zhu Ting would never have dared to commit such a heinous crime and someone else was to blame for the theft. Jin Bui's speech was supported by other students, confirming that Zhu Ting was indeed with them at that moment. Standing in a rage and listening to the crowd's exclamations of his innocence, Zhu Ting thinks that King Wu Shuang will get what he deserves sooner or later. Also, watching this passing from the side, Wu Shuang sadly reflects that it is very convenient to have a high status. You can always get away with it. Wu Shuang reflects that in this world, if you are not strong enough or you do not have the support of influential families, then you have to live like a lousy dog. A world in which a strict hierarchy is built with the clearest boundaries. Whether it's a thing or a person, everything here is part of the hierarchy. Moreover, strength is highly valued and rewarded here, and almost all people are proficient in martial arts. All authority is built around how strong a person is. The power is also divided into clear boundaries at different levels. Different levels assume different privileges. The only way to enjoy everything at once is to reach the top, with your own strength. Wu Shuang notes that the King family at this stage are on the very edge of the abyss of the hierarchical ladder. And only thanks to the fact that the Wudong Academy opens its doors to all students, Wu Shuang was able to study here in peace. By training hard in martial arts in his room, Wu Shuang finally reaches the 9th level of Strength of Might. Realizing this fact, Wu Shuang opens his eyes in surprise and rejoices that he managed to reach the 9th level, feeling much stronger. He understands that now he will be able to use his special techniques from his past life. Wu Shuang reviews all the books with techniques that have been preserved in his head, choosing the right technique. He remembers the easiest technique of all, the secret yin technique, but decides that it is better to practice something more aggressive. He goes on to list all the memorized books of techniques: mind cleansing technique for cleansing the mind and body, Taoist classics True Kung Fu of the Zero Phase, the Book of Ancient Kung Fu of the North for absorbing the inner energy of other people. He notices among the pile of different books, the book The Technique of True Baking, remembering that in his past life he practiced it a lot. Wu Shuang decides to focus on the true hell technique, which is what he is most familiar with. Starting studying the technique, flames gather around the young man and his whole body is covered with unimaginable flame power. Sitting on the bed with the collected flame in his fist, Wu Shuang reasons that if he manages to reach the second level of the true hell technique, he will be able to deal with any martial artist of the second level of true power. The training is interrupted by a sudden knock on Wu Shuang's bedroom door and shouts of his name from outside, such that the young man loses all concentration, and the flame disappears from his fist. Wu Shuang opens the door and sees an excited boy with a bandage on his head, who, without wasting time, immediately tells that trouble has happened, and Xinghe and the others grab Pinyin, to which Wu Shuang looks at the guy in confusion. He remembers that this young man is Fan Xiaozhong, Hu Pingyin's cousin. Enraged Wu Shuang angrily looks ahead, realizing that Xinghe dared to involve completely innocent people in their showdown. Wu Shuang recalls the moment of their last duel with Xinghe, when he was beaten to death and miraculously recovered, deciding that today he would settle all accounts with the scoundrel Xinghe. Wu Shuang quickly leaves the room, asking where the hyena gang took Pinyin, to which Xiaozhong stammers that his cousin was taken to the hill in the bamboo forests. In the bamboo forest located on the hill, a crowd of young men from the Wutong Academy, led by Xinghe and Zhu Ting, gathered. They look at Pinyin hanging upside down from a bamboo tree and discuss whether Wu Shuang will come to the aid of his friend. Someone in the crowd says that Wu Shuang doesn't have the courage because he was beaten very cruelly last time. Xinghe grabs Pinyin by the hair, viciously telling him not to take offense at them, but to blame his dear friend Wu Shuang for everything, because he only cares about himself. Pinyin, all bruised, in anger, calls everyone watching bastards. That Xinghe swings his fist in Pinyin's face, intending to hit and find out how strong the young man is. But suddenly a menacing voice is heard ordering Xinghe to stop. The crowd of boys makes way for Wu Shuang and Xiaozhong, who are quickly heading forward to the suspended Pinyin and his tormentors. The whole crowd starts guffawing and wailing that Wu Shuang didn't have enough last time and he came for more. Xinghe and Zhu Ting, seeing Wu Shuang approaching them, are delighted that he really came. Seeing a suspended friend, Wu Shuang demands to let him go since he came here, to which Zhu Ting replies that they do not need Pinyin anymore and they will not harm him. Zhu Ting cuts the rope on which Pinyin's legs were suspended with one swing. His cousin immediately runs up to help him, asking if everything is alright with him. Serious, Wu Shuang tells two friends to leave, because they only need him. But Pinyin resists and shouts, clenching his fists, that he will not go anywhere and will prove to these runts what they are worth. Then, Xinghe gives a voice to Wu Shuang, reminding him that he had already beaten him to death last time and challenging him to a new duel. A frowning Wu Shuang asks if Xinghe is sure to settle old scores with him. But he is no longer heard. The excited crowd demands a fight and teach Wu Shuang a lesson, asking him to defeat him for sure this time. Grinning maliciously, Xinghe thinks that he has been waiting for this moment for months to avenge Zhu Ting and now he has a chance to do it, as well as try out new techniques on the wheezy Wu Shuang. Xinghe turns to Zhu Ting, asking him to become a judge in his duel with Wu Shuang, to which Zhu Ting replies that since they will fight based on their old grievances, so this time he will be their judge. Folding his arms across his chest, Wu Shuang tells Zhu Ting that it's quite funny to be a judge for his own servant, to which Zhu Ting angrily snorts at him, thinking that this time Wu Shuang will definitely not live. There was a commotion at the academy because of the fight. All the students go and discuss that King Wu Shuang and Xinghe had a duel in the bamboo forest. The guy with white hair and white robes also hears this. The rivals stand opposite each other while Zhu Ting stands between them, who waves his hand, indicating the beginning of the fight. The whole crowd cheers and asks to defeat Wu Shuang. Only two people from the whole crowd, watching the fight, really care about Wu Shuang. Xinghe, squeezing his hand, confidently shouts that this time Wu Shuang will not get off so easily and he will kill him, to which Wu Shuang also confidently replies with a smile that he can try to kill him. Xinghe jumps at the opponent with lightning speed, putting out his fist to strike. Seeing that he does not move, laughs that Wu Shuang cannot even move out of fear. Suddenly, Wu Shuang dodges Xinghe's attack, which throws him into shock. Xinghe tries to hit his opponent 5 more times, but he very quickly evades the attacks, surprising Xinghe with his speed. Then, Xinghe retreats and shouts that Wu Shuang only evades and knows how, calling him a coward. The crowd of students watching the fight begins to echo Xinghe, discontentedly calling and condemning Wu Shuang's deviations. Smiling, Wu Shuang says what can he do if his opponent is so slow. Angry, Xinghe shows off his strength and says he will see how much Wu Shuang has enough before he runs away. The crowd looks admiringly at Xinghe's aura, marveling at his strength and the third level of martial arts strength. Concentrating the power of the crushing wind technique, he hits Wu Shuang directly in the solar plexus of his chest, causing an explosion and a blinding bright light to appear. Laughing, Xinghe says that Wu Shuang is not so fast, and for his blow he gets an enthusiastic audience, of which 2 people stand and look at the place where Wu Shuang stood, which now has only a column of smoke. Zhu Ting grins maliciously, realizing that this is the end of it. But the smoke slowly dissipates, and Xinghe looks in shock at the silhouette of Wu Shuang, with burning red eyes, with whom everything is fine. Everyone watching the fight looks in shock at the unharmed Wu Shuang, who did not even move from such a powerful blow from Xinghe. Wu Shuang, flashing blue eyes and concentrating his strength, thinks that he is already at the first level of true power, and did Xinghe really think that he could win, being only at the third level of martial arts strength? Wu Shuang finished concentrating the power in his fist, shouting that the only one who will die here is Xinghe. Wu Shuang hits his opponent in the face with all his strength, causing him to fly off into a large stone, destroying it with his body, and settling on the stone fragments. The discouraged crowd silently stares at Xinghe, defeated by one blow, with wide eyes. A joyful Pinyin and Zhang run up to Wu Shuang, who look at him admiringly, asking what kind of technique he used, and Wu Shuang promises the guys that he will definitely teach them this technique. Standing at a distance, Zhu Ting looks at Wu Shuang with horror, not understanding how he could grow up so quickly in just a couple of months. Delighted with the victory over Xinghe, Wu Shuang turns to Zhu Ting, with a smile, thanking him for being the judge in their fight. Enraged, Zhu Ting orders the crowd to report everything to Ding and the government that King Wu Shuang killed a member of the Zhang clan in a one-on-one battle. The king house is full of gifts and people. The head of the king angrily shouts for everyone to get out of the house of the king family, throwing gifts on the street to the fleeing ones along the way. Zhu comes out of the room and sees an angry father, asking what is going on and who came. The angry head of king replies that the Niu family, who owned a herb shop, came with gifts, with a marriage proposal based on their relationship with the Zhu family. But Zhu has nothing to worry about. She will never be given as a daughter-in-law to such scum. Zhu, pressing her hand to her chest, confidently replies that as long as her father and Wu Shuang are with her, she is not afraid of anything. After mentioning Wu Shuang, the head of king asks how his son is doing at the academy, and things are not going very smoothly at the academy. Being in his room after the fight with Xinghe, Wu Shuang calmly sits on the bed with his eyes closed while an argument breaks out between Pinyin and Zhang. Zhang claims that after killing a member of the noble Zhang family, you need to run back to the eastern city, while Pinyin defiantly says that this is not necessary, since the battle was fair. If they escape, they may be accused of being the first to start the fight. Then, a gloomy Wu Shuang gives a voice, saying that everything is fine, we just need to watch the further development of events, also asking that Pinyin and Zhang stay away from him if they do not want to get hit. When asked to stay away from him, Pinyin and Zhang put their hand on their hearts, saying that they would never abandon their hero, who saved them from trouble, and a friend, promising that they would cope with everything together. Smiling, Wu Shuang says, since this is the case, then stay. Jin Bui should be here any minute now. At the same moment, a loud voice of Jin Bui is heard, saying that it is better for King Wu Shuang not to commit stupid and rash acts, tripling the one-on-one fight and killing the opponent, so all the evidence is against Wu Shuang. A relaxed Wu Shuang comes out of his room, watching a whole crowd, led by Jin Bui and Zhu Ting. Smiling, Wu Shuang says that the fight was fair, with many witnesses who saw everything for themselves, and Mr. Zhu himself acted as the judge of their fight. Zhu Ting, standing next to Jin Bui, denies and says that everything was clearly wrong. This is all Wu Shuang's revenge based on hatred for Xinghe. And if the dean doesn't believe Zhu Ting, he can ask anyone from the crowd what really happened. A confident Zhu Ting looks at the crowd, thinking that no one would dare to go against the Zhu family. That's what happens. Everyone who watched the fight just waved it off, claiming that they didn't see anything. Jin Bui, feeling the victory, throws up his hands and says that no one can justify King Wu Shuang. Then, Pinyin and Zhang come out to prove Wu Shuang's innocence, saying they can confirm that Xinghe and Wu Shuang's battle was fair. But Jin Bui rejects their words, arguing that they are from the same city and can cover for each other and their words mean nothing. Suddenly, the head of the Mao Zhang family and the eldest son of the Yao Zhang family burst into the courtyard, shouting where the murderer of their family member is and demanding to go out with him to fight in order to avenge the death of his younger brother. Radiating a destructive aura, the head of Zhang, whose face has turned black from rage, approaches Jin Bui, asking the dean why he still hasn't arrested his son's killer. Zhu Ting exclaims that all the evidence is on the face and Wu Shuang can be safely arrested. Grinning maliciously and flashing red eyes, Jin Bui, addressing Wu Shuang, says that no one will be able to prove his innocence, telling other students to capture the murderer. Laughing, Wu Shuang says that in this brainless crowd there was not a single student who dared to tell the truth, ever. Displeased with Wu Shuang's speeches, Jin Bui orders him to close his mouth and stop talking nonsense. Suddenly, a white-haired young man comes out of the gate, asking to wait for Wu Shuang's arrest. Everyone immediately recognizes with horror in the blonde young man, Daxi Yan. He does not waste time in vain. Discontentedly turns to Zhu Ting, saying that this is how he performs his duties as a judge. Jin Bui immediately bows to a member of the Daxi family, asking what he wants to say, to which the gloomy Daxi Yang replies that he is a little worried that other countries have a great reason to laugh at their country, because there is not a single decent person in it. Daxi Yang confidently says that he will be a witness to Wu Shuang, saying that in fact, the fight between Wu Shuang and Xian Zhang was honest and Zhu Ting was there as a judge. Daxi Yan's words are just the evidence they need, and if someone wants to challenge them, then let them come forward and discuss it with him. In a panic, Jin Bui asks if Mr. Daxi really saw everything with his own eyes, but he is interrupted by the head of the Zhang family, saying that Wu Shuang is responsible for his son's death, so let justice overtake him. Daxi Yan turns to the men, menacingly asking when someone from the Dax family didn't keep his word. Seizing on the hope that appeared, Pinyin says that young Mr. Dax himself confirmed that the battle was fair. Xiao Zhang echoes him, asking what will happen to those who forged evidence and framed Wu Shuang. An exasperated Jin Bui points his finger at the young men, saying that this case will be thoroughly investigated. However, King Wu Shuang often caused problems to other students, and even if it was a fair battle, Wu Shuang is still guilty of violating the harmony of Wudong Academy. Jin Bui was about to start his next shouting speech when he was interrupted by an angry Wu Shuang, who asked the dean if he just wanted to throw him out of the academy, to which Jin Bui replied that he had enough strength for that. Pretending to smile, Wu Shuang says that he no longer intends to stay at this academy. He only stayed here for a few months in order to wait for the right moment. The moment when the unfortunate idiot Xian Zhang comes to him for his death. The discouraged Jin Bui, unable to find words to answer, only viciously opens his mouth. But Wu Shuang already passes him on the way out of the academy, saying that he is not going to stay in this academy for a minute longer. He is followed by Pinyin and Xiao Zhang, agreeing and also leaving Wudong Academy. Then the enraged Jin Bui shouts to the boys that he will look forward to watching them take his martial arts exam for 3.5 years, to which, grinning, Wu Shuang replies that there must be a limit to Jin Bui's greed, because the sacred land of Zhenwu is clearly going to send its people to take the exam. After all, the esteemed dean of the Wudong Academy is just a servant of the aristocrats, unless Jin Bui can somehow influence the course and outcome of the exam, which gives him such a right. Jin Bui grits his teeth in rage, not knowing what to say to the arrogant boy. Then, the head of the Zhang family is furious, concerts the force around him and shouts to Wu Shuang that he killed his son and thinks he can just leave here, without answering for his death with his head, to which Wu Shuang replies that it was a fair fight. God himself decided who should live and who should die. Was Elder Zhang going to publicly kill Wu Shuang? Concentrating the power around himself, Wu Shuang reflects that Mao Zhang definitely has a true power of the second rank, which he is not able to defeat yet. But in any case, the head of the Zhang family will not be able to openly violate the laws of the country. While the discouraged adults stand and talk among themselves, Zhu Ting shouts after the departing Wu Shuang that he will see how much he can stand with his pride until she takes him to the grave. Without turning to the nobility, Wu Shuang says that everything that happened today was only due to negligence towards the King family. Wu Shuang, flashing blue eyes, says that the mountains will never meet, unlike them, and he will definitely return to Wudong Academy in 3 years. After saying the last words, Wu Shuang has finally disappeared behind the gates of Wudong Academy, heading back to his eastern city, in the company of loyal friends. The head of Zhang, flashing red eyes, promises that King Wu Shuang will definitely pay for the death of his son Xian Zhang. Jin Bui tries to calm him down, saying that now the King family is under the protection of the Daxi family and Elder Zhang needs to be more careful. Also, Jin Bui reminds that the assessment of families will take place in 3 years, then the King family will definitely be wiped off the face of the earth. The next sunny day, Daxi Yang returned to the huge estate of the Daxi family. The head of the Daxi Heng family listened attentively to his son's story about an unusual young man from the King family, noticing that King Wu Shuang is not so simple. Elder Daxi is interested in pronouncing the name of King Wu Shuang and learning that he is from the poor class. The head of the Daxi family notices that Wu Shuang waited long and carefully for the moment to strike back. Apparently, if the rest of the noble families try to rob King Wu Shuang's family, they will only find themselves in trouble. Perplexed, Daxi Yang asks her father why the families who tried to rob the King family are in trouble. Because that incident with Xian Zhang's death happened only because of disputes between martial arts students. He shares that he thinks it won't really change the situation as a whole. To which Daxi Heng, laughing and looking at him, replies to his son that if he had not appeared there as a witness, then of course everything would have been much easier. However, his appearance happened, so things changed dramatically. The head of the Daxi family explains that right now, the Zhu family is somewhat wary, due to the possibility that the King family may have some close ties with the Daxi family. To which Daxi Yang asks if they should prove to the Zhu family that they are not involved in the King family, and will distance themselves from them. Smiling, Daxi Heng says that there is no need. Besides, there is no need to expect their family to be nice to aristocrats like the Zhang family. Also, adding that this King Wu Shuang is quite a brave and resourceful youth, so Wu Shuang must have a good relationship with his King family. After a short silence, Daxi Yang hesitantly and awkwardly asks about the news about her brother. The head of the Dax family looks thoughtfully into the clear sunny sky and replies that Daxi's brother Jan, at the moment, will not be able to help him, but the head of Daxi asks his son not to worry about his brother, because he is already big, so he will soon come to his senses. Having found a horse cart somewhere, the company led by Wu Shuang gets into it and, swinging on bumps, starts on the way to the eastern city. Bouncing on particularly sharp bumps, Xiao Zhang asks the relaxed Wu Shuang if they will be able to get home safely. He is echoed by Ping Yin, saying worriedly that if they want to ambush them. Without opening his eyes and without changing his relaxed position, Wu Shuang tells them not to worry and everything will be fine. Then, the surprised Pinyin asks why he is so sure, to which Wu Shuang opens his sparkling eyes and smiling, enthusiastically says just 3 words, the much respected Daxi family. The news that King Wu Shuang had defeated a member of the famous Zhang noble family and dropped out of Wudong Academy quickly spread throughout Donglan. Hearing the sounds of the approaching carriage and the sound of hooves on the ground, the head of King and Zhu go out to meet their family member, who this time was able to take revenge on the offenders and win glory to the King family. But uninvited guests stand in the way of the head of King and Zhu, who believe that the King family has found out that they are here and came out to greet them. In the courtyard of the King family, 2 members of the Niu family are standing brazenly and uninvited. The seller from the shop of medical herbs, Niu Dai, tells his son to go and talk to Mrs. Zhu, to which his son Niu Fen, folding his arms on his chest, confidently exclaims that he will do so. Niu Fen comes closer to the King family, trying to approach the gloomy Zhu, but he is blocked by the angry head of the King family, rudely asking what outsiders have questions for them. To which Niu Fen stupidly giggles, grinning nastily, putting 2 rabbit teeth on display. Niu Dai confidently says that there is nothing to worry about. Just a father and son came to the King family in order to make a marriage proposal, and also discuss with the head of King the possibility of cooperation. With unpleasant surprise, the head of King asks Niu Dai what kind of cooperation is in question. But King Wu Shuang, who abruptly appears, who asks the same question addressed to Niu Dai, does not let him finish. The members of the King family turn around in surprise, seeing the young man stomping towards them in a relaxed manner, immediately joyfully calling him by name and greeting him. Immediately, Niu Dai gives a voice, smiling again, looking like an evil rabbit, telling that he heard how young Mr. King defeated a member of one of the famous and noble family, also bringing congratulations to Wu Shuang on his victory. And the scoundrel Niu Dai thinks to himself that Wu Shuang won with someone's help. Annoyed, Wu Shuang replies that Niu Dai was late with congratulations and a visit, since Mr. Zhu has already renounced his past words about the destruction of the King family, and about protection after its fall in the evaluation of families. Still smiling hideously with rabbit teeth, Niu Dai responds to Wu Shuang's speech that Niu himself is quite close to Mr. Zhu. As soon as Elder King obediently renounces his place in the nobility and family assessment, and accepts the marriage proposal, the Niu family will take care of the safety of the King family. Then, tired of listening to New Dai's speeches, Wu Shuang rudely tells him to go back to where he came from, and they will wait for Mr. Zhu to use something against the King family. Amazed at such impudence of the youngster, New Dai hysterically turns to the head of the king, asking him why some green impudent youngster is now running the affairs of the family. Enraged by the situation, Lion Shan replies that the words spoken by Wu Shuang are his words, and drives away the uninvited guests. Suddenly, Niu Feng intervenes in the conversation, shouting illiterate and incoherently, shaking his fist that if Wu Shuang does not allow him to marry Zhu now, then it will be too late, and he will not accept the marriage proposal. Annoyed, Wu Shuang turns to the village fool, flashing blue eyes, says through his teeth that little Niu can marry the cows of the King family if he so pleases. The door of the King family's house slams shut loudly, leaving Niu Dai and Niu Fei with nothing on the street. Those viciously grinding their teeth, they say that the King family does not distinguish between good and bad, and will simply rot without the help of such a great family as Niu. The King family gathered in full in the courtyard with a stone table and chairs. Wu Shuang enthusiastically talks about his victories at the Wudong Academy, to which the father exclaims enthusiastically, praising his son for a job well done. A smiling Zhu sits next to him, who shows with all her appearance how proud she is of her brother. Surprised by such a reaction, Wu Shuang says that he expected a different reaction from his father, that his father would be ashamed of him. But the head of the King family, smiling happily, says that victory over a member of a famous and noble family is already worthy of respect. And how can a father be ashamed of such exploits of his son? Full of confidence and support from his family, Wu Shuang says Xian Zhang's death is just the beginning. It will only get tougher from now on. The father, hardly pronouncing the words, says that the rich will not just leave this incident, but is interrupted by coughing up blood, which greatly scares his children. The frightened Wu Shuang sees that his father has overtrained and his meridians are tangled, turning into a red ball of tangled threads. Wu Shuang thinks that his father's abilities are not so good, so if he hurries with training, he will die because of his inner energy, like Wu Shuang himself in his previous life. Clearing his throat, the head of the king tries to convince the children that everything is fine and he just choked on a bug that flew into his mouth. But they don't believe, and Zhu says that he coughed up blood and urgently needs to see a doctor. Wu Shuang interrupts her and says that he knows how to help his father. Everyone looks at him in surprise. Wu Shuang uses silver needles on his father to remove chaotic energy from his body since he has overtrained. The head of the king asks his son where he learned such techniques, to which he replies that he did not learn much at the academy, but he found a lot of useful books in the library. Wu Shuang takes the book out of the bag, explaining that he took it from the academy library and did not quite understand, asking his father to take a look at it. He picks up the book Tendon Changes, starting to leaf through it and asking with shock if it's true from the academy, to which he replies that the dean wouldn't understand it anyway, so he took it away, thinking it was useful. Wu Shuang worries that his father will not believe in his legend, but he readily believes, saying that the academy has existed for a couple of centuries and it is not surprising to find such books there. The son asks his father what is written there and he explains that this is a serious collection of techniques that their family lacked. The head of the king hands back the book, saying that it will be useful to his son in the future, to which he replies that he cannot use it yet and it is better for his father to study it. It can help him heal. The father agrees and says that he will study it first and then teach Wu Shuang. The head of king leaves the house on Zhu and he goes to concentrate on training, believing that they will help their family get up from their knees. Head Jiang stands in front of the coffin of his murdered son. He is furious that the king family will know the same grief as himself. Zhu Zihai, standing next to him, asks to delay the revenge of the saddened father. The head of Zhang thinks that the Zhu family tried to take over the king family, and his son was in the thick of things and it was the king family that was to blame for everything. The saddened father, clenching his fists, says that he understands everything and maybe he will allow the king family to exist for a little longer. King Wu Shuang came forward and said that he would like to ask Mr. Daxi to be their judge, because he was going to fight these two in a duel. God be their witness. Ming said that Wu Shuang was only a child, so he wondered if the guy could make such decisions alone, and whether his sister would agree with this. Zhu loudly and confidently told Daxi Ming that if it was a one-on-one duel, then she agreed. The guy thought that the younger brother and his older sister clearly did not understand what they were getting into. He wondered what it was about Wu Shuang that everyone considered him so special. He turned to the troublemakers and thought that Zhu Yuan had already mastered the first level of true power, and he was not sure about Wu Shuang's strength. so he would give the guy someone easier. He asked what Zhang Yao thought about it. The guy smiled maliciously and rubbed hand in hand, saying that he had no objections. After a while, a crowd of people gathered on one of the streets of the city. Everyone was talking about something. Daxi Ming lowered his outstretched hand in front of the guys ready to fight. He said that a duel was about to begin, and fate would decide the outcome of this battle. People in the crowd began to recognize those involved in the duel. One man asked the other if it was Wu Shuang, the same martial arts student from a poor family. Zhu'er was very worried about her brother from the outside. She loudly asked Wu Shuang to be careful in this duel. The guy turned to his sister and, smiling, told her not to worry, because he would just teach this not very good person a lesson. People in the crowd howled, noticing what a cruel provocation the guy used. They said that it seemed that Wu Shuang believed that he would not die immediately. Zhang Yao raised his blade in front of him and declared that he was going to cut King Wu Shuang in two with this knife. He said that the guy should not worry, because he would take care of his little sister. Wu Shuang calmly raised his hand, which had concentrated power on it, and stated that if these were Zhang Yao's last words, then they should start a duel. Daxi Ming looked intently at Wu Shuang and thought that this guy had really gone crazy. He decided that if something happened, he would have to intervene. The guy quickly announced that the duel had begun. As soon as these words were uttered, Zhang Yao rushed from the spot, intending to kill Wu Shuang. He clearly decided that he would avenge his brother. While Zhang Yao was rapidly approaching, Wu Shuang did not take a single step from the spot. He just watched in silence as the enemy flew at him. One of those watching the duel smiled. Zhu'er was calling her brother while a panicked Daxi Ming was standing next to her. The guy thought that Wu Shuang would not have time to dodge, because it was already too late. With his blade, Zhang Yao swung at Wu Shuang, who was taking this blow with open arms. The guy looked at Zhang Yao from under his brows and said that, as he had already said, the enemy's sword was too stupid to cut him. With quick and light movements, he struck a series of blows at the enemy. Zhang Yao's sword crumbled as if it was made of glass. Wu Shuang extended his index finger towards the enemy, after which a flash of light covered the battlefield. Everyone watching was genuinely stunned by what was happening. Suddenly, Zhang Yao's body fell right in front of the feet of the man who had been grinning just a short while ago. Wu Shuang, still holding a finger loaded with power in front of him, said that the next one could come up. He asked if Mr. Zhu Yuan wanted it that way. The crowd of people who had been watching the battle all this time were shocked and trying to understand what had happened. They even wondered if they were sleeping. Zhu Yuan looked at his comrade's body in fright, realizing that he had been killed with just one finger. He understood that even he could not defeat Zhang Yao in one move, and here it is. Panic flashed in his eyes. He didn't know what to do. He looked at Wu Shuang and noticed that this guy's power was simply incommensurable. At the same time, Daxi Ming, no less surprised, looked at the guy and wondered if he was just a simple student. Lying on the ground, Zhang Yao addressed Zhu Yuan. Ning looked at the guy and said that he had lost, after which the guy asked if young Zhang would accept the fight. Wu Shuang asked Zhu Yuan if the guy wanted to live or save his face. He asked him to hurry up with the solution of this issue. Zhu Yuan clenched his fist tightly and said that King Wu Shuang is quite strong. The guy turned around and told his people that they were leaving. While the gentleman shamefully left the place of the duel, his people were arguing with those watching the honor of Zhu Yuan. Wu Shuang looked at Zhang Yao's motionless body. He noticed that the guy was not moving and asked if he was dead. At this time, Zhu'er and Daxi Ming were heading towards the winner. The gentleman from the Daxi family said that King Wu Shuang did very well. Wu Shuang said that this Zhu Yuan is a much more slippery type than the Zhang family's son, Zhang Yao. Ming agreed, saying that Zhu Yuan ran away, flashing his heels. He said that, in his opinion, Wu Shuang would not be able to fight with the guy anymore. Wu Shuang asked why, assuming that his father was beating him. Daxi Ming said that this was not quite true, and the guy defamed the name of the Prince of Seven and the others. Wu Shuang turned around and said that from what he had heard, Daxi Ming was the main one among them, the Prince of the Seven. He asked if the guy felt ashamed for Zhu Yuan. The guy exhaled and said that the Prince of the Seven was the name that others had given him. Daxi Ming said that he is who he is anyway. Wu Shuang said that Daxi Ming fully deserves his title, that people like Zhu Yuan should think twice before being called like that. The guy said it was very well said. Mr. Daxi held out his hand to Wu Shuang and said that the guy had surprised him very much, and was waiting for him at home when there was time. They shook hands and Wu Shuang accepted Daxi Ming's invitation. Zhu'er sincerely thanked the guy for everything. Daxi Ming blushed after the girl said that. The guy called a girl with a basket. Daxi Ming handed Mrs. King Zhu'er a basket containing sharp crabs. The girl blushed and said that it was very nice of the gentleman. The guy said it was his gift to her. The girl took the basket of crabs in her hands and thanked Daxi Ming again. Suddenly the guy called everyone to attention. He stated that today's duel was fair and irrefutable. He, Daxi Ming, is a witness to that. At the same time, at the Zhang family estate, a poor servant was rushing to Mr. Zhang. The guy was trying to say that their young master had died. The head of the Zhang family was genuinely shocked by this information. Loud shouts could be heard in the Zhu residence at this time. Using a whip, the head of the family punished Zhu Yuan, asking the guy about how it was possible to disgrace the family in such a way. He said that Zhu Yuan was not worthy to be his son. A middle-aged man asked him to stop, because the young gentleman is already unconscious. The man ordered to say when he wakes up, because the punishment of the guy is not over yet. The man was full of rage. He said that he really underestimated the Qing family, the main arena of Luojiang province. It is in this place that every 20 years a family assessment is carried out. In the assessment of families there is a struggle for the status of the family. For ordinary people, there is only one way to rise. If a poor family wins over a rich one, their statuses will change. The Daxi family holds the highest status, and none of the other families dare to stand up to them. The three wealthy classes consist of the Zhu, Yun, and Cayenne families. Before today's competition, no one from Luojiang province could challenge them. The head of the Yun family came out to meet the other representatives. The head said that, in his opinion, this time there will be no worthy opponents. The head of the Zhu house looked menacingly at the man after these words and asked if Elder Yun really wanted to declare war on the Zhu clan. The smile on the face of the head of Yun fell, after which he thought that this person does not understand jokes at all. Elder Cayenne stepped forward. He told the other members of the rich families that they shouldn't pick a fight in such a place. Authoritative classes usually have 1 or 2 changes in the outcome. And as for the poor classes, 3 or 4 families will lose their place among the aristocrats. At the same time, 3 or 4 families of ordinary people will be able to become aristocrats. The Zhu clan members began to approach the head. The head noticed that his cousins were already here, so he would leave the Qing family to them. They accepted this order and asked not to worry. A man in bright robes entered the arena. He greeted everyone, saying that this meeting took place after 20 years. The guy spoke into the microphone about how much he missed the participants. They, the inhabitants of the Beiyu Kingdom, honor the old traditions of martial arts, and that's fine. One of these traditions is the evaluation of families. And to be more precise, this is the best reason for all families to show their strength. The guy said that now he can announce competitions for the places of 2 families of poor classes. These places are occupied by the Lai family from the city of Judu, as well as the Qing family from the city of Donglan. 5 families will fight for seats. The Gu family, the Wen family is from Luojiang province. The Lan family is from the city of Dizuda. The Li family is from the city of Dizuda. And the Niu family from Luojiang province. The crowd of onlookers burst out laughing. They asked if the Qing family from Donglan City was so weak because others were taken into the competition. People said that the Qing family, after all, have a 1,000-year history, and it's quite unfortunate that they are being destroyed generation after generation. They even remembered that there had been rumors earlier that the Qing family was supported by Daxi, but they came to the conclusion that it was really just rumors. Qin Lianshan silently looked at those who were spreading such unflattering conversations. The presenter said that reputable families are next. He said there was only one place here, and it belonged to the Zid family. Their opponent will be the Zhu family. People started shouting that the Zhu family is the strongest among the families from the lower classes. Besides, these families do not get along with each other. They already knew that the Zid family would fall, and this year's finale is already clear. They were not interested in this competition. The presenter smiled and asked people to be calmer because he has very interesting news for them. He said that today they will also see a battle for a place in the rich class. He asked the crowd if they wanted to know who would fight. People were intrigued. People did not believe that there was someone in the province who could match the strength of 3 rich families, because they almost always held their place. While people wanted to know who dared to challenge the rich families, King Lianshan looked at his son in surprise. Elder Yun was intrigued. He was glad that someone had challenged the rich families. He wanted to see that authoritative family that turned out to be so brave. The host loudly announced that the Zhu family from Luojiang province was being summoned. The ones who dared to challenge them are the Qing family from Donglan City. Hearing this, Zhu and King Lianshan were genuinely shocked. Yun Yong'er immediately turned around, recognizing the Qing family because of King Wu Shuang. The crowd was at a loss. They even thought that they had heard something wrong, because the poor family had missed an entire level. They wondered who was behind them. Elder Yun laughed. He said that this was getting interesting. They dared to speak out against a family of the wealthy class and apparently are very ambitious. His daughter supported the words of the head and said that they deserved applause. The man smiled bloodthirstily and said that Yin'er is the foundation and aspiration of all fighters. The host loudly declared that the strongest would win. He asked people to praise this event. The guy appealed to all the families he named with a request to come to the arena in order to sign the agreement. The so-called agreement is actually a rejection of life and death. 5 families will fight for places in the poor class. Among them, only the Lai family was noble. The Gu, Wen and Niu families will fight for the King family's place, while the King family itself will fight for a place in the rich class. An elder of the Zhu family came out and said that since the Zhu family had proven its strength, anyone who opposed it ceased to exist. The man said that someone was clearly impatient to die. He declared that he would fulfill the wish of this suicide bomber. He signed the agreement. King Wu Shuang telling a story. He said that there was once an old man who was from a rich family. He was so greedy that he wanted to take everything away from another family. Elder Zhu listened in silence, saying that this old man threatened in every possible way so that the family would surrender itself, and he could easily take everything for himself. He turned to the people and said that he wanted to ask every one of them who lives in this world of martial arts, whether it is possible to give up without a fight. King Wu Shuang loudly declared that if anyone did this, he would be tainted for the rest of his life. Hearing this, Elder Yun smiled broadly while his daughter was in shock. The people watching the arena looked at the guy in amazement. A powerful energy enveloped King Wu Shuang. The guy said that today he would take the old man's place for himself. Elder Zhu reflected that only people from the family can participate in the family assessment, and even if Wu Shuang is patronized by the Daxi family, it will not help him. The presenter turned to the man and said that there is one rule that concerns him specifically. He said that in case the King family wins, the elder will be demoted to the poor class. But since the King family is giving up their place today, the man will be demoted to ordinary residence if he loses. The elder looked at the host extremely sternly and said that his Zhu family would not lose to anyone. The moderator said that according to the rules, it would take 1 fight to determine a place in a poor class, 3 fights for places in an authoritative class, and 5 for a rich one. The man smiled and said that as far as he knows, there are only 2 people in the King family who can fight at the moment. King Wu Shuang noticed that the rules also say that 1 person can fight all the fights alone. Zhu Yer and Lian Shan looked at Wu Shuang in surprise. The audience also reacted violently. The host said that, of course, King Wu Shuang is right, but the number of opponents of the guy will increase with each fight. His father and said that he did not need to worry about anything, because this time he would definitely return the status and dignity to this family. The man said that he knows that he has been training a lot since he was young, but no matter how hard he tries, Wu Shuang will not be able to achieve true power at this age. King Lian Shan turned to his son and asked him to tell him honestly if something unusual had happened to him. The guy looked at his father and thought, if rebirth in another world after death with his father and sister can be considered unusual, then this is so. King Wu Shuang said that his father's intuition did not let him down and something happened to him. He also added that his father wouldn't believe it anyway if Wu Shuang told him. The guy said that he could only promise that his further actions would not discredit either the gods or the ancestors. King Lian Shan said it was wonderful, and he was extremely happy to hear it from his son. From now on, he won't bother him. From this day on, he will support in everything. At this time in Zhu Manor, Elder Zhu turned to his cousins. He said that now he is more confident than ever that their blood is boiling. The man stated that hundreds of years have passed since the Zhu family became part of the wealthy class. He said they had already passed 6 family assessments and still retained their status. He said that today someone had overreached their family. The elder said that no matter who their opponent is, the Zhu family's motto is to fight to the death. Everyone who owned the surname Zhu howled loudly. I agree with Elder Zhu's statement. Zhu Sihai turned to the elder and said that they understand the importance, so they are ready to put their lives on the line at any cost. We need to break the King family. The elder said that Sihai was completely right, and the honor and prestige of the Zhu family was at stake. He stated that anyone with the surname Zhu should be killed in battles. The muscular man stuck his weapon into the ground and asked Elder Zhu to let him perform in the first fight. The elder said that it was very good, because now the man must trample on the hopes of the King family. No matter how, but the enemy must be killed. Elder Zhu turned around and said that their boat had almost returned from Nanyuan Prefecture. At the same time, at the estate of the Daxi family, the older man told Heng that he had recently heard that the Zhu family was not doing too well right now. Daxi Heng said that the Zhu family is arrogant and self-sufficient, and sooner or later they would have to face problems. Only this time something prevented them. Uncle Shi from the Daxi family said that at this family assessment for the first time in the history of Liujiang province, someone decided to summon a class that is 2 levels higher than themselves. Daxi Heng noticed that the boy from the King family is not so simple. Uncle Shi looked at the man questioningly. He stated that the other day Ming'er told him that an ordinary student of the 7th level was able to kill a warrior at the peak of his strength in just a couple of seconds. Uncle Shi's face became more cruel. He asked Heng if the man was laughing at him. The man said that Ming'er is not at all one of those people who say anything. Uncle Shi thought of something when he heard that name. Uncle Shi asked if this poor child Ming'er had decided to return to their family. Daxi Heng said that the guy just couldn't cope and came back. He said that Ming'er should have already understood that this would have to be faced. He stated that he had just recently heard that a guy had noticed a daughter from the King family. Daxi Deng said he was worried about whether Ming'er was up to something again. Uncle Li moved another figure and said that Heng should carefully monitor the guy, because he doesn't have anything on his mind just like that. Looking at the gaming table, Daxi Heng smiled and said that his uncle was talking. He fiercely put the piece on the table and said that uncle had lost again and laughed. At this time, King Wu Shuang was sitting and practicing intently. The guy used 2 opposing forces and tried to create harmony between them. But suddenly they both exploded, snatching him out of meditation. He was upset that he was still unable to combine the true Inferno technique and the strikes of the 9 suns. There is quite little time for cultivation here. King Wu Shuang understood that there were only a couple of days left before the first fight. He had nothing to fear, but he should not be ruthless. Suddenly, someone knocked on the room where Wu Shuang was sitting. It was King Lion Shan. The guy was surprised by this guest. The man approached Wu Shuang and said that, in his opinion, they should give up in this competition. The guy looked at his father in disbelief. The father said that the Zhu family has a lot of experience in making plans, and there were also rumors that they had already expanded their possessions to the southern heavenly city. Considering what's going on in the trade right now, King Wu Shuang's father had no idea what tricks the Zhu family had in store. He offered to wait another 20 years. King Wu Shuang looked out the window and said, "So what if these people are so strong and great?" He wondered if they would be able to resist Wu's sacred land. In this kingdom, as long as the sacred land has not ordered the destruction of the King family, there is still a chance of victory. The guy told his father to believe in him. He would return their greatness. At that moment, King Zhu ran into the room and called out to her father. The man asked what the girl was so happy about, to which she replied with papers in her hands that Daxi's brother had sent them an invitation to a party in honor of Mrs. Daxi's birthday. Wu Shuang looked with a smile at his sister, who asked his father to go. Lion Shan was surprised to say that it was simply amazing that such a poor family could receive an invitation from the Daxi family. They just can't refuse. King Wu Shuang turned to his family members and said that then they could go. 3 people were approaching the house on horseback, whom they immediately came out to meet. The guy turned to his father, pointing to the guest in purple clothes. He introduced him as Ximen Kaiyan, the son of the Ximen family. He had the 6th level of true might. The guy's father greeted the young gentleman and introduced himself as Zhu Sanli. Next to the guy was a man, Ximen 13 Ying, also with the 6th level of true power. He apologized to Elder Zhu for having to meet them in person. The guys who were standing behind were discussing that the son of the Ximen family was too arrogant. The master personally met him, and he did not even deign to get off his horse. Zhu Sanli looked at them and told them to shut up if life is precious, because Ximen Kaiyan is the first among the fighters from the younger generation of the Ximen family. He added that this person is a powerful warrior of the 6th level of true might. The guy, looking at the books on the shelf, turned to Elder Zhu and asked if it was true that Daxi Ming got along well with a woman from a poor family. The man thought that the Daxi family would not be able to help the King family this time. And then he confirmed and answered the question in the affirmative. Ximen Kaiyan irritably clutched the book in his hand, as the Ximen family highly values him, and therefore she promised him the guy's sister. He looked at the man with a smile and said that he had heard that at the assessment of families the poor family had gone too far and challenged them. The guy, leaving, said the words that the Ximen family never does business with losers, and then he asked Elder Zhu if he could whitewash. Zhu Sanli nervously looked after the guy. King Zhu turned to Wu Shuang with the words that Brother Ming had invited them to a party in honor of Mrs. Daxi's birthday, and this means that they need to choose the best gift for her. They were standing at the counter and choosing a gift, and a girl nearby was looking at them. They were discussing the fact that these hillbillies had been wandering in this place for half an hour. One of them said that she had met different people, but these were the worst. King Wushuang said that there are rumors that the Eternal Bloom jewelry is the most famous jewelry in Luojiang province. The girl who was standing nearby replied that their store provides a good product. That's just it, is intended for richer aristocrats. She told the visitors not to think that the girl was trying to humiliate them. She said with a smirk that they just couldn't afford it. Zhuer said the words that they wanted to buy a gift, so she asked the girl to show them something better. The saleswoman, covering her smile, apologized to the girl, saying that high-quality goods are only for aristocrats above the poor class. King Wushuang was very angry. He turned around and told his sister that they were leaving, since this shop would not offer them anything of value. Energy enveloped him. Suddenly, someone from the side called out to the guy with the words that he only bullied girls a lot. It was Yun Qingyan. The girls nearby asked if this was the guy she was talking about. Yun Qingyan confirmed these words and added that the guy is rude, cunning, and insidious. She asked King Wushuang if he cheated on the exam, and then added that she was sure that the theft at the academy had something to do with him. The guy with a small smile asked what it was connected with. Yun Qingyan thought about how 4 years ago he was just a weak loser since he became so arrogant. Yun Qingyan decided to check how strong the guy was. She instantly wrapped her hand in energy and launched an attack on the guy who wasn't even looking at her. Her hand flew past because the guy quickly dodged. She looked at him in surprise and made a swing for the next attack. However, Wushuang also evaded this time. The girl destroyed all the objects that surrounded them, as attack after attack did not hit the guy. A blue sky gradually appeared above their heads, and Yun Qingyan addressed him, saying that if there was even a drop of masculinity in him, then he would not shy away. King Wushuang turned to Ms. Yun with the words that quite a lot of trouble appeared at the jewelry store. He told the girl to see what she had done. Around them lay the wreckage of a former store, and King Wushuang turned to Zhuer and called her to leave while the girls who were with her approached Yun Qingyan. Yun Qingyan shouted for the guy and asked what kind of person he was. She was calling him to fight her in the end, and the girl next to her was asking her to cool off. King Wushuang turned to them with a smile and said that the girl should have thought about compensation first. Yun Qingyan was still angry, and the girls with her were trying to calm her down. At this time, Daxi Ming and his father were standing on the roof. The man asked the guy if he invited the King family, as he ordered, to which the guy replied in the affirmative. The man seriously told his son the news that Simon Qian had already arrived, so the future of their family may depend on Daxi Ming. The guy will have to think for himself what to do. Simon Qian, one of the 4 Scarlet Warriors, an exceptional young man who once told the Lord of Redwood how to deal with 100,000 barbarians from the north. He became the first in the younger generation and was already able to lead his family. And his sister, Simon Yang, forces Daxi Ming to marry her. The guy turned to his father with the words that he would not give in to them. He just wants to be with those he loves, even if you have to go to war with the Simon family. The man turned around and told his son that the banquet would start soon, so let him meet the guests. In the banquet hall, Yun Qingyan and her sister approached Daxi Ming, who asked the guy how he was doing, but he did not answer anything. Then Zhu from the rich class, who has the 3rd level of true power, came up to him and told the guy that they had not seen each other for a long time. The guy still didn't say anything, he just stared in front of him. Zhu was very unhappy. He mentally cursed at Daxi Ming, since their family is at least stronger than others. How can he ignore such persons? The girls also stood aside and watched what was happening. At that moment, King Wushuang and King Zhuer entered the hall. Daxi Ming immediately addressed them by name and approached. The people who were standing on the sidelines were wondering who these people were, since even Daxi Ming came out to personally greet them. One guy told about a rumor that not so long ago Daxi Ming got close to a girl from a poor family. Zhu Yuan and Zhu Zhu were discussing with a frown whether this was the guy who killed Zhang Yao in a couple of seconds. While Daxi Ming was greeting King Wushuang and King Zhu, Yun Qingyan came up to them, who loudly called out to the second guy. Wushuang turned to her and asked her about Ms. Yun looking for a fight with him again, to which the girl replied that she was not here for that. After questioning that jewelry store, she realized that she was mistaken about the guy, so she apologized. The guy said that Yun Qingyan somehow doesn't even look like he's apologizing. However, he is very generous, so he forgave her. The girl was enraged by this answer. While she was swearing at the guy who ignored her, King Zhu and Daxi Ming looked at each other sweetly. The girl came on stage and thanked everyone for coming to her party, and she hopes everyone has fun. It was Daxi Yu. The guys in the crowd were discussing that the daughter of the Daxi family had arrived. Someone said she wasn't bad for a girl from a rich family. Daxi Ming asked his sister to come over to them. The girl went down to the guests and asked the guy, King Wushuang, whether he about whom her brother talks so much. She couldn't believe he was so young. Simon Kyan was watching them all this time. He said the words that this party is quite lively. The guys turned around immediately at him, and Daxi Ming wondered where the guy was from because he wasn't invited. Simon Kyan snapped his fan shut and walked towards them. His family in the southern heavenly country is the only large family of aristocrats. The man who was watching what was happening thought that he would watch how the guy would cope with the Daxi family, being not even invited. He approached the guys who were wary. He looked at them and said with a smile that, judging by their reaction, they were not very happy to see him. Daxi Ming confirmed the guy's guess by standing in front of Zhu. Simon Kyan told about the rumors that the guy got close to some girl from a poor family, and then he asked if it was the girl behind him. He addressed Zhu with the words that she is charming. It is not surprising that young Mr. Daxi has gone crazy with her. He asked me to give him a try. However, Wwang got in his way, who told Simon Kyan not to approach, which irritated the guy. He opened his fan and instantly attacked the guy. His power spread throughout the room, and Wwang just dodged. Yan Qingyin was shocked by how powerful the guy with glasses was, and also by the fact that Wwang was not hurt at all. Daxi Ming was in a rage. He shouted to Simon Kyan a question about how he dares to do something to his family. The guy with the fan, standing in front of Wwang, said that it didn't matter anymore, because the only thing he wanted was to kill the guy. Young Mr. King noticed that the guy was serious. He also started attacking the guy who waved his hand with a smile. However, they did not collide, because the head of Daxi appeared between them, who stopped the guy's attacks. He turned to Simon Kyan with words about what inconveniences his family. He clenched his fist tightly while saying these words. Simon Kyan easily asked why the man was so nervous, because it was just a warm-up. He told Elder Daxi that he had already agreed to the marriage contract, so the consequences of refusal would be extremely serious. Simon Kyan, leaving, said that all this is fine, but this romance between an influential aristocrat and a poor girl is already known to everyone, and this is unacceptable for the Ximen family. Elder Daxi sternly asked what they wanted, to which he replied with a smile that either the Daxi family or the King family should disappear. The guests present were shocked by how everything came to this. At that moment, the host of the assessment of families entered the hall, who was very interested in the current situation. Zhu Yuan and Zhu Zhu looked at the person. Wwang replied with a confident look that he was looking forward to it. The host and the man next to him approached Wwang, and Elder Daxi was watching them from the sidelines at that moment. The man turned to the guy with the words that it looks like this time he managed to establish not the most pleasant relationship with the Ximen family. Elder Daxi was looking at his trembling hand, which he had used to stop young King's attack earlier. Wwang waved to the departing man and the host, who were discussing that the man liked this guy. The presenter told the man that if someone calls him uncle, then it is necessary to immediately kill this person. He asked why, then, the guy was still alive. He replied with a smile that he had dug up information about the King family. He said that their ancestors came to this place from other countries. Hundreds of years ago, a huge number of offspring from the elite suddenly disappeared, which led to the fact that they lost in the evaluation of families. After that, their family fell apart. However, this guy shows great hope, so it's getting more and more interesting. He said that everyone in Luojiang province sees the King family's battle against the Zhu family as just some kind of prank. And then he asked what the chances were that the King family would win. To this, he replied with a serious look that if the Zhu family did not have any aces up its sleeve, then the King family would be able to win a crushing victory in this battle. The guy next to him froze in shock at this conclusion of the man, and then asked him about his words. At night, on the way back, Wwang asked his sister that something was wrong. Zhu thought wearily that it turned out that Daxi's brother had already signed the marriage contract. Wwang realized that his sister had finally fallen in love, so she would get him. He turned to his sister and told her to go ahead, as he still had some things to do. Simon Ying, watching them from the roof, noticed that the guy had left. He said it was the girl's turn. At that moment, Wwang, who was sitting next to him, said that his little sister was quite adorable. Simon Ying jumped aside in shock, thinking about when the guy managed to get next to him. Wwang also asked if Simon Kyan had sent him. The old man thought that Wwang was able to get to him silently, and the guy at that moment said that since the old man doesn't want to talk, then it's time to end it. Simon Ying, attacking, reflected that this guy is much stronger than the young master thinks, so we need to get rid of him here and now in order to avoid problems. In the next moment, he was stunned that Wwang was able to stun him with just a single movement despite the fact that he is at the 6th level of true power. Wwang, holding the old man's face, seriously said the words that he should not even look at his sister, and if he has a case, then first let him turn to the guy. At this time, Ximon Qian was standing and thinking about what kind of aces this king family had hidden, since they decided to challenge the Zhu family. He asked if he had thoroughly found out about them, to which the man replied with words about what aces they could have, at most secret family martial arts techniques. Ximon Qian asked about the talents of the son of the king family, to which Zhu Sanli replied that he just trained a lot. He himself is an ordinary guy, nothing special. Ximon Qian replied that it was a strange thing. Even if the king family is supported, it won't help in the battle here. He wondered how they dared to summon them. He looked at the man with a smile and suggested asking Mrs. King to tell them more. At that moment, the guy was loudly called by name, and then Ximon Ying fell next to him, and the voice said that it was Ximon Qian's servant, whom he was bringing back. Wu Shuang told the guy that it would not be easy for his family to survive now, so he should be careful so that hundreds of years of development would not be destroyed in an instant. Zhu Sanli, in shock, called out to the old man who was unconscious, and then asked the guy if they should chase Wu Shuang. Ximon Qian asked the man that he, with his might, decided to go after the old man or something. He noticed that there was only one wound on his body, which means that he was killed in one move. This person must be at the 8th level of true might. He decided that the father and son of the king family could not have such power, neither could Daxi Ming. He asked Zhu Sanli about who is the best warrior in Luojiang province. The man replied that it was Daxi Heng, but as far as he knew, he was only at the 7th level of true power. 10 days passed in an instant. During this time, the battles between poor and reputable families ended. Someone lost, someone succeeded. In the end, the Gu family won the King family seat effortlessly. For the second place in the poor class, there was a fierce battle between two enemies from the city of Dizhuda. Finally, the Lan family defeated the Lai family. In the battle for the place of authority, the Zhu family, which is known as the strongest poor family, defeated the Xia family, which has lived in the authority class for centuries. It was the turn of the battle for a place in the rich class. Ximon Qian was closely watching what was happening, with his servants standing next to him. One of them had the 8th level of true might, and the other two had the 7th. Yan Qingyan and her father were also present, who told her to keep a close eye on the battle. There were two men on the floor below. One turned to the second, calling him Elder Zhang, and asked if everything was over with the funeral. Even lower down were Hu Pinyin and Fan Xiaozhang, who were discussing that brother Wu Shuang had really decided to summon a rich class. At the very bottom, the guys were shouting when the battle was about to begin, and the presenter should stop talking and leave, or declare a battle. The host said that he could see from the eyes of the audience that they were already tired of him, so the most anticipated battle would begin soon. He said it was time to greet the families. The Zhu family came from a wealthy class. A male viewer said that the Zhu family is quite impressive, and then wondered if his family would ever look the same. Then Wu Shuang came out with his father, who belonged to the poor class. The audience laughed because there were only two of them. They said that a family that has been living for hundreds of years should be ashamed to be in such a position. The host said that before the battle, he had to remind them of something. In the assessment of families, there is a life and death battle. The battle will continue until one of the opponents dies. He replied with a smile that their lives were in the hands of God. The first to come out was Zhu Wu Zheng at the 3rd level of true power, who was nicknamed the Human Butcher. He confidently said that his blade was thirsty for blood. The audience recognized him and began to talk about how the first fight would be so intense, and also that it looks like the Zhu family wants to crush the King family in the first fight. Zhu Wu Zheng can be described as brutal and cruel, loving to bring only pain. He is a butcher from Luojiang province. The host asked who would go first from the King family, and Wu Shuang raised his hand. But King Lianshan came forward with the words that he would come out in the first round. He thought that he had offended Wu Shuang. Let Zhu tremble with fear. The bullies of their rich class humiliated them. Even ordinary residents dare to speak out against them. He decided that he was fully responsible for all this, and he needed to regain his lost dignity and status. The host loudly announced that both sides were already ready for battle. The battle for a place in the rich class, the first round has begun. Zhu Wu Zheng impatiently raised his weapon and told King Lianshan that his pathetic soul would follow the others, challenging his blade with them. King Lianshan also swung his weapon, after which a fight of incredible strength began. Zhu Wu Zheng smiled rapaciously and told King Lianshan that today a man would find out about what happens to those who challenge the Zhu family. With his weapon, he abruptly knocked King Lianshan's hand away. The man thought that this technique is very fierce, and apparently the fight will not be easy. Zhu Guwang attacked Lianshan again, after which he dodged again. Young Master Zhu only got more excited and started attacking King Lianshan non-stop. He shouted for the man to keep dodging like a rat. King Lion Shan successfully dodged every attack while Wwang assured him that it didn't matter where Mr. King hid, because he would still overtake him. They shouted that the battle for a place in the rich class was not a training ground for them, where they could work out defensive techniques. Yun Yonger asked her father how the King family was going to defeat the Zhu family if they only evaded. Elder Yun said he had already fought with him once. He stated that the man's fighting techniques are not only powerful, but also very fast. Although Elder King has difficulty with these evasions, they mean that he has the strength to fight against Zhu Wuzheng. The man, still smiling, asked King Lion Shan if he was going to run away. He swung his weapon again and said that now Lion Shan would not go anywhere. About to launch another attack, Zhu Wuzheng used the Sun Split technique. King Lion Shan looked at it sternly, then used his weapon and blocked a strong blow from the enemy. Startled, Zhu Wuzheng asked how it was even possible for such a pathetic fighter of the first level of true might to be able to stop his strike. King Lion Shan thought that Zhu Wuzheng is naturally reckless, which means that he has to absorb a lot of energy violently, which weakens the attack power. He abruptly raised his blade and decided that now he could start fighting back. Zhu Wuzheng did not expect this at all, so he was very taken aback. The crowd of onlookers was in the same amazement, because they did not even expect that King Lion Shan would fight back, much less strike. King Lion Shan was thinking that after more than 3 years of training with the Book of Tendon changes, he's not the same person he was 4 years ago. He raised his weapon above his head, intending to use the King family's martial arts. With quick movements, King Lion Shan's spear and Zhu Wuzheng's cannon met. With graceful movements, King Lion Shan managed to drive the enemy's weapon deep into the ground. Zhu Wuzheng screamed, saying that it was absolutely impossible. Without wasting any time, King Lion Shan hit his opponent with a spear with the help of the King family martial arts. Continuing to accept Zhu Wuzheng's attacks at all, he did not understand what was happening, because King Lion Shan's power suddenly unexpectedly increased. He could not even dodge. Using the explosion of the crescent moon, King Lion Shan aimed his spear at the enemy. Zhu Wuzheng was barely able to block this attack. Zhu Wuzheng said that he really underestimated the enemy, but in the face of ferocious power, a flimsy spear would not be able to pierce Zhu Wuzheng's huge blade. With the help of a wholly mystical blow, he broke the blade, thereby inflicting a fatal blow. King Lion Shan carefully pulled out his spear and raised it above his head while Zhu Wuzheng fell to the ground dead. At that moment, King Lion Shan stuck his weapon into the ground. The people watching the battle were discouraged by the outcome. Everyone who was rooting for the King family rejoiced. King Wu Shuang looked at his father proudly. He remembered that after his promise to return their family to its former status, the father said that he, too, would fight with his son. King Lion Shan turned back, still shrouded in a powerful force, and asked who was next. He would go into battle. The elder agreed, also sending Zhu with him. Seeing Zhu Zihai in the arena, people were surprised, because they did not expect that he would be there in the second round. People realized that the Zhu family was really angry, because this is the same as the battle between the elders is about to begin. The power is comparable to that of an elder of the Zhu clan. They recalled an old rumor that when the Zhu family competed for the position of clan elder, Zhu Zihai just missed. The second man, Zhu Zhu, is in third place among the 7 young masters. At this age, he is already at the 3rd level of true power. They said they were finished. The host loudly announced that according to the rules, if the same person goes to fight in the next round, the number of his opponents increases twice. He smiled and said that King Lion Shan wants to go further, which means that the fight will be 1 against 2. The second round was declared started. Zhu Zihai said he couldn't even believe that Elder King, who was a loser 4 years ago, was able to kill Wu Zheng now. The man said that, in his opinion, King Lion Shan is now at the 3rd level of true power. He asked if that reception was a crowning one. Zhu Zihai asked his nephew Zhu to step back, because this round will end very quickly. Zhu Zhu obeyed his uncle's order. Emitting a strong aura, Zhu Zihai began to approach King Lion Shan. The man wondered if this power was the 5th level of true power. Suddenly, Zhu Zihai disappeared from King Lion Shan's sight, which caused the latter to tense up a lot. A man appeared at Elder King's very feet and said that he shouldn't stand like a pillar. King Lion Shan immediately used the moon sentence, wanting to attack the enemy. But at this moment, Zhu Zihai was already standing behind the elder. He quickly stabbed King Lion Shan in the back, causing him to cough up blood. The man thought that it was too fast, and he didn't even have time to keep track of the enemy. King Lion Shan landed by leaning on his spear. Zhu Zihai asked if Elder King now realized the difference in their powers. Unwilling to respond, King Lion Shan charged at the enemy using the Holy Mystic Strike. Zhu Zihai recognized this technique, after which he pulled the enemy's spear aside with just one hand, avoiding any damage. Zhu Zihai declared that this technique would not work again, after which he punched King Lion Shan in the stomach. King Lion Shan flew to another part of the arena. The man thought that Zhu Zihai was too strong, and his might could not even be compared with Zhu Wuzheng's strength. Looking at how Zhu Zihai was preparing for a new attack, King Lion Shan thought that Zhu Wuzheng was only a weak puppy, while Zhu Zihai was a tiger. Zhu Zihai turned to King Lion Shan and said that Elder King is a pretty tough fighter. About to launch an attack, King Lion Shan soared into the sky and thought that it didn't matter if he was a puppy or a tiger, Elder King wouldn't back down. King Lion Shan once again used the martial arts of the King family. He attacked Zhu Zihai with his spear like 1,000 spears. However, the enemy successfully dodged everything. Zhu Zihai exhaled and said that, apparently, King Lion Shan did not understand the difference between their strength. The man grabbed the elder's spear and said that he had changed his mind and he would not kill King Lion Shan. He got into a fighting stance and said that he would beat him until King Lion Shan admits defeat. He beat him with his hands while King Lion Shan could only dodge. One of the punches went through the elder's defense, and Zhu Zihai hit him hard in the stomach. King Lion Shan flew backwards, hitting another wall. King Wu Shuang watched intently. Zhu Sanli gloatingly said that this is what happens to those who challenge the Zhu family. People started talking about how King Lion Shan no longer has the strength to fight back, and their level is clearly different. They said he was crazy to challenge them. Ignoring the words of the cruel people, King Lion Shan, still coughing up blood, began to rise from the ground. He looked at Zhu Zihai with eyes full of rage, then wrapped himself in power. He took up his spear again and said that even if he was destined to die, he would fight until his last breath. Zhu Zihai reminded the man that if he surrendered now, he could live in peace. He declared that he would kill the elder first, and then his entire family. Zhu Sanli recognized the pose Zhu Zihai was standing in. He realized that the man was going to use the last form of Shadow Hand. Zhu Zihai rushed at the enemy with a Shadow Hand while King Lion Shan was using the King family's martial arts again. Their weapons met. The crowd of people were shocked. They couldn't believe their eyes, because King Lion Shan managed to block the attack and was compared to Zhu Zihai. Elder Yun said that he didn't seem to have blocked the attack. Due to Zhu Zihai's attack, King Lion Shan's spear was broken. The man couldn't believe his eyes. The silver spear that had lived for hundreds of years was broken. As Zhu Zihai's hand approached him, King Lion Shan wondered if he would meet his end like this. It was impossible, because the difference in their strength was unimaginable. He remembered his youth and the beautiful girl who was with him. He was apologizing to her. King Lion Shan's memories began to appear before his eyes. He saw this girl who was by his side while he was raising the children. He thought about her and said that he could no longer protect the house she had given him. King Ziwer tried to call her father. Elder Yun declared that the end of this battle had come. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion in the arena. King Ziwer called her father in fright. The observers said that this King Lion Shan had held on for a long time, but the difference in their strength was too great. Suddenly, Elder Yun noticed that something was going wrong. In the arena, someone was standing right in front of King Lion Shan. King Wu Shuang blocked Zhu Zihai's attack, which was aimed at the guy's father. Zhu Zihai was greatly surprised. Hu Pingyan, who had been watching the battle from the stands all this time, also noticed Wu Shuang's brother in the arena. King Wu Shuang turned to the surprised father and said that now the man can rest and also leave this battle to him. King Wu Shuang loudly announced that they were accepting defeat. The onlookers rushed to shout admiringly. They didn't even understand what had happened and how this guy was able to block Zhu Zihai's attack. At the same time, Zhu Sanli was genuinely amazed. He wondered how this was possible, because this technique is the strongest among all the techniques of the Zhu clan. Looking around, he wondered if it could be someone from Daxi. He decided that it couldn't be Daxi Ming, because even he wasn't capable of it. He looked at the host and wondered if it could be someone from the sacred land of Zhenwu, although it doesn't have much chance because they never interfere. Zhu Sanli was really interested in this person. The host said that this King Wu Shuang is really peerless. After that, the man who was standing next to him told the guy to go down and continue the competition. Obeying the order, the host jumped down and summed up the results of the second round, declaring the Zhu family the winner. People sitting in the stands said that despite Zhu Zihai's victory, he doesn't look happy at all. The admission of the 5th level was stopped by an ordinary student. Zhu Zihai asked the host if anyone was allowed to break into the fight. The guy said that the rules don't say anything about it, and King Wu Shuang is just a student. Wu Shuang came forward and said that, apparently, Mr. Zhu Zihai was not too satisfied. He wanted to start the next round now. King Wushuang looked menacingly at the enemies and told them to attack together. King Lianshan was genuinely amazed by this. Yun Qingyan, watching from the stands, said that Wushuang had clearly gone mad. She stated that it is quite obvious that a one-on-one fight will be better because there are more chances to win. The girl turned to her father and said that this judge was clearly on the side of the King family. She asked if Wushuang had been able to fool him. The tense elder Zhu said that there is a high probability that King Wushuang is at the same level, and maybe even higher, because he was able to block the 5th level of true power. Zhu looked furious. He said that King Wushuang should not be arrogant. He asked how dare the guy talk to them like that. He would teach him a lesson. King Wushuang silently looked at his opponents. The host said that now both sides are ready, and the battle for the rich class, round 3 is declared open. Zhu Zihai came forward and stated that King Wushuang should have died 4 years ago. He won't be able to win just because he stopped the attack. He asked Zhu Zihai to let him test it on him. Zhu Zihai looked at the guy and said how he couldn't wait to see and find out what kind of demon King Wushuang was, since he was able to escape death then. King Wushuang activated his power and said that as a thank you, he would give Zhu Zihai a head start, and the man could make 3 attacks against the guy. Zhu rushed at King Wushuang and said that he would not live for such a thing. At this time, the guy just looked at how the man was attacking him. King Wushuang carefully dodged and, being behind Zhu, said that he did not give him a head start either. King Wushuang quickly hit the guy in the neck from the back, after which he flew head over heels across the arena. The man instantly lost consciousness. Once inside the wall, Zhu tried to figure out what had happened, because he couldn't move now. Elder Zhu was speechless. The watchers began to look down. They were talking about the fact that Zhu, the 3rd level of true might, was knocked out with 1 blow. They couldn't believe it. King Wushuang calmly looked at Zhu Zihai and said that it was his turn to attack. The man was genuinely amazed. Zhu Zihai was thinking that Zhu was at the 3rd level of true might. He wondered if Wushuang really had the strength of the 5th level of true might. Standing in a fighting stance, Zhu Zihai used the shadow hand and declared that the sage would never believe in such a thing. While he was using purity like a peach forest, King Wushuang effortlessly dodged his every attack. The people in the stands couldn't believe their eyes. They noticed that Zhu Zihai's attacks had absolutely no effect on King Wushuang, while those who support the King family silently watched, being in full tension. At that moment, one of Zhu Zihai's attacks finally reached King Wushuang. The guy smiled and said that this reception was good, but he lacks strength. Zhu Zihai attacked the guy with the shadow hand skill, which King Wushuang blocked with the power generates shadows of chaos technique. The man was in shock, as he did not know how this was possible. The guy was able to block this technique as well. Wushuang waved his hand, pushing the man back. He looked at his hand and apologized to the man because he accidentally knocked him off, and then asked if he was hurt. Zhu Zihai straightened up in anger and shouted words to the arrogant guy that he did not need his pity. The man stretched out his hands palms forward and began to collect energy. Zhu Sanli anxiously noticed that all the man's internal energy was concentrated in the palm of his hand. He used this technique against himself. Zhu Zihai charged, striking at Wushuang, who was standing calmly. Fragments of the floor flew in different directions, and a column of dust rose into the air. The man stood tensely and thought that he would not believe that this technique did not work. Zhu Zihai looked in front of him in shock. Wushuang stopped the man's attack with 1 finger. The guy looked seriously and said that the man had already made 3 attacks, so now it's his turn. He swung his fist using the True Hell skill. A huge shockwave followed him. Zhu Zihai could barely stand on his feet, shouting that it was bad. Wushuang performed the sinister Gorange 9 Sun strike directly on the man who had crossed his arms in front of his face. There was a huge explosion. People from the stands were in shock trying to figure out what was going on. Ximen Qian also sat in shock and watched what was happening. When the dust began to disperse, Zhu Zihai's charred body became visible. Zhu Sanli shouted his name in shock. The man collapsed to the ground in the same position as he was defending himself. Wushuang just stood there. The audience began to shout that Zhu Zihai, a man of the 5th level of true power, could not cope with an ordinary student. The guy was too strong. His power was simply amazing. Elder Zhang uttered the words in shock that it turns out that he himself killed Xian and Yao. He shouted that Zhu was to blame for everything. The host said in surprise that he was announcing that the winner of the 3rd round for the rich class was the King family. Wushuang confidently left the battlefield. His friends shouted that brother Wushuang was very strong. They rejoiced at his victory. Daxi Ming, amazed by what he saw, thought that it seemed to him that Wushuang was at the maximum at the 6th level of true power, but it seems he was wrong. The host said that it was already noon, so there would be a break, and the fourth round would begin very soon. The audience was discussing what looks like Zhu has been cornered this time. They were wondering if they would continue the fight. Ximenqian sat and looked at the stage, and then turned to his servants and told them to go. A little later in the Zhu family, Mr. Ximen was asked what to do now, since they had already lost 2 rounds in a row. There were wounded people lying on the floor in the big room, and Zhu sadly said that Zihai's nervous system was damaged, and Zhu was seriously injured. Since it was time for the next battle, the elder asked young Master Ximen for help. Ximenqian, sipping a drink, told Elder Zhu not to panic. He said he just had to wait for the good news. At that time, the wounded King Lion Shan was sitting in the hotel, to whom Wu Shuang turned with the words that he would cure his father with needles. The guy was thinking that from the experience of his past life, he realized that the transfer of energy through acupuncture can cure a person in a matter of minutes. Wu Shuang turned to Brother Daxi with gratitude for taking care of his family, to which the guy replied that it was not worth the pleasantries, because he could not otherwise. At the same time, he looked at the girl next to him, who blushed slightly. King Lion Shan looked at them and thought about how their babies were growing up so fast. Suddenly there was a strong knock on the door. Someone shouted to the father and son of the King family to come out and talk to them. Along with the knock, a strong energy wave followed. The guy turned to his father and told him to stay in the room, and he would go himself. Daxi Ming turned to Wu Shuang with the words that he would also go. The guy stopped him with the words that he did not know what purpose these people had come for, so he hoped that in case of anything, Daxi Ming would protect his family. Young Daxi confidently replied that the guy could rely on him, and Wu Shuang left the room. 3 people were watching him from the roof opposite the entrance. The guy looked at them and said that the Simon clan is full of talents. They can even summon a master of the 8th level of true power. One man, since he knows everything, they will not be nice. He said that in the next battle for the rich class, the King family should admit defeat. Wu Shuang sternly asked what would happen if that didn't happen, to which the man replied that it already depends on the guy. At that moment, the 2 men next to him rushed towards the guy with great speed, attacking King Wu Shuang. The men attacked a guy who fell to the ground and did not move. One of the men said it was time to go back and report everything to the gentleman. He said that the guy had a maximum of the 6th level of true power, and they overestimated him. At that moment, Wu Shuang said that the guys just came and offended someone. He started to get up, and the man was surprised that the guy could still stand. He asked the men that they seemed to have decided to spare the guy. He said that the young master had ordered them to get rid of the mats. They were thinking about how this was possible, as they hit with full force. Why didn't anything happen to him? They're at the 7th level of true might. Wu Shuang said he was so eager to see how they would deal with him. He thought about the fact that these are not a hindrance to him. The only one to be afraid of is the leader. The man shouted that the guy still did not understand what situation he was in. They began to attack him all together. They were approaching the guy when he loudly shouted the name of Simon. Almost everyone heard the sound wave. It was a lion's roar. The guy introduced himself and told the Zhu family that if the owners of Simon are standing behind them, then death is already near. He announced that he would wipe their pathetic family off the face of the earth. Wu Shuang shouted that since Simon's people decided to stick their nose into this showdown, now he would pursue every one of them, even if it was someone from the sacred land. People on the street were in shock, discussing that the Simon family was being threatened. Someone was interested in the fact that the battle of the aristocrats of the lowest rank was able to attract representatives of the highest. The man thought that since the guy used the lion's fang, then his internal energy may be stronger. The presenter and the man approached them, with words about the guy's voice and about the persecution of the family assessment participants. The guy said that men greatly underestimate the sacred land of Zhenwu. The men turned around and thought about where the people from the sacred land came from. The guy and the man went down to them with the words that it was enough for today, and it was time to disperse. The man thought that even the guy's strength is not lower than him. They will not be able to defeat everyone. It seems that the sacred land of Zhongwu is also interested in choosing sides. It would be better for men not to get in their way. The Zhu family is not that important. They quickly retreated. Wu Shuang asked the man why they had come. He replied that they were passing by and heard some sounds, so they decided to check. The Simon family is getting more and more brazen. It seems that over the years they have succeeded in many ways. The guy asked what is the strength of the feudal lords of Simon. The man replied that among all the feudal lords in the kingdom, Simon are in 5th place. They are the strongest lords of the southern heavenly country. They rule 8 provinces at once. 3 of the family are on the 8th level. There are 10 or more people of the 7th level. Their elder is at the 9th level of true might. Wu Shuang said that a clan that only needs the 8th levels of true power, which has 3 such people, one with the 9th level, no wonder they were so arrogant. The man said that there was almost no time left until the next fight. He asked if they would give up or continue the battle for the rich class. Wu Shuang asked why the man was talking about this, to which the man asked if the guy was not scared by coming face to face with such a strong family. The guy said with a smile that he would wipe the Zhu family off the face of the earth. At this time, in the Zhu family, the servants of Ximen were telling the young master that he needed to return to his family. Zhu Sanli called out to the guy and asked what they should do, because the time of the next battle was approaching. The guy asked who are the strongest warriors in the Zhu family at the moment. The elder replied that 3 people had already sacrificed themselves for their family, and at the moment only he and his uncle Yu were the strongest. Ximen Qian said that then Zhu Sanli would work with Mr. Yu. He asked if they could fight against Daxi Heng. The man replied that they were both at the 5th level of true power, and Daxi Heng had already reached the 7th. He said that it would be very difficult to defeat him. The elder asked what they should do, to which the guy replied that now they have only 2 ways, to surrender and accept defeat or fight to the death. The man exclaimed and asked how it was possible. Is Wu Shuang really so strong and isn't someone helping him from the outside? Ximen Qian replied that his warrior of the 8th level of true power had just escaped from the guy and said only that Wu Shuang's strength was not lower than his. Zhu Sanli was amazed, and the guy said that the choice was now up to the elder. King Wu Shuang and the host from the sacred land were standing in the arena of Luojiang province. The Zhu family still hadn't come, and people were saying that the morning fights had scared them, and Mr. Zhu was avoiding the fight. The 2 men were discussing that time was almost up. It looks like Zhu Sanli doesn't really want to fight. Elder Yun cursed in displeasure. The audience shouted that they were a disgrace to the entire Luojiang province. Such families should not exist in the province at all. The man shouted at them to shut up. At that moment, he jumped into the arena with great force. People started talking about Zhu coming. Zhu Sanli thought that the motto of their family is fight like lions in the name of yourself until our enemy is destroyed. He thought that these kins could do something that would make his family leave. He wanted to see what kind of demon Wu Shuang really was. The guy greeted the elder who finally arrived. Zhu Sanli turned to the judge and said that King Wu Shuang had already fought 2 people in the last round, which means that now he will have to fight 4 at once. The audience was amazed by what Elder Zhu said. They couldn't believe that Sanli really wanted Wu Shuang to fight 4 at once. Elder Yun also did not support Zhu Sanli's actions, saying that this old man had already gone completely crazy. What King Wu Shuang will be able to answer to this? The host turned to Wu Shuang and said that according to the rules, if he goes out to fight for the 2nd time in a row, then he will have to fight like this. Wu Shuang only stated that there was no problem. The guy looked at Elder Zhu with eyes full of rage and said that he accepts this fight. Everyone was shocked by what Wu Shuang said. Yun Qingyun exclaimed, asking about what this guy thinks of himself at all. At the same moment, 3 middle-aged men from the Zhu clan descended onto the battlefield. The oldest man said that he had not been out to fight in this event for a long time. He was surprised that some student dared to threaten the Zhu family. The second asked if Xinghe really died at the hands of this boy. The third stated that Xinghe was one of his best students, so he would definitely avenge him. Elder Yun said that Zhu Sanli was completely desperate, since he decided to expel 3 old men who had not appeared in society for more than 10 years. Their might is only at the 5th level of true might. When they combine their forces, they can compare with the former elder of the Daxi clan, Daxi Huo, the 7th level. Sanli thought that with the help of the 3 elders and his trump cards, he would never believe that he could not win this battle. The host announced that the 4th round for a place in the rich class, 1 against 4, was declared started. Immediately after this announcement, the elders began to use a group technique. They used the powers of the Child of Water, the Foul Earth, the Tree of Thor, the Fire of Sea, and the Almighty Gold. The 3 of them spread their arms, trapping King Wu Shuang in the barrier of the 5 elements Thunder Array Current. Elder Yun said tensely that it was over now, because they had the opportunity to complete the Thunder Array Current. He was confident of their victory. King Wu Shuang lightly touched the barrier, then wondered if this was the final reception of the Zhu family. He thought that it was quite powerful. It is not surprising that feudal lords of the type of Simons love them so much. One of the elders said that they already know about King Wu Shuang's fighting skills, and that is why they are standing there at this moment. No one can get out of this technique. The second elder grinned and said that it didn't matter how strong King Wu Shuang was, as long as he remained locked up. The Zhu family had nothing to fear. Keeping an indifferent expression on his face, King Wu Shuang said that it was quite funny. The guy raised his hand, shrouded in power, and said that everything in this world has a cause and a result. The guy took a fighting stance and said that it did not matter what kind of technique it was much more important where his strength came from. King Wu Shuang looked up and told the old man that his tricks would not work on the guy. While King Wu Shuang filled the space in the barrier with his incredible strength, the elders were shocked. Until now, they believed that such a thing was simply impossible. One of the elders folded his hands and exclaimed that they needed to strengthen the array of the strongest. He used secret techniques. Lightning tongues appeared near the powerful barrier. Array flow and extermination array were used. The elder, holding the skill sphere in his hands, said that he did not think that he would have to use it to defeat the child. They need another technique to kill him. Using joint efforts, they wished to get rid of King Wu Shuang. Lightning and power flashed in the air while the guy stood still. Suddenly King Wu Shuang said that he was tired of them. At the same moment, a powerful blow was delivered to the ground, which almost completely destroyed the entire arena. Fang Xiaozhong covered his face with his hands and said that this move was very strong. He could not believe that these elders were so strong. They were both afraid for each other. The audience tensed. Because of the rising smoke, they could not see what was happening on the battlefield. Suddenly, King Lion Shan called out his son's name. The guy rose out of the thick smoke, holding the heads of 2 elders in his hands, while the third lay dead on the ground. Everyone who watched the battle was amazed. They could not believe that all the elders had died so quickly. Zhu Sanli coughed up blood. He did not believe that such a thing was even possible, because the array of 3 elders was able to catch a warrior of the 8th level of true power. Zhu Sanli raised his head in fright. Wu Shuang was standing a couple of meters away from him. The guy said it was time for Sanli's move. The man began to put a capsule in his mouth. Elder Zhu said that he did not expect that even with 3 elders, they would not be able to defeat the guy. Wu Shuang forced him. A little earlier, Ximon Qian gave Sanli a capsule with serum. As soon as the elder eats it, his strength will grow to the maximum, but only for a short time. Zhu Sanli began to be covered with dark spots. King Wu Shuang noticed that something was wrong, which made him very wary. In the blink of an eye, Zhu Sanli changed his skin color to charcoal black. He laughed cruelly. He stated that he felt the power flowing in him. Zhu Yuan couldn't recognize his father. He didn't understand how his father could become like this. Zhu Ting also said that Sanli now looks very powerful. Ximon Qian smiled and said that this capsule can increase the power for a short period of time, but it also has side effects that the man does not know about. Zhu Sanli began to attack, saying that King Wu Shuang needed to die for the survival of the Zhu clan. At this moment, he was at the 8th level of true might. The direct attack headed towards King Wu Shuang. The guy took a defensive stance and asked if it was the Zhu clan that dared to contact the King family. King Wu Shuang was also at the 8th level of true might. 2 strong attacks met next to Wu Shuang. The ground around cracked. The guy was interested in what Sanli could eat that his strength had increased so dramatically. Zhu Sanli laughed out loud, then said that for an ordinary student, the guy is incredibly strong, because even 3 elders could not defeat him. An old man from the sacred land of Zhengwu said that Zhu Sanli ate something really incredible. The presenter said that he did not like these tricks very much. After he ate this capsule, his energy center was destroyed, but instead the stimulation of the inner brutal essence begins, which incredibly increases strength. As soon as the time of action expires, Sanli's body will undergo changes. He said that this was a god-forsaken way, so it was not clear to him where the man got it from. Zhu Sanli thought that the actions of the method last only 5 minutes, so during this time he needs to deal with everything quickly. He took a fighting stance and told King Wu Shuang that he would destroy the guy with his strongest move. He asked if King Wu Shuang dared to accept this attack. Wu Shuang said that he had to admit that Sanli had exceeded his expectations, and therefore he was also going to use the strongest technique. With a loud shout, they rushed at each other. Zhu Sanli used Jade Labyrinth, Wolf Shadow, and King Wu Shuang used the power of the sun, the blow of the 9 suns. The arena shattered into splinters under loud explosions. The observer began to be demolished by the shock wave. The people of the Yun family were amazed by this power. Elder Yun wondered if this was really the battle for a place in the rich class. Zhu Sanli gloatingly told King Wu Shuang that he shouldn't even try, because he wouldn't be able to withstand this attack. King Wu Shuang fiercely replied to him that his daily training is not something that he can win so easily. Their hands collided in the attack, but King Wu Shuang's strength smashed Sanli's arm, causing her to fly away. The man exclaimed that it was impossible. King Wu Shuang loudly declared that Zhu Sanli's fate would be decided right now, in this place. The guy struck another blow, a blow for King Wu Shuang, bullies. He landed another blow on the elder's face, a blow for humiliating King Lion Shan. He swung and said that this blow was for the eternal persecution of his sister. Abruptly and beautifully, King Wu Shuang slammed Zhu Sanli into the wall he flew into after the attack. The sons of the Zhu family turned pale as they watched what was happening to their father. Zhu Sanli's skin dried instantly, and his hair turned gray. He looked at himself and wondered if the effect of that method had ended, and the power had left him. King Wu Shuang came closer and told Elder Zhu that it was his time to hit the road. Zhu Sanli tried to crawl away from the guy. He thought that he couldn't die like this, because he was an elder of the wealthy Zhu clan. Zhu Sanli turned to King Wu Shuang and asked him to stop, because he accepts his defeat. He repeated it several times. King Wu Shuang coolly looked at the man and asked what he was mumbling, because the guy couldn't hear. At that moment, Elder Zhu loudly exclaimed that he was giving up. He shouted it out twice, then added that the Zhu family had lost. Looking at the ground, he thought that if he could get away alive, he would take revenge on them in the future, after which he grinned. King Wu Shuang saw this, then abruptly plunged his weapon into Elder Zhu. Sanli screamed in pain and coughed up blood. King Wu Shuang asked for forgiveness and said he would pretend he didn't hear it. The smoke began to dissipate, and Wu Shuang emerged victorious from the battle. The host smiled and said that in the name of the sacred land of Zhenwu, he announces that in the assessment of the families of Luojiang province, the winner for a place in the rich class becomes the King family. Zhu exclaimed joyfully that her brother Wu Shuang was able to win. At this time, King Lianshan was looking at the arena a little tensely. Tears of pride appeared in his eyes, because his son could. The family that once bullied the king lay beaten on the ground, not believing that this was the same King Wu Shuang. Yun Qingyun said in surprise that this guy really managed to gain the upper hand, while Elder Yun noticed what an amazing young man King Wu Shuang was after all. Even the head of the Daxi family looked at the outcome of the battle in amazement. People from the stands excitedly shouted the surname King, as if they were their saviors. They talked about how the whole world would celebrate the fall of Zhu, because evil got what it deserved. The Zhu have done a lot of terrible things over the years, and that's why they got it back. The sons of the Zhu family shamefully carried their father out of the arena. Ximon Qian took a look at it and said that this drooping face indicated that a side effect had worked. Most likely, he went down somewhere to the 3rd level. That's how the Zhu family came to an end. Ximon Qian folded his fan and told the man accompanying him that it was time for them to leave, because the Zhu were useless now. The host loudly congratulated the King family on their victory, because they had regained the status of a rich family. Now it's the turn of the sign of the rich classes. While the middle-aged man was carrying the signs, the host asked Elder King to come closer so that he could receive his sign. Taking the sign carefully, King Lianshan said that so many years had passed, and he did not even think that his family would ever be able to see this sign again. He smiled and told King Wu Shuang that it was all thanks to him. The host called on the crowd to praise the rich King family, after which applause poured in from all sides. The middle-aged men watching from the stands said that it was really incredible, and now they should look up to the King family. Elder Daxi said that keeping a distance, striking a decisive blow at the right moment, and getting a place in a rich class is incredible. He thought that Luojiang province has a bright future ahead of it. The elder also noted that, most likely, a lot of people will now want to cooperate with their family. The presenter smiled broadly and told the old man that he did not expect to see this at all. The guy said that it seems they will have to work to prevent the spread of rumors about this assessment of families. The old man said he would report to Lord Wu Sheng. The host smiled broadly and thought of King Wu Shuang, a warrior of the 8th level of true might. A wonderful banquet was held in the Great Hall. Wu Shuang was drinking with his friends, Hu Pinying and Fan Xiaozhong. Pinyin turned to brother Wu Shuang and joyfully congratulated the guy on his promotion to the rich class. Xiaozhong said the Zhu family got what they deserved. Hu Pinyin said that now these current peasants would not dare to behave as arrogantly as before. Wu Shuang said not to underestimate them. Yun Qingyun walked up to the guy and arrogantly called him. King Wu Shuang asked Ms. Yun what she needed. He asked if she had come to molest him again. The girl said that no one was bothering him, and she came to this place to congratulate him. She declared Wu Shuang's strength worthy of her acceptance. King Wu Shuang calmly said that it would be much better if she stopped bothering him. Qingyun approached him and shouted for him to stop. King Lianshan addressed all the guests. He said that he wanted to personally thank everyone who came to the banquet in order to celebrate a significant event. Elder Qian approached Lianshan and stated that it was true what they said, that there was no need to judge a book by its cover. He said he sincerely admired the King family. Pushing Elder Qian aside, other people approached King Lianshan, saying that they were raising this toast to the man. King Lianshan laughed, talking about how all the elders are courteous. If he has power and status, then people will show more respect. Elder King pushed the others away, telling them not to disturb him. The man said he had a daughter, and she was almost 14 years old. Beauty and other aspects of the girl are worthy of attention. Suddenly, Elder Yun grabbed the man by the shoulder and loudly declared that the girl was still too young and did not even know their incomparable Wu Shuang. Elder Yun proudly raised his head and said that his young would be perfect, because she studied at the same academy with the guy, and therefore they know each other well. He said that he had previously heard that it was Elder Yun's daughter who decided to break into Wu Shuang in order to accuse him of something he did not commit. Elder Yun said that it was just a rumor. He said that everyone knows that it was Zhu Ting who had problems with Wu Shuang. Elder Qian said not to believe him. They started arguing about who was more suitable for Wu Shuang, praising their daughters while King Lion Shan smiled awkwardly. Everyone laughed, because these two old men are really trying to sell their daughters, so also in front of everyone. At this time, the atmosphere at the Zhu family estate was completely different. Completely wrapped in bandages, Zhu Sanli asked the elder if he had done what the man asked. The old man said that everything was ready, and they were only waiting for the elder. He told everyone to remember that on this day they will do everything for their family and their survival. If they don't escape from the province, they will be exterminated in a month. He said they would go to the Wu lands, to Donglan City. They will set up an ambush and do everything to destroy the Qins. Sooner or later they will become a laughing stock. The elder turned to Zhu Sanli and said that they would destroy the Qins at all costs. True, their path will be long, because it is quite difficult to get to them. Zhu Sanli said that the difficulty of their path no longer matters, because the Beiyu kingdom has abandoned them, so it is extremely important to find shelter in the Wu lands. They have always coped thanks to the status of the rich class. Now that the Zhu family has been demoted to ordinary residents, the end is predetermined. Zhu Sanli was angry again. He indicated that they would split into two teams. The first group would go to the king residence and destroy the house, their ancestors, and destroy faith in a bright future. After they've dealt with this, they should head to the southeast. The second group will be waiting for them there. They will regroup at the border of the Cloud Country. At this time, King Wu Shuang was peacefully watching the banquet. Suddenly someone called out the guy's name, and he turned around to find out who it was. King Wu Shuang recognized the girl who was one of the Yun sisters. The girl asked if she could talk to the guy in person. She had important information. When they went outside, the girl asked young Mr. King if he knew about the unprecedented danger that awaits his family. She said that she would not procrastinate, but if King Wu Shuang promised her something, and after that the guy could be sure that she would tell him all the information. Wu Shuang turned away and said that he was not interested in dealing with some strangers, and some promises for these same strangers. The girl called out to him with displeasure. King Wu Shuang told the girl that if she really has secret information just for him, she should talk about it honestly. He turned to her and asked if she was sure she could trust the promise of someone she was seeing for the first time. The girl loudly declared that if this was King Wu Shuang's promise, then she would believe him. There was a slight pause after that. The girl got down to business and said that according to her sources, the Zhu family is going to do something that will undoubtedly be directed at the King family. The girl loudly exclaimed that she was also sure that it would happen this evening. She asked me to trust her because she doesn't want the guy to get hurt. King Wu Shuang thought about it. He didn't expect Zhu to still have the nerve to speak out against their family. He wondered if it could be murder. He also decided that, in addition, the Zhu family had probably already been warned by the feudal lords of Ximen. Suddenly a realization came to him. King Wu Shuang fled in a hurry, thanking the girl for the information. He said that someday he would thank her for the information. While she was looking at him, she blushed a little. She thought about how King Wu Shuang hadn't even asked her name, so it wasn't clear how he would be able to find her. King Wu Shuang burst into the banquet hall and called his father, surrounded by guests. The guy quickly whispered the information in his father's ear, after which King Lion Shan's expression changed. King Lion Shan asked for a little attention from all the guests, and said that there was a little trouble that required urgent intervention. Daxi Ming and Zhu approached Wu Shuang and asked what was going on. King Wu Shuang seriously stated that it seemed like the Zhu family was going to act against them in order to end the King family once and for all. They're already halfway to the city. Daxi Ming cursed, then said that he would call his guys and they would go right after the Zhu family. King Wu Shuang turned to Daxi Ming and politely asked the guy to take care of his sister Zhu. At this time, he and King Lion Shan will go to Donglan City. A little later, two men were hanging lanterns. One asked the other about why one of these lanterns was hanging higher than the other. The guy hung up the lantern and asked Uncle Chuan if everything was hanging normally now. The man said that it was necessary to raise the left lamp a little higher. The guardian of the King family, King Lion Chuan, asked Xiao Kai to bring a ladder here, just carefully, without touching the lanterns. A guy with a big smile was carrying lanterns. King Lion Chuan told the guy that tomorrow morning he would need to go and buy fireworks, so much so that the brightness would blind his eyes, and the sound would be deafening. King Lion Chuan hit the guy on the head and said he was acting stupid. The boy laughed and told the fourth master not to blame him for this, because the world is quite cruel. He asked if Uncle Chuan still remembered Little Lai. The man scratched his nose and said he remembered. But her mother didn't like the guy, because he wasn't promising at all. He asked if anything had happened to her. Xiao Kai smiled broadly and said that it was so. This morning, Little Lai came to say that her mother is no longer against it. King Lion Chuan smiled, but he should take into account that he will suffer a lot because of such a mother-in-law. The guy replied, they won't spend days with their mother-in-law. King Lion Chuan smiled and said that first Xiao Kai needed to sort out their tasks, because they should not be late with their master's congratulations. The Zhu family was passing very close by. One of the elders turned to Zhu Sanli and said that it looks like the king have already received good news, because they hang lanterns everywhere. They assumed that the king decided to celebrate early. Sanli only grunted with displeasure. He wanted to wipe the smirks off the faces of the King family. King Wushuang and his father were riding horses through the forest. King Lion Shan shouted words to his son that they should hurry up, as he had a bad feeling. At that time, there was a fire in the King family's house. The servants were running around the yard and shouting to run to the ancestral house as soon as possible. The guy turned to Uncle Chuan with a question about who was out there, to which he replied that the Zhu family seemed to have come to take revenge on them. There were people from the Zhu family standing outside the gate. Someone addressed the elder saying that they were hiding inside. Zhu Sanli sternly shouted that this was outrageous. He swung his sword, striking at the goal. The doors were destroyed, and the servants inside tensely turned around at them. Members of the Zhu family entered the courtyard, headed by Elder Zhu. The servants stood on alert, and Uncle Chuan ordered everyone to get ready. He thought that the elder and his son had just won the battle for the rich class. Now was the time to celebrate, and therefore he would not allow chaos to be sown. The man shouted, although they are not part of the King family, the elder thinks otherwise, so they will not let anyone destroy this place. This is the ancestral holiday home. They all rushed to attack together. The Zhu family also attacked them. A fierce battle began. The people of the King family shouted about not being underestimated. Zhu Zhu fought with a sword against the guy and shouted that all the blows that King Wushuang dealt him would be reflected on them. Uncle Chuan shouted the name of the six and rushed to attack. However, he was stopped by a punch in the face from another guy. He shouted to the man that now was not the best time to be distracted by others. He made another blow against the man and blood gushed from his mouth. The guy said the words intended for King Wushuang that it doesn't matter how strong he is. After all, if he can't protect his wards, then he's just trash. Uncle Chuan was badly beaten by a guy. Wushuang, who was heading home urgently, thought that the horses were starting to get tired. There's no way they'll get there in no time. He jumped off his horse and rushed forward like lightning, shouting to his father that he would go ahead. King Lion Shan was also serious. He said he would not lag behind. The King family's house was on fire. Zhu Yun was running around with a torch and shouting for people to burn everything down to the King family. Smoke enveloped the entire courtyard, and several King servants were lying on the floor. The others were still fighting. Several people with spears rushed at the elder, shouting that if they could defeat one of their strongest warriors, it would help a lot. The elder of the Zhu family stood up in a stance, and then in the blink of an eye hit all the opponents with one blow. Zhu Sanli also fought with the servants, defeating one after another. People's bodies were flying in different directions from the attacks. Elder Zhu exclaimed that the Zhu family would not be able to rest in peace if the king remained alive. The people of the Zhu family stood in the courtyard among the defeated servants of the King family. Those who were still conscious barely held on. Uncle Chuan, trembling all over, continued to talk about the ancestral home. One of the guys, leaning on a spear, began to rise. He got up and shouted without strength that while he was here, no one would go inside. Elder Zhu came up to him and told him to get out of the way, and then maybe he would spare him. The guy, full of determination, shouted that if Sergeant King had not found and helped him as a child, then most likely he would have been dead by now, so the man would not pass. One swing of the sword and the guy was very badly wounded. He fell to the ground, and Zhu Sanli told him that then the guy would watch him destroy their house. The man laughed loudly and said he would kill everyone after he destroyed the house. He wished that King Wushuang would never dare to approach him again. He went to the King family's house and said he was going to decorate it. but he couldn't go far ahead because the guy on the ground grabbed him by the hem of his clothes. After the words that the young man shouted that he would not pass, Zhu Sanli turned around and hit the guy hard with his knee in the stomach. But he grabbed the man's leg and said with a smile that he would not miss him and would defend the house to the end. Zhu Sanli swung his sword, shouting that then the guy would die. The young man at this moment mentally turned to Lian Yang with an apology, because in this life it looks like he will never be able to marry her. At the same moment, a powerful energy hit the ground. Zhu Sanli flew to the side, and the shockwave hit other members of the Zhu family. Uncle Chuan barely opened one eye and looked ahead in shock. King Wu Shuang stood in front of the crippled guy, shrouded in powerful energy. King Wu Shuang was standing in the middle of the burning courtyard, and the people of the Zhu family were running away from him in panic. The surviving servants stood up and exclaimed joyfully that it was their young master who had returned. They confidently shouted the words that they were now saved. Zhu Sanli cursed in anger and exclaimed the question of how the guy even found out about their plan. A cry of retreat sounded, and the Zhu family began to quickly leave the king house. King Wu Shuang was standing behind them. He looked at his hand, shrouded in energy, and uttered the words that the guys seemed to be fans of playing with fire. In the next instant, he waved his hands and a lot of fire attacks flew out of them. Fireballs rose into the air above the fleeing people. Elder Zhu exclaimed the question of where these fireballs came from. The attack was approaching them, and the man ordered the defense to begin. Protective energy quickly enveloped their bodies. The limit of fire flaming lotus rapidly began to attack people. A huge explosion, after which burning people burst out screaming. Those who did not have time to hide from the attack were burning. Some guy called out to the elder, who was just standing in panic. Suddenly, a shout rang out behind Zhu Sanli. Zhu Yuan was asking his father for help. The man quickly turned around and saw that Wu Shuang was holding him by the throat above the ground. The guy asked his father to help him because he didn't want to die. King Wu Shuang clarified Zhu Yuan's name and then asked him how he dared to be called one of the 7 young masters. He asked who was next in line today. Last time, Zhu Yuan let Zhang Yao die for him. The dumbfounded elder Zhu shouted the guy's name and then asked to spare his son. King Wu Shuang slammed the guy's body to the ground with a strong attack. Then he said that his son was the same person as his servants. They were also raised by someone. They are also important to someone. The guy shouted that since the old man decided to come to his house to kill, he should also be ready to accept death. Zhu Sanli said his son's name and then exclaimed to Wu Shuang that he should not dare. He shouted and rushed to attack the guy. King Wu Shuang intercepted the elder's punch with one hand, stopping him. The guy turned to the servant, whose name was Six, and asked him if this was the man who cut off the guy's hand. He twisted his wrist with such force that the man screamed. The young man, holding his shoulder, confirmed the guy's words. Wu Shuang accepted the guy's words and turned to the old man with a menacing look. Zhu Sanli asked what the guy wanted to do. The next moment, the guy made several attacks on the man, and then told him not to worry as he would only cut his tendons. King Wu Shuang told the elder to watch carefully as his pretty sons died right before his eyes. The guys from the Zhu family who were hiding behind the elder watched their father and trembled. They didn't know what to do. Uncle Chuan watched in shock. He tried to understand when their young master, who was constantly bullied at the academy for 4 years in a row, could become so strong. Wu Shuang headed towards the elder's sons, and the elder who was standing with them quickly blocked them with himself and shouted for Zhu Zhu and Zhu Ting to leave quickly. The old man shouted the words that he would try to detain Wu Shuang at least for a short time, and instantly the guy attacked the old man, throwing him to the ground. The elder exclaimed, and then there was an explosion. King Wu Shuang headed towards the guys who were trying to escape. Zhu Zhu shouted at Zhu Ting not to turn around and just run. His brother, looking back, repeated the words that he had to run. Suddenly, Zhu Zhu froze in shock because Wu Shuang was ahead of the guys with incredible speed. He quickly attacked them and landed on the roof. Zhu Sanli was lying on the ground and shouting the names of his children. The king's servant uttered the words in surprise that these people were so cruel and omnipotent, but in the face of their master, they prostrated themselves trying to escape. Their young master's strength was incommensurable. King Wu Shuang stood on the roof and looked down. His men were running around the yard to clear the area and tie up the survivors. The Six put his foot on Elder Zhu and told him that the tendons on his legs and arms had been cut, and he was still resisting. By this time, King Lion Shan had arrived, who was rushing through the courtyard at high speed, shouting Wu Shun's name. The servants of the King family turned to look at the elder who had finally returned. Uncle Chuan approached him and apologized for not being able to protect the family. They also almost lost their ancestral home. But fortunately, the young master arrived in time. The man excitedly exclaimed that they were really his family. He praised them because they were able to meet the enemy, who is above them in strength, face to face, without fear in their eyes. They heard the sound of hooves, and the servants assumed that someone from the Zhu family was heading here again. King Lianshan looked in that direction and in shock tried to answer who it was. It was Hu Pinyin and his family. The head of the house of Hu turned to his clan and ordered them to quickly take and extinguish all the fire, and quickly bandage the wounded. A large number of people went to the King family's house, where very few people remained. Some of them were neighbors, and the other part was the Hu clan. The people of the King family were shocked as they came to their aid. The Sikhs said that the King family and the Hu family have always been at odds with each other. Why did they come here? King Wushuang still stood and watched. He thought that it was all his fault. These 4 years, he had only thought about his cultivation. Therefore, he completely forgot about the people around him. If he had taught them martial arts from the very beginning, they would have been able to fight back today. Looking at his wounded people, he turned to Wu Zingi, saying that he was infuriating him. Had his past life taught him nothing? Someone from below was shouting that he had important information. Hu Pinyin turned to Wu Shuang with the words that this man was still shouting about his important information. He asked what they should do with him. King Wu Shuang looked at him and then thought about where he came from. After that incident, the King family rebuilt their house together with the Hu family. The workers, when repairing the house, said that this King family really excites. The man said that there was talk that if King Wu Shuang had not arrived in time, the consequences could have become irreversible. They didn't expect that the Zhu family could be so crazy that they would split into 2 groups so that one of them would decide to destroy everything that belongs to the King family. King Wu Shuang also turned out to be quite ruthless. He rushed into the fight and dealt with the entire Zhu family in less than a quarter of an hour. Although the King family suffered heavy losses, fortunately no one died. The man admired it very much. They had never seen such a powerful fighter. The man said that King Wu Shuang is the hope of the entire Donglan city, even most likely the Beiyu kingdom. Now their city will not be the same. There was a man sitting in the basement who was caught during the Zhu family's attack. Wu Shuang held a dagger in his hands and said that he was covered in poison. It is worth inflicting even a small wound. The whole body begins to shake. 3 nights and death. The guy with a frightening look asked Gu Shen if he wanted to try it out. The man was covered in cold sweat. He began to bow and apologize for his mistakes, as he could not recognize the gold among the jade. Gu Sheng said that his pathetic eyes looked down on the guy. He turned to young Mr. King and said that he knew that he would not kill him, because he would still need him. Gu Sheng will do anything for him. Wu Shuang clarified that the Zhu family escaped at night to move to the great lands of Wu and betray the Beiyu kingdom. Gu Sheng replied that it was true, everything to the end. King Wu Shuang said that the Zhu were originally just a small family from a wealthy class. They wouldn't be able to betray the Beiyu kingdom so easily and escape. He asked if there was really someone behind them. Gu Sheng rubbed his head and replied that he had no thoughts on this matter. The guy repeated his words that he did not know. And then he said that then, it seems, there is no point in keeping him alive. Wu Shuang doesn't need him anymore. The man began to stutter in panic and turned to young Mr. King with a request to give him more time to think. King Wu Shuang looked at him menacingly and told him to think carefully because there wasn't much time. Gu Sheng replied that as far as he remembers, during the assessment of families, the feudal lords of Ximen stayed at the Zhu residence, but the man does not know what kind of plans they were building there. Wu Shuang became angry. The old man quickly replied that he remembered, and his sources reported that it was the feudal lords of Ximen who offered the Zhu family to escape to the great lands of Wu. King Wu Shuang said that the Ximen family is one of the 12 great feudal lords. They are perfectly in their place, so why did they decide to do this? Gu Sheng realized that the guy wanted the old man to betray the Ximen family. He decided that his life now depends, and he will die if he does not say what the guy asks. He exclaimed to Wu Shuang, "The feudal lords of Ximen must have secretly agreed with the royal family of the great land of Wu to act inside the country as well." King Wu Shuang asked if there was anything else. Gu Sheng replied that if they succeeded, they would be able to expand their territories, increase natural reserves, and grow to a high level of subordination of the country. And also, the feudal lords of Ximen would be crowned as a foreign royal family. They would have taken over all the royal lands of Redwood. Wu Shuang also thought that it was no wonder that the old man had lived so long, told so much, but the information turned out to be useful. The guy told Gu Shen that since he was behaving so well, he would spare his life. At the moment, his family does not lack communication with people. When Wu Shuang left, he said that if Gu Sheng ever decided to betray the King family, then he would have enough with his little finger to destroy the old man and his entire family. The old man thought that he had never seen a child with such approaches and character. Who cares at all what some Simon family is doing there if this is happening here? The news that the Zhu family had betrayed the Beiyu kingdom instantly spread. The officials of Luojiang province immediately sent their people to the king house. Somewhere about 32 people went on a campaign against the king. More than 20 of them died. All their people responsible for the siege of the house were caught and imprisoned in shackles. Soon the news reached the emperor. Ordinary crimes are solved by civil servants, but not treason. The emperor was furious. All the crimes were obvious, so he ordered the executioner to execute them without delay. The emperor also sent investigators to the royal lands of Redwood. First of all, he demanded a tough investigation of those families who had a close connection with Zhu. There were a large number of people standing at the king family's training ground. The young man turned to Uncle Chuang with the words that he should look at his hands, which are in perfect order. It's incredible that severed hands can be restored. Uncle Chuan said that the young master had been giving them acupuncture and moxibustion all these days. The guys were discussing why the young gentleman had gathered them. After all, the family needs more elite warriors. When the guy was engaged in treatment, he noticed that their abilities are at a decent level, but martial arts are lame. He shouted to be listened to, and then said that they were the guardians. Wu Shuang asked what their duty was. The guys shouted that they should protect the family at the cost of their lives. Wu Shuang sternly replied that they were wrong, because it was their duty as guardians, firstly, to be able to protect themselves. King Lion Chuan thought that the guy was right. In the face of so many elite warriors, it's quite difficult to defend even ourselves, let alone defend at home. King Wu Shuang loudly said that starting tomorrow, he would conduct a special 3-month training for them so that they could protect themselves. The 6 asked Uncle Chuang about this, to which he replied that the young master's strength is great. If he trains them, they will become much stronger. He went on to say that these trainings will be hard and not everyone will be able to withstand them. So if someone wants to leave, let them do it right now. His men resolutely shouted the words that they would never leave and would not surrender. Wu Shuang accepted their answer and told them to remember that the results of these 3 months would definitely change their fate. Gu Shen came up to the guy with the words that he had fulfilled the request of the young gentleman. He said that the news spread faster than the wind. Everything was done very carefully, so the old man promised that no one would know that it was Wu Shuang's request. The guy said there was nothing to say like an old man of lower rank. He needs people who know how to solve problems, and not to say pretty words. Gu Shen was shocked to think that he had been allowed to become human again. Since the feudal lords of Ximen acted in concert with the Zhu family during the family assessment, then why would they not use this opportunity to catch up with them more turmoil? Gu Sheng replied that he dared to assume that the young master did not want to get involved with the feudal lords of Ximen, to which the guy replied that nothing, so now they are just waiting. Rumors will help protect the feudal lords from further actions against the king. If it wasn't for them, they would most likely have already been attacked. Gu Shen admired the guy's move. King Wu Shuang was called from below by his sister. She stood with a smile on her face, and the guy immediately realized that they had come to Wu again. Recently, the grooms have been pestering the King family. About 3 or 4 times a day dozens of them come. Zhuer smiled and told him to get down faster because there was a girl there who wanted to meet him. The guy was surprised by this. At this time, a girl with short hair and a green dress was waiting for him. King Wu Shuang came out to the waiting girl. He recognized her and said the words that she was the same girl, and he almost forgot about her. The girl turned to young Mr. King with a smile and said that she thought he was telling her to drive her away, since he had achieved what he wanted. Wu Shuang replied that he understood the joke and it was funny to him, and then added that thanks to her information, his king seed was able to avoid evil fate. He would repay her kindness. She said that very few people know about this, because everyone keeps everything a secret, so she hoped that young Master King would keep this secret. The girl said that in 3 months, the 4 heads of the Beiyu Kingdom will act as judges at the national examination of students in martial arts. In the past, such examinations were held in the territory of the Beiyu Kingdom. Those who passed it went to study at the sacred land of Zhenwu. Such students instantly reached heights. The girl said that this time, the place of the exam will be much further away from the Beiyu Kingdom. He will be in the mother country of Beiyu, which is a mid-level great empire. It ranks 2nd in class, and there are many noble families in it. If the participants show good results, and their numbers are sufficient, the Beiyu Kingdom will be able to receive appropriate professional development. As for the students, they have an incredible future ahead of them. If, of course, they can pass the qualifying rounds. Otherwise, they will be able to study on the sacred land. King Wu Shuang has already heard about this, but what kind of place is this? The peak of martial arts in his past life, but limited to the cultivation of the earthly world. The girl stood in front of Wu Shuang and said that her sister was going to take part in the exam, so she would like the guy to help her during it. He said that the girl's sister's abilities have not yet reached a certain level. If he helps her reach it, then will it not respond to the guy later? The girl told Wu Shuang not to worry about it, because the spirit world needs not only talents, but also those who show promise. He agreed to help, if that's the case. The guest thanked King Wu Shuang from the bottom of her heart, and he replied that it was a favor for a favor. He suddenly remembered that he had not asked her name. The girl introduced herself as Tong Yao. Donglan City is located next to the Great Sang Mountain, which belongs only to Mother Nature, but this does not prevent the warriors from using its benefits in their training. King Wu Shuang was able to teach everyone cultivation. A 3-month training session was able to turn an ordinary bunch of wrestlers into an iron army. There were trainings of strength, spirit, inner energy, and mind power. During the training, and King Wu Shuang did not sit idle. He has reached the perfect level in the power of the sun. He tested his strength and said that pumping in this place is much more pleasant than in his previous life. The path of the sun's power consists in concentrating all the Kai energy within oneself. As soon as the whirlpool is fully assembled, the power of the sun reaches an ideal level. The guy used a lake attack that became holy annihilation. The last style of this technique is much stronger than the last 9. Wu Shuang felt that the peak of his power in his previous life was already close. It was such a familiar and pleasant feeling. Even if Elder Ximen himself reveals himself, the guy will be able to defeat him. This is the highest level of martial arts that he could not achieve in his previous life. It's the 6th of June, it's a significant day, great for a walk. The King family was standing in the courtyard. King Lion Shan turned to his son. He asked his son to be careful with the feudal lords of Ximen. Wu Shuang told his father not to worry, because they would not dare to come to him. He looked at his sister and said that the issue of the relationship between his sister and brother Daxi has already been resolved. The father said that he believes that with his abilities it will not be difficult to pass it. The most important thing is that he will have the opportunity to enter the spirit world. Many of the King family tried to enter there, but no one succeeded. The guy replied that since everything was so serious, he would try. He mounted his horse and set off. There were only 4 fighters under the age of 20 in Luojiang province: Daxi Yang, Yun Qingyun, Zhu Ting, and King Wu Shuang. Zhu Ting, respectively, leave the list. The guys arrived at the sky-high limit, where Yun Qingyun said that this city is truly beautiful. Prosperity and size are much larger than in Luojiang province. Daxi Yang suggested going to the center, because all the participants are supposed to gather there. High-class martial arts students from 8 provinces of the sky-high country are divided into their own groups. A girl arrived at the center on a horse, who shouted to give way to her. He was beating several people in front of him. Someone asked who she thought she was. The girl just looked at the down man from below. It was Yin Yuhong, a martial arts student of the 8th level of True Might. The girl who had been hit by a horse before, when she saw the girl, screamed that it was Yin Yu's family. Yin Yuhong hit the girl with a whip and shouted the words that some pathetic girl dared to stop her horse. Yun Qingyun angrily asked who she was, rude and reckless. King Wu Shuang simply remained silent. Someone from the crowd said that they knew her. She was a lady from the Yin Yu family. They get along well with the feudal lords of Ximen. The other guy replied that it was no wonder she was allowed. Yun Qingyun shouted that this was wrong, and the girl also brutally hit an ordinary passerby. How disgusting, no manners. Yin Yuhong looked at the girl and told her to shut up, otherwise let her blame herself. Yun Qingyun replied that she was talking about a girl, so what? They are all from a cloudless country, so they should be united and help each other. Yun Qingyun continued to say that Yuhong is in conflict with everyone here, but if the others hear about it, they will think that this is all just a joke. King Wu Shuang looked at the girl. He did not think that she would seek justice here. The people around were awkwardly silent. Yun Qingyun called out to the girl on the horse, who said that the others had no opinions on this matter, so the girl had better stop embarrassing herself. Yin Yuhong thought that her family had been friends with the feudal lords of Ximen for many generations. No one would dare to oppose Ximen. Yun Qingyun was very unhappy. Then Wu Shuang intervened, who told the girl on the horse that as he could see, her mouth was also not shutting up in any way, and offered to help her. Daxi Yang, what did she forget here? Yuhong discontentedly asked where they came from, calling them the scum of the province, and how dare they oppose her. Wu Shuang said she was just a flea that he could kill just by touching. He asked if the girl thought it was time to stop. Yuhong furiously shouted that the guy would pay for his words, and then swung the whip in her hand. The guy caught it right in front of his face with one hand. After that, he pulled sharply on himself, which caused the girl to fall from the horse to the ground. People around were in complete shock from what was happening. Wu Shuang stood and held a whip in his hands, and people asked that he seemed to want to die and who he was in general. King Wu Shuang was standing right in front of Yu Hong, who had fallen to the ground. The evil girl asked how Wu Shuang dared to do this, after which she declared that she would make him regret it. Yun Qingyun laughed out loud. She asked if Yu Hong was still saying something after being humiliated. Those whom the girl laughed at were divided in opinion. Someone was glad, because these people did what they had wanted for so long, and someone was angry because they are visiting here. Yu Hong stood up and ordered all the martial arts students to line up. After that, a large number of people began to gather behind the girl. Yun Qingyun asked what they were doing. Are they going to laugh at them in broad daylight? Yu Hong said that it was, and then asked what was wrong with it. In the end, some foreigners dared to contradict her right in the sky-high palace. She said that they would have to teach them a couple of lessons so that they wouldn't be such fools. King Wu Shuang smiled, thinking that the locals obey only the strongest in order to humiliate those who interfere. It seemed familiar to him. Suddenly, other students came forward and declared that she shouldn't laugh at them. They said she should be ashamed of what she was doing. King Wu Shuang smiled and thought that this world depends entirely on martial arts, so the students and the local nobility came out to fight. Suddenly, an unknown voice rang out on the street. The guy was asking what was going on and what these people had decided to do. The students turned to the side along with Yu Hong's people, who were extremely happy. The feudal Lord Simon Sin appeared before them. Yu Hong immediately went to him. The girl said that another minute, and these strangers would have had time to raise an uprising in this place. But Simon Sin came on time. Simon Xing smiled and said that the students came to them from different places, and he believes that they are a little tense away from home. King Wu Shuang lowered his gaze and cursed. He said it was time for them to stop being so hypocritical. Simon Xing said that their friend seems to have some complaints. He asked who this guy was. The guy proudly introduced himself as part of a wealthy class from Luojiang province, King Wu Shuang. Simon Xing turned pale. Yu Hong swore at the guy, saying that some rich class dared to confront them. She asked Mr. Simon to teach him a lesson. Simon Xing hit her hard in the face and scared the girl. Everyone who was on this street was shocked. Yu Hong held her face and cried. The man said it was because she rode around the city on a horse and whipped innocent people, and also drove a bunch of passers-by. He said that top-level martial arts students from all provinces had gathered today, and Yu Hong was creating problems instead of properly welcoming the guests. Yu Hong was shocked. She didn't understand at what point Simon Xing became so fair, because it's his trick to be rude and ride a horse. Simon Xing said that they were all comrades in misfortune, and if someone threatened their union, he would not forgive him. He asked what the students thought about it. Many students immediately agreed. King Wu Shuang agreed. He said that of course, especially when it all depends on what he says with his mouth. Although his friends behave extremely despotically. The guy turned to King Wu Shuang again and said that it was already late, so he asked why they didn't join the Simons at their residence. King Wu Shuang looked rudely at the guy and said that if he wanted to invite him, then he should ask his father, Lord Simon, to do it. The people standing nearby were trying to figure out what was wrong with this guy, because he dared to reject an invitation from the feudal lords of Simon. Mr. Xing only glared at the three figures walking away from him. A little later, there was a meeting at the Simon residence. Lord Simon, Simon Yu of the 8th level of True Might, was lying neatly. The man exclaimed that a pathetic man from the rich class wanted him to personally invite him. He smiled and said that this guy was too arrogant. Simon Kyan asked the third one if he understood correctly that today in the central square this guy deliberately started showing off. Simon Yan, the 3rd level of True Might, said she only wanted to know one thing. She asked if this daughter from the rich class really got close to Daxi Ming. Simon Kyan asked if they were close from the very beginning, because they were constantly walking together and completely ignored their family. Simon Yan was angry again. The girl turned to Simon Yu and said that he personally organized their wedding with Daxi Ming, and now it seems that they want to break the agreement. He smiled and said that despite the fact that this child is still very young, it is very interesting. He asked what his family thought about meeting this guy. One of the elders said that the Lord of Feudal Lord Simon decided to meet with a family from the wealthy class. If such rumors spread, then problems cannot be avoided. The first great protector said that although he had not met the son of the king family, but looking at his brother's report, one can understand that he is quite worthy of meeting the elder. Simon Yu got up and said that he would meet King Wu Shuang and at the same time see what the demons of Luojiang province were capable of. Simon Kyan smiled and asked his father to teach a couple of lessons to this guy, because he should understand who is in charge. Even his 8th level of True Might won't save him. Very quickly, Elder Simon found himself in the hotel. He smiled and said that now all he had to do was find King Wu Shuang without disturbing the others. Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind Elder Ximen. It was King Wu Shuang. Ximen Yu was surprised. He thought about how he hadn't even noticed the guy's breathing. He wondered if the King family had already reached such a level, because the guy perfectly merged with the surroundings. He asked the guy if he really knew he was coming. King Wu Shuang exhaled and said that they should chat with each other somewhere else. Elder of the feudal lords of Ximen Yu. He covered himself with fame as a teenager. Later he joined the army and became famous in the military sphere. With him, his Ximen family has achieved a lot, so much so that she became one of the 12 great feudal lords in her country, and Ximen Yu, a symbol of horror. While in the mountains, they were both enveloped in power. Ximen Yu appealed to the son of the King family about the fact that the Zhu family had betrayed their country, and there were many rumors. Elder Ximen said that their family is not afraid of rumors, but they do not intend to tolerate such antics, and Daxi Ming should marry the daughter of the Ximen family. King Wu Shuang said that Daxi Ming loves his sister, and he has no feelings for Ximen Yan. He suggested to the elder to break the agreement, because no one would get hurt that way. Ximen Yu amplified the energy around him and said it was nonsense. He asked if Wu Shuang really thought that the Ximen would not be able to destroy the king and Daxi. He exclaimed that even if King Wu Shuang had been lucky in the past, he was still only at the 8th level of true might. The man decided to show what their difference is. King Wu Shuang bared his teeth and said that the old men needed to give in, so Ximen Yu could attack first. The man rushed to the attack and said that they could play with death now. With a quick jerk, Ximen Yu flew at Wu Shuang, who was standing still. He hit the guy hard in the chest, after which King Wu Shuang flew away and hit the rocks. Ximen Yu laughed and said that, after all, King Wu Shuang is only at the 8th level of true might. He said that the guy should not underestimate the 9th level of true power, because his speed is unfathomable. Suddenly Wu Shuang stood up from the pile of stones and laughed loudly. He said that the fist of the 9th level of true might is really strong. The guy smiled rapaciously and said that Elder Ximen was too self-confident. He asked, "Is this really all that Ximen Yu is capable of?" Elder Ximen smiled broadly. He wrapped himself in strength and said that the guy should not be upset, because this is just the beginning. After these words, he rushed at King Wu Shuang again. He hit the place where the guy was when Wu Shuang managed to avoid the attack and ended up behind the elder. King Wu Shuang hit the elder on the head, after which he flew into the same stone. He abruptly burst out of the wreckage, enveloped in dark energy. He laughed and said that it could have been easily avoided, and there would have been enough time for a counterattack. He stated that King Wu Shuang was able to enrage him. Ximen Yu activated his powers, causing the ground beneath him to crack. Marks appeared on the elder's body. He stated that King Wu Shuang would be the first to be able to see his true strength. Wu Shuang thought that the aura was incredibly powerful. Even the atmosphere around has changed. He said that in this case he would also try. The guy was also enveloped by a strong power. People in the city wondered what was going on in the forest. Some two powerful auras. This should be a battle between the great warriors of the 7th level of true might. At this time, in the forest, Ximen Yu used a charge of hatred, crushing the gods. King Wu Shuang used the power of the sun, 9 suns, crushing the earthly world. Their attacks met, destroying everything around. At that moment, a deafening explosion was heard in the forest, rising into the air. The people from the dorm were shocked by such power. They asked if it was possible that warriors above the 8th level were fighting there. They only hoped that it wasn't the 9th level. Yun Qingyun has this strongest aura. She wondered if it was possible that there was someone else of the 9th level of true might besides Elder Ximen. King Wu Shuang, still shrouded in power, stood behind Ximen Yu, who had fallen to the ground. The guy said that the elder is indeed a warrior of the 9th level of true power. He raised his hand and, looking at it, said he wanted to find out, in the event that with Wu Shuang's strength, he would start a battle with all the members of the Ximen family, whether he would be able to kill them. Ximen Yu thought that this guy is definitely at the 8th level of true power, but at the same time his strength is not a cheat to an elder, but even better. The question is who he is. Elder Ximen thought that there was only one option left, spiritual roots. He clearly decided that it was better not to conflict with people like Wu Shuang. If a warrior of spiritual might wishes, even the sacred land of Zhenwu will evaporate in an instant. Ximen Yu reached for his fan. He said that he was ready to terminate the marriage, however, let the Honorable Daxi make a public apology and pay compensation to the Ximen family. King Wu Shuang smiled and said that this was the right decision, and it would be better for everyone. At least he and the Ximen family wouldn't have to fight. The elder approached and addressed King Wu Shuang. He said that this evening Ximon Yu would arrange a banquet and invite all the martial arts students there. That's why he invites him there too. The elder realized that if he could unite with the King family, it would be a great investment in the future. After a while, Ximon Yu returned to the Ximon estate, where his family was already waiting for him. The elder walked in silently. Ximon Qian smiled and asked if their father had been able to teach their Wushuang some behavior lessons. Due to the fact that Ximon Yu was silent, the elders began to worry and asked what was wrong. The elder turned around and seriously stated that they needed to understand that from now on, they, the feudal lords of Ximon, were by no means enemies for the King family for many centuries to come. He said that it should be written into the prescriptions of the ancestors and stay there forever. King Wushuang calmly walked down the street and thought that he had finally managed to see the true strength of a mighty warrior of the 9th level of true power. The 9th level of true power has its own sticks, and although it has reached its maximum, its strength depends on the moment of application, so it needs to be trained. Suddenly a little girl came up to him. She asked if it was Wushuang, because someone asked her to give it to him. She handed him a small message board and ran away. King Wushuang picked it up and saw the address. Restaurant Aroma of Pine, Room of the Earth, from Tang Yao. The guy was surprised how the girl knew where he was. After a while, King Wushuang came to the restaurant, where Tang Yao was already waiting for him. The guy asked why she was there alone, and where her sister was. The girl turned to Wushuang and said that her sister had a rather difficult character. The guy said that, apparently, she still does not know about this meeting. He asked why. In that case, he should not leave. Tang Yao said that it seemed like he would have to put a lot of effort into secretly helping King Yan. The guy said that, given the rules of the exam, he didn't have a single idea on how to implement it. He asked if Ms. Tong knew, why wouldn't she share it with him? The girl said that before the exam all the rules are strictly confidential, but the information was obtained, and it is 101% reliable. From the Beiyu Kingdom, about 2,500 people signed up for the exam. All these students will be divided into 50 teams of 50 people. Each team will be numbered. This guarantees a fair division of all students from different provinces, and also removes the possibility of cheating. King Wushuang asked what was the chance that he and Tang Yao's sister would be on the same team, because if they were separated, then he would not be able to help her. The girl said that he shouldn't worry about it, because Tang Yao would make sure that they were on the same team. The rewards in this exam are quite decent. The guy smiled and said that he wanted to get all the awards from this competition. Tong Yao said that, looking at the strength, it becomes quite obvious that Wushuang wants to fight for the first places. The girl would never dare to stand in his way. The guy asked Tong Yao that they would not be sent to the place of the exam immediately after the distribution, to which the girl replied that she had a loophole. The young man thought that everything is strictly confidential, the system is tightly coordinated, and this Tong Yao has a loophole. Apparently her family is very unusual. The next day, Daxi Yang and Yun Qingyan came to the guy, who called out to the guy and told him to hurry up. The participants headed to the royal city of Redwood. As Wushuang expected, the royal city has solid manners and a majestic atmosphere. At the entrance, they were met by the Knights Guards who asked the martial arts students, to which Ximon Xing replied that they were from the Sky High City. The man said that in the city you need to control your horses. It is forbidden to drive around carelessly. If the city guards catch him, then punishment is inevitable. After that, the knight let the guys inside. Ximon Xing told others not to be so withdrawn. He advised them to just be more restrained. They saw a crowd ahead, and one of the students approached young Mr. Simon with the words that there were a lot of people there. There must be all the information. The guys began to push people aside, telling them to go away. The people who were standing there started shouting who they were, and after they noticed Simon Sin, they parted in panic. King Wushuang, watching what was happening, thought with a smile that it was convenient, and it looks like wherever they go, it will be easier everywhere. Young Mr. Simon looked at the board in shock, saying that it was too unusual and quite motivating. After that, he returned back to the guys, who were asked not to torment and tell. Ximon Xing asked Wushuang why his brother didn't go to sea. King Wushuang replied that he was waiting for a guy with news. He told Sin to just share them with everyone. Ximon Xing said that out of all 4 royal families did not receive the first place, all the families who participate in the exam will receive 1,000 acres of fertile land. Those who can get into the top 10 will receive 3,000 acres, and each of the top 3 will receive 5,000 acres of land. The first place will give them 10,000 acres of land and 30,000 gold. Also, the status of the family will increase by 1 level, and the winner himself will receive the title of Marquis. A guy from the crowd shouted out a question that since his family's status could grow by 1 level, if he took first place, they could become feudal lords. Simon said that it is worth paying attention to the fact that these are awards for the team that won the competition of the 4 royal lands. The guy's family will grow to 1 royal. Everyone was amazed by such awards, because this is a regular exam for martial arts students. Looking at the history of the Beiyu Kingdom, it is very rare that someone not of royal blood can become one. This happens once in hundreds of years. King Wu Shuang thought that the winner would be able to connect with the spiritual roots. This is a good reward. It is logical that the royal lands will spare neither strength nor money. For some, it was not good, because if he takes the first 2 places, then his father will still be king, and he will just become a minister. Imperial Square is the largest martial arts arena in the royal city of Redwood. More than 600 students gathered here. The man in the center announced that all the gathered noble people from respected provinces. He assumed that everyone had already familiarized themselves with the information board. He said that in any case, a wonderful future awaits each of them, since these awards are true, but their future depends only on them. He asked me to listen more carefully. There are currently 2,500 martial arts students from the Beiyu Kingdom in this place. Each of them will receive a serial number. King Wu Shuang thought that it was definitely as Tong Yao had said. The representative of the sacred land said with a smile that the guys should pack up and hit the road. This hike was conceived in order to prevent students from going alone. The representative of the sacred land, Zheng Wu, will not allow them to make their plans. The exam venue is more than a couple thousand miles away from the royal city of Redwood. This is 3 days of a difficult journey. A day, you walk, a night, you sleep, and so on. And finally, the martial arts students from the 4 royal lands arrived. This time the teams consist of people from different royal lands. The people on the high rock thundered their horns, attracting the attention of the students. Several people were walking on the ground. Students with painted faces looked at the guests who arrived, and young Xinghe exclaimed that they were famous warriors. There were several people standing high on the rock, 2 of whom were the presenter from the assessment of families and the man who was with him. A strong aura emanated from the 4 venerable ones from the sacred land of Zhenwu, which shocked the students. The man addressed the young people with the words that the territory of the mountain under the beautiful sky will be their test zone. He said he would now announce the rules of the competition. They have 50 teams, each with 50 people. They will be dressed in appropriate clothing. 50 jade tiles with the same number as theirs will be placed. Their task is to get these tiles and earn points. If someone manages to get a tile with the same number as him, then this participant will receive 30 points. If someone gets a tile with a number whose last digit is the same as the participant's, then he will receive 5 points. The remaining tiles are equal to 1 point. Simon Xing was interested. He said that the jade tile that would be useless to him would be the highest reward for the other participants. King Wu Shuang wondered if his number would match that of Sister Tong Yao. If so, it won't be easy to take her tablet from someone. The man on top continued talking. In order not to reassure others, their exam is not limited to the test area alone. Those who reach the borders will be able to step over the other team's zone and fight them. There are no restrictions in the transition. The guys were shocked by the exam with cross zones, but in other zones there will also be tiles from 1 to 50. They were counting how many points they could earn. Wu Shuang was thinking that it seemed like Tong Yao already knew about these rules. As soon as the guy steps into his zone, it will be much more difficult for him to keep track of the girl's sister. The man said that the exam will last a whole month. They can use any methods in order to get as many jade tiles as possible. He said that now let all the students go into groups and enter one after another for their robes. Then they will be sent to their test areas. Wu Shuang was given clothes by an old man and told to follow him. They entered the portal, and the man said that this was the test area of the young man. Each team has 50 miles of land to return to the cross arena. You need to come to this place, but you need to score at least 50 points, otherwise disqualification. The old man started to leave. He told Wu Shuang to put on his robe and go downstairs. When the bugle sounds, the exam will officially begin. The man said about the little sister tone number 9. Wu Shuang was surprised that the information was being transmitted by people from the sacred land of Zhenwu. He became more and more interested in what kind of Tun family. Suddenly a bugle sounded loudly, and this could mean only one thing: the exam had begun. Wu Shuang was sitting in a tree with his 6th number. He had been waiting for this call for a long time. From the very beginning of the exam, King Wu Shuang was like a tiger roaming through the rainforest, exploring the area and closely watching all the little things, and of course, using their incredible abilities. In just one day, he found a lot of tiles that remained in the so-called dead ends. He sat down in a tree and said that he had found only 5 during the whole day of searching. Of all the 5 tiles, there are at least 26, which already gives him 5 points. He realized that it seemed that searching for all the jade slabs in a 50-mile area would take longer than he thought. At this time, an ambush was carried out in one of the corners of the forest. The guy was glad that he finally found at least one, and wanted to hide it somewhere while someone was going to hit him. The unknown man sharply hit the guy on the neck, which caused the jade plate to fall out of his hands. The guy took the stove and said that only idiots would look for them in the fields and mountains. Suddenly, someone attacked this guy from one tree. Sitting on the tree, King Wushuang thought that something very lively was going on there. Suddenly, a loud cry was heard in the forest asking them to stop. Wushuang immediately turned around. A beautiful girl said that 3 decided to attack one. She said that if they didn't have a small intestine, they would repeat it with her. King Wushuang watched as one girl stood up against 3 men. King Wushuang saw that this girl had the 9th number, which means that she is Tong Yao's sister. One of the guys said that they would not dare to offend anyone, after which he asked if the girl had forgotten what His Holiness had said. Any methods are allowed. They said it was better that the girl herself obediently give them her tile. He added that the girl actually looks very good. They asked if they should have fun with her first. After that, all 3 of them rushed at the girl. She was able to block the attack of 2, but the 3rd one went through the side and wanted to attack her. At that very moment, King Wushuang threw the guy with number 7 away. All of his companions stopped in an instant, wondering who it was. They got very angry and wanted to kill Wushuang for it. The guy just looked at them coolly. After a while, he was already sitting on 3 guys lying unconscious. He thought about the fact that 3 people are 3 tiles, and all pretty useless for a guy. The girl looked at it in surprise. She sincerely thanked Wushuang for his help. The guy said that there was no problem, and in the end he came for the tiles. Suddenly he turned to the girl and asked if she had a 6th number or a number that ends with a 6. The girl tensed up a lot. King Wushuang said that she should not worry, because he would not rob her, he only offered an exchange. The girl asked why he was helping her. Wushuang said that her tile is not of much value to him, and besides, she is from the royal city of Redwood, and their goals do not overlap in any way. They could team up to get a team award. The girl apologized for that and said that she really didn't have the jade tile that he needed. The guy threw her a park of tiles and said that she could take them for herself as a gift. If she finds a tile with a 6, then she will have to give them to him. The girl was shocked that the guy gave her the 9th and 39th plates. She wanted to address King Wushuang, but he was no longer there. The girl wondered how this guy knew that he was from the royal city of Redwood. On the 3rd day, Wushuang was still searching for the jade slabs he needed. He said that it was already the 3rd day, and the tiles were getting harder to find, and the rest of the students had all hidden. Suddenly Wushuang looked down and saw a guy who was looking for something in the bushes. In just an instant, Wushuang was behind him and asked if he was looking for tiles. The guy screamed in fright. He asked number 6 if he had found his tile yet. Wushuang noticed that this guy seemed to know something about it. The guy smiled and said that it depends on whether Wushuang has the tile he needs. Mr. King picked up his tiles and said he had a couple at number 5. The guy was surprised at how many tiles Wushuang collected. Besides everything else, there were the 5th and 15th numbers. The guy said, right here, and he would like to exchange. Wushuang looked at the guy and asked where the guy's tile was. Suddenly, he said that he wasn't too strong, so he wouldn't dare to carry it with him. The guy swore that he already has a 6th number. He asked if Wushuang would go with him. Wushuang smiled and thought that this student is not as simple as it seems at first glance. But if he really has his number, it's worth trying your luck. Wushuang asked the guy to show the way. He went ahead and told Wushuang that it was not far away. After a while, he brought Wushuang to a place and said that they were almost there while there were people hiding in the treetops. The guy was wondering what Wushuang was thinking when he went after them. He thought that Wushuang looked like a lucky guy, but in fact he was just a fool. Wushuang smiled at this guy's stupidity. The guy brought Wushuang to a big tree and said that they had come. He asked where his tile was located. At one point, the guy loudly shouted a command. King Wushuang was surrounded by a large number of people. However, he remained cool, smiling sweetly. At this time, Sister Tong Yao was running through the forest and said that she had only 20 points left to gain in order to move to another zone. She wanted to prove to her family that a woman can also stand up for herself, so she had to achieve this. Suddenly, she saw how Wushuang was surrounded by people and recognized him. She noticed that he was going out alone against 8 people, so she decided that he could not win. One of the guys said that the 5th one brought some kid again. They said that Wushuang probably doesn't even have tiles, and he looks like a scared chicken. The other guy agreed and said that they didn't find any tiles from the past ones. They laughed at Wu Shuang because he was so scared since he couldn't move. The fifth said that this guy was not only a scared chicken, but also a real fool who followed him without any questions. But he had 50 tiles. They were surprised, after which one of them told the 25th that according to their union, this time he could choose the first 3 tiles for himself. Suddenly, Tong Yao's sister landed next to Wu Shuang, which greatly surprised the people who attacked the guy, and Wu Shuang himself. The girl stood next to him and said she would help him. Wu Shuang thought that this little girl is very affectionate and correct and pays her debts. He thought he would have helped her even without Tong Yao's request. Wu Shuang said it would be over very soon. The 5 smiled and said that this dead man was too arrogant because one assistant would not save him in any way. He said they had already failed more than 10. Wu Shuang smiled and repeated the scoundrel's words. He said that in this case they should be full of tiles. At that moment, the girl understood everything. Suddenly the 8 rushed at them, wanting to kill and take the tiles. Wu Shuang was still standing motionless when the girl started to worry. Wu Shuang crossed his fingers and used the power of the sun. With just a flick of his hands and the candle of God's skill, he threw everyone back, raising dust. Wu Shuang and the girl were still standing in the same place while all 8 men were lying unconscious on the ground. Seeing such a picture, the guy stretched a smile on his face. Wu Shuang said they could go. Tong Yao's sister wondered how he killed 8 people in just one hit, and whether it was exactly normal for an ordinary student. Wu Shuang said that the 9 tiles he received from them fit him perfectly, but summing up all the available ones, he still lacks enough to move to another zone. Suddenly the girl turned to him. She thought it was very good that they didn't have to fight. The girl handed him the plate with the number 6 and said that everything was as they had agreed. The guy happily took his 6th tile, after which he threw most of his own into the girl's hands. King Wu Shuang was glad that he had enough points now. If he wins the royal title, he is sure his father will be overjoyed, as will his little sister. The girl told him that he gave too many tiles. Suddenly there was an explosion next to them. Wu Shuang told her to remove her tiles because someone is coming to them. 2 people abruptly ran out of the bushes, trying to escape from something. Wu Shuang wondered why the people with numbers 8 and 11 were in such a panic. The girl loudly asked the guys to run, because the participants came from other zones. The guy who was running next to her asked what she was doing, because they themselves need to run away. Wu Shuang was a little wary. He didn't expect that this exam involved real monsters who had completed their zone in just 3 days. The guy turned around and invited the girl to go and look at them. One of the escapees asked if they were going to challenge them. The girl tried to stop them, because this man is very strong, and has already killed many in their zone. Wu Shuang smiled and said that this person must have a lot of jade tiles. The guy asked his girlfriend to run away, because they are not concerned with the lives of strangers. Suddenly, someone attacked the 8th and 11th. He grabbed the girl by the hair and asked if the 2 nobodies had decided to leave without giving up a single jade tile. The girl said she really didn't have any. The man cursed, then killed them both in one motion. Wu Shuang suddenly turned to this stranger. The man turned around and said that there was another person who was not afraid to die. He was surprised, after which he smiled bloodthirstily. Next to Wu Shuang was the girl with the number 9. Sister Tong Yao tensed up a lot. Wu Shuang said that she seems to be his target, but she cannot worry as long as the guy is with her. The man stood in front of Wu Shuang and asked if he dared to interfere with him. He told him that if he didn't have the right tile, then he would just die in vain. Wu Shuang said it doesn't matter if he has it or not. He asked if the man really thinks that killing everyone just for fun is a good idea. The man smiled and asked if Wu Shuang wasn't afraid of him, or if he was just trying to calm himself down. He said he was just a martial arts student, so he shouldn't be strong, quoting Wu Shuang's thoughts. He said he had the tile Wu Shuang needed. The man said that he is not like them, and his strength is close to the 9th level of strength, and everyone in this zone can't break a branch from a tree. Wu Shuang smiled and said that he only cares about one thing, and that is the number of tiles of the guy. The man rushed to the attack and said that the guy would ask the devil in hell about it. Wu Shuang raised one left hand, blocking his attack. The man was surprised and asked how this was possible. Wu Shuang looked at him and asked if this guy was carrying jade tiles with him. With one hand, Wu Shuang sent the alien flying. The girl was very surprised, because the guy was able to deal with a warrior of the 9th level of power, so she was wondering how strong he was. The man exclaimed that it was impossible. He stated that this was just an exam for martial arts students, and there couldn't be anyone stronger than him here. Wu Shuang asked if he had hit too weakly. The guy got up and said that he would take the first place. With his incredible strength, he killed about half of the students in his zone. He created dozens of blades next to him and said that he would show Wushuang all the horror of his family of murderers. He asked if the guy noticed them. He said that these hidden blades would soon pierce Wushuang. Wushuang just looked at him silently. In a few moments, this guy was already lying on the ground dead, and all his blades were in him. The guy turned to the girl with a smile and asked her to divide the tiles. She was shocked. Wushuang said that this guy was not bad, because in just a couple of days he had collected so many jade slabs, and all with good numbers. He said that the remainder would be divided equally. The girl wanted to refuse, because she just appeared out of nowhere and did nothing. Wushuang simply told her to pick them up, then hurriedly left, saying goodbye to her. The girl introduced herself to him as Tong Yang, after which she asked his name. He loudly told her that his name was King Wushuang. The girl repeated his name, after which she thought, is this really the same King Wushuang? In the next instant, Wushuang was already standing next to the man from the sacred lands of Zhengwu. The guy said he wanted to move to another zone. The elder said that Wushuang has a total of 76 points. He took the guy and said that there he would already be guided to the next area. The elder noticed 2 tiles with the number 16. He decided that the student who came to this zone was no longer a tenant. He thought it needed to be reported. In the camp mountain sky it was quite calm. The man standing in front of the great warriors said that a new defector had appeared, and he had jade tiles with him that did not belong to his zone. The man in tattoos asked if, in this case, the first student who was able to move to another zone died by his hand. The old man said it was all right. He said that this 13th number had a dozen tiles with him, but the 6th number from the 3rd zone had only 1/6. The man noticed that this guy is not so simple. In the new testing area, an elder explained to Wushuang that the rules of the exam remain the same. The guy will be able to move to another zone as soon as he scores points. Wushuang immediately went downstairs while someone was watching him. The guy who was watching Wushuang was glad that someone from another zone had finally come. Wushuang exhaled, because he no longer had to worry about Sister Tong Yao, and now he can accelerate. He turned around and said that there were already enough hiding places, so it was better for the unknown to come out. The guy came forward, noticing that Wushuang was able to detect him very quickly. It was a guy with the 5th level of True Might, number 36, Zone 12. With his strength, he only found 4 jade tiles in 3 days. As long as he takes the tiles from strangers, he has nothing to worry about. But, in truth, he did not expect to meet a stranger, whose number he really needs. The guy told Wushuang to leave the tiles, and in this case he will live, otherwise he will die. He gave him that choice. Wushuang said he had chosen. After these words, he abruptly moved to the guy and said that he would take his tile and leave. The guy turned around in shock, but Wushuang easily attacked him, slamming him into a tree. He approached the guy and said that now he would ask, and the guy would answer. The guy was amazed. He didn't even have time to react, but it seemed that his strength would be enough to deal with any student. He didn't think he would lose. Wushuang asked the guy how many tiles he had and what numbers were on them. The guy realized that their forces are not equal, and he has no chance of winning. He said he had 4 tiles, then pulled them out. Wushuang happily took them away. He said that there are numbers 6 and 16, so he has 25 points in total, plus his 75 points. The guy asked if Wushuang would kill him. King Wushuang said that the guy helped him a lot, so he doesn't understand why he should kill him. The guy asked if Wushuang was afraid that he would take revenge. After all, he can destroy all of Wushuang's progress for the exam. Wushuang smiled and asked if the guy thought he had the strength to do it. He said that he would only take these jade tiles, leaving the guy with hope. Upon seeing Wushuang, the elder was amazed that he was already submitting a transition request. He asked if Wushuang hadn't just come in. The guy said that luck was to blame for everything, and he had nothing to do with it. After these words, Wushuang re-entered the portal. Immediately after that, the man again came to the great warriors. He was shouting about that guy, number 6 from the 3rd zone. He stated that this guy had crossed over again. The girl was surprised and asked what it meant. She said that only half an hour had passed, and was it possible that it was just luck? The man also said it was unbelievable. If they all decide to participate in this exam at once, even they will need some time to get the tiles. The girl said he was a demon and a sinner. She asked the great warrior to check on this student, because she is terribly interested in this. By the 23rd zone, King Wushuang realized several things. In each zone, you always need to hunt for a student whose number matches yours. On the 3rd day in the new zone, King Wushuang caught student number 6 and got 8 more tiles on the way to him. Thus finished with this zone. Again, the transition request. Only 6 days have passed since the exam began. The great warriors were amazed at the incredible speed with which Wushuang traverses all the zones. The girl admitted that if she had been there, Having passed this test, her speed would not have been any higher than him. The great warrior with tattoos said that the most interesting thing is that even though this child killed some students, he spared those who had not killed anyone before. On the 9th day of the exam, King Wushuang went to the 4th zone. On the 12th day, he successfully avoided an ambush in the 5th zone. On the 13th day, he was already in the 16th. The great warrior said that the old man would definitely be happy. Their Beiyu kingdom unexpectedly got a genius like King Wushuang. 3 clear whistles blew across all 50 examination zones in the mountains. The exam is finally over. The participants began to return with their tiles. In the team battle between the 4 royal territories, the Blue Moon Kingdom and the Sacred Land were the weakest. The kingdoms of Redwood and Purple Flame, we were on top. And also among them there was a team and a separate participant that took the first place. The girl dictated their glasses. Daxi Yang scored 86 points. Zhang Chen scored 42 points. Xinghe from the Redwood Kingdom scored 1 point. The girl started crying, saying that she had disgraced the entire Luojiang province. For the entire month, she managed to get only 1 jade tablet. She sighed, saying that it was just a bad grade. Xinghe said that she was able to come out alive, which means she has not lost. Daxi Yang said she was thinking correctly. He had heard that more than half of the participants had died in the exam. The girl asked why everything was so cruel. Simon Xing stood proudly while others praised him. The guy was able to score 140 points and crossed about 3 zones. People said that he must have overtaken everyone. Lin Tongyang from the Redwood Kingdom scored that 20 points. Simon Xing looked at her and thought that she was a child from a noble family, but her grades were very high. Simon Xing also noticed how people began to rejoice at the return of young Mr. Chong. The guy King Wushuang took the jade tiles from. He Yuyong, the youngest aristocrat in the royal city of Redwood, and at the same time the youngest son of the king of Redwood himself. He is gifted with talent from birth, much higher and more capable than his peers. Before the exam started, everyone was talking about his victory. Simon Xing asked what their little aristocrat had done this time. He Yuyong threw a large bag of his tiles on the table in front of the girl. He Yuchong from the Redwood Kingdom scored 236 points. People started talking about how everything was as expected from the little prince. 4 transitions between zones. The Kingdom of Redwood, and so the best among the 4 territories. Song Linfeng from the Purple Flame Kingdom came forward. He asked if He Yuyong really wanted the crown for just 200 plus points. He turned to He Yuchong and said that it seemed to him that the prince's strength was incomparable, but he really did not think that this was all He Yuchong was capable of. He Yuyong thought that if he hadn't met that guy, he would have had a lot more points. Song Linfeng shook out all his jade plates on the table and ordered the girl to count his glasses. The girl tensed up and said that Song Linfeng from the Purple Flame Kingdom had scored 330 points. People were delighted. He crossed 6 zones. The Purple Flame Kingdom is really very strong, because he has about 100 points more. Someone said that the first place would probably belong to him. He Yuyong said that this is not the case, and the individual winner is someone else. People whispered. They said that this could not be, because all the young nobles from the 4 kingdoms were already here. They wondered if there was someone stronger than them. Song Linfeng turned to the emissary and asked if all the students who remained alive should have already arrived there. The girl said that probably everyone had already come. Xinghe loudly asked where Wushuang had disappeared from King, and whether he had died there. Daxi Yang asked if it was possible. Song Linfeng loudly exclaimed that it was useless to wait, and they should announce the results. He asked the girl to say that he was number 1 on this exam. Suddenly someone came out of the portal. Xinghe was the first to pay attention to this. Song Linfeng asked who this lost bird was. He Yuchong, in turn, tensed up a lot. King Wushuang was walking impressively towards the emissary. He poured out mountains of jade tiles in front of the girl. The girl was speechless. She was surprised that he was dragging it all with him. King Wushuang asked her how much he earned. The emissary announced that King Wushuang had scored 1,130 points. This is the first place for a person, and the group with the most points is Redwood Kingdom. A huge red flag with the name of King Wushuang was hung above it. The guy won first place in the martial arts exam. King Wushuang smiled calmly. The students were shocked by such a large number as 1,130 points. They wondered who this King Wushuang was. Xinghe happily congratulated Wushuang. Simon Xing also congratulated him and said that he had earned a good reputation for their kingdom. Tongyang smiled and thought that he wouldn't need her tablets. Song Linfeng looked at King Wushuang from the Redwood Kingdom with displeasure. The guy ordered one of his servants to find out which family King Wushuang came from. The great warriors declared that it was time for the results. They said that the first 10 places of the teams and the individual participants will receive an appropriate award. The great warrior in tattoos said that the exam was judged strictly, but fairly. If someone wants to take revenge on the judges, the sacred land of Xinghe will never forgive. The man said that the winners should stay, and those who did not qualify would be returned to their lands. People started asking if this meant that those who could not pass would simply leave this place. Really, after long days of traveling, they won't get anything. Xinghe sighed, because she would have to go home. But still the best person in team from Liujiang province. She wanted to tell everyone the news herself. She asked King Wushuang and Daxi Family if they had something they wanted to say last. King Wushuang wished the girl a safe journey, and Daxi Family agreed, wishing her a safe journey. After these words, the girl left, wishing them good luck. Xinghe thought that perhaps after this exam, the difference in their strength would only increase. She thought they would never be on the same level again. The great warriors said that they would distribute all the students who passed the exam according to their territories. They immediately go to the sacred mountain. The students were surprised, because holy warriors are a great honor. Many aristocrats want to meet with holy warriors, but they do not succeed. King Wushuang wondered at what level of might these holy warriors were at. An unknown man in a luxurious white coat was standing in the mountains. He said that this is indeed the case, and this person is unique to this world. The sacred mountain of martial arts rises to 13,000 meters. It pierces the heavens in the fog. The imperial capital of the Beiyu Kingdom is built in the mountains and just lies behind the sacred mountain, which increases the status of the city and the authority of the royal family. One of the examiners told the students that they would be temporarily staying in the imperial capital. They can stay in any hotel they wish. The students asked him how long they would be staying in the capital, and when they would finally be able to meet the holy warriors. The man said they couldn't just go to the holy warriors. They need to wait for the call from the sacred mountain of martial arts. Simon Xing turned to King Wushuang and said that he had been to the imperial capital before, so why not take a walk? He replied that he was better alone. Lin Tongyang approached the guy and asked if one of the little ones could invite him to lunch. King Wushuang agreed, saying that he was just hungry. The girl suggested that he go to the best restaurant in the capital, and the guy can just call her Tongyang. The guy said that in that case she could just call him Wushuang. At this time, beautiful dancers were dancing in the luxurious Phoenix Abode restaurant. The old man asked the rich man if he thought these girls were beautiful. The man agreed, and then asked to send them to his residence. The third aged man asked Mr. Fei if he would be able to stand after this. After that, they laughed. At this time, at the gates of the restaurant, people were begging these gentlemen for help. Mr. Fei got angry and asked what the noise was on the street. The old man said that several insolent women from the village were whining outside the restaurant, saying that they had been treated unfairly. Mr. Fei ordered them to be driven away, because their voices get on his nerves. The man said that they are just doing this, and you should not pay attention. The guards loudly stated that if they needed to pay damages and file a complaint, then they had better go to the administration of the imperial capital. Song Linfeng came out onto the street and turned to Li's general manager. He went out to the people and loudly asked what was going on in this place. The manager told the prince that these hillbillies knelt here and demanded revenge for injustice. They don't want to go anywhere. The old woman grabbed Song Linfeng's leg and started begging him for help. The guy only got angrier. He hit the old lady hard, after which she fell to the ground. Song Linfeng said that he didn't have time to listen to their nonsense. The old lady told the young gentleman that they had no choice and no one to turn to. She said that they had heard that all the royal nobility was going to this restaurant and had come to try their luck. She begged for help again. After that, Song Linfeng hit the man even harder. He cursed and told them not to even dare to touch him. He turned to the guards and asked if they really needed a special invitation in order to finally drive all the people away. After that, the guards immediately went forward. They drove old men, women, and children with sticks. Suddenly, the entire guard flew back, never having had time to touch the peasants. They all flew back to Song Linfeng. The peasants turned around in surprise. While Song Linfeng grinned, King Wushuang and Lin Tongyang walked forward. Song Linfeng recognized King Wushuang because he stole his first place. He thought that this was a great success, and the guy would definitely not leave alive. One of the women turned to the guy and asked if he was a good person, and then asked for help. She said that they are ordinary residents from Redwood. Over the past few years, the daughters of many families have gone missing. Therefore, they came to the imperial capital. King Wushuang, dumbfounded, asked what the missing daughters meant. He also asked how many families were affected by this. The old lady started crying and said that it was too much. They even personally came to the nobility, but they were driven away every time, saying that the peasants only spoil the mood. King Wu Shuang thought, when so many people disappear for no reason, how can all the nobility and leadership so calmly turn a blind eye and just have fun? Suddenly, Song Linfeng called out to the guy. He asked if the guy really thinks, since he took first place, that he can brag about it wherever he wants. Lin Tongyang whispered in his ear that the Phoenix Abode restaurant had been chosen as the best by Xuan herself, the emperor's favorite concubine. The restaurant is managed by all the relatives of concubine Xuan. To be more precise, the boss of the restaurant is the uncle of the emperor himself. He said the girl was knowledgeable. He asked if King Wu Shuang was scared. If he gets down on his knees and starts begging for mercy, and maybe he'll let him go. Wu Shuang said he was just wondering how many other nobles were behind this whole place. Song Linfeng ordered the guards to take out the guy, and he will take responsibility. King Wu Shuang calmly defeated all the soldiers who walked through his life. Many of them broke through the roof of the building, which caused the sign with the name of the restaurant to fall. King Wu Shuang caught it with one hand and asked Song Linfeng to tell him how he was going to take responsibility for it. Song Linfeng was scared, because all these warriors were at the 5th level of true power. King Wu Shuang swung a huge signboard. The people standing nearby were shocked. Lin Tongyang told Wu Shuang that this sign was proof of imperial power. She loudly declared that the guy couldn't break her. Without listening to the girl, Wu Shuang threw the signboard at Lin Feng's dream with all his might. The man who was frolicking with the girls in the building got this sign on the back with all his might. From the power of King Wu Shuang's blow, the entire restaurant split into 2 parts. The guy said that he doesn't care at all what kind of royal family they are, because he only counts with the voice of reason. A crowd of people stood in front of the restaurant split in half, and there were clouds of dust on the street from Wu Shuang's blow. The guys from the crowd exclaimed in shock that King Wu Shuang was too reckless. Another said he was a good fighter, but too impulsive. Lin Tongyang thought in panic that it was a bad thing and she needed to come up with something urgently. Song Linfeng asked Wu Shuang with a smile if he understood what he had done. The young man said the words that didn't the guy himself say, that this sign is something important. He just wanted to test her strength. Archers appeared on the roofs of the buildings around, who were at the ready. They were aiming right at the guy. People began to run away in panic and shout that they could only be killed by warriors of at least the 8th level of true power. The order to shoot the young man sounded. A rain of arrows headed towards Wu Shuang, who was calmly standing still. He waved his hand with an unshakable face and repelled all the attacks, and caught one arrow in his hand and asked that this was all that archers were capable of. Song Linfeng swung his weapon at Wu Shuang, attacking him with all his might and shouting words about who the guy thinks he is. He wanted to destroy it. At this time, a man and a girl were talking and drinking tea. The man asked Her Highness if she was taking good care of his business in the Beiyu Kingdom. A man ran into them, calling Mr. Song, and told them that an accident had happened. The man frowned and asked what was going on, and then added the words that didn't he see that the man was talking to Ms. Xuan. The servant said that their restaurant was surrounded by some people, and the younger prince is now fighting with some boy. Many were injured. The man exclaimed in shock, and the servant continued to say that the restaurant's sign was destroyed by that person. The gentleman was furious at what he heard. By this time, the archers were lying down at the restaurant, and King Wu Shuang was standing in the middle, holding the prince by the throat. People watched in shock. Song Linfeng was defeated. A huge sword suddenly plunged into the ground in front of Wu Shuang, and a man appeared next to him. People were amazed as Mr. Song arrived in person. This guy seems to have made him very angry, since he already came out himself. He does not tolerate such people. The guy in the crowd said that this young man seems to be quite strong. Maybe he can match Mr. Song's strength. Mr. Song asked his name in anger. He told him to tell his name. In case he was one of those with whom he could not argue, then he would admit defeat. Otherwise, he will only have to blame himself for being born. King Wu Shuang asked if the man runs this restaurant, and without waiting for an answer, said that then he should care who he is. Rejecting Lin Feng's dream, he said that there were too many extravagant nobles in this restaurant who did not think about ordinary people, so he would destroy it. Mr. Song said that the younger generation is already crossing all boundaries, and the guy does not seem to realize what he is doing yet. He pronounced his own sentence. Suddenly, a representative from the sacred land of Jiangwu appeared and told Mr. Song that he would advise him to stop. No one understood what was going on since Lai Hufa from the sacred land of Jiangwu had arrived. Someone asked what was wrong with this young man. The gentleman frowned and asked Lai Hufa if he was responsible for the whole circus, to which he replied with a smile that he had nothing to do with it. He turned to Boss Song and asked him to do a favor and give this young man to him. The man replied that under other circumstances he would have done so. However, this guy took a swing at his restaurant. He asked if Lai Kufa knew what the sign meant. Lai Kufa asked the man if he was sure he wouldn't regret it. Mr. Song raised his weapon, and the force enveloped his body, and he said that the guy must be joking if he thinks that his words scared him. A strong energy enveloped his sword, and the man said that he only wanted to wipe this kid off the face of the earth. Lu Hufa then suggested that Mr. Song was planning to level the place to the ground. He was not sure that the young man would be able to bear the blow of his sword. Lin Tongyong asked Guard Lai to save the guy, to which he replied that Song Changjai had already reached the 9th level of true power, so he would not be able to repel the blow. The man, shouting for the guy to die with these outcasts, used the holy sword technique that broke God. A powerful blow was sent in his direction, and the people below stood in shock. Lin Tongyong exclaimed that the man had gone mad, and Lai Hufa told her to get behind him. King Wu Shuang raised his hands and began to gather energy. He used the technique of 2 worlds, 4 forces of the universe, 8 trigrams, the power of the sun, tearing the edge of the worlds. The 2 people's attacks collided in the sky. King Wu Shuang blocked the attack. Song Changjai exclaimed in shock the words about how this is possible. Lai Hufa and the girl were also in complete shock. Wu Shuang, gathering energy again, seriously said that the man is too careless about people's lives. The guy rushed to the attack, shouting that he had buried a man with his own restaurant. Song Changji also headed towards the guy, thinking about how this kid was able to block his punch. He told the impudent child to try the sword, but Wu Shuang was faster. He delivered a crushing blow. The man flew far back, destroying the building. People shouted in shock that Mr. Song had been killed. Lai Hufa turned in amazement to Mrs. Tong, who was standing in a stupor, and asked who this person was. The dust cleared and everyone saw the body of a man lying among the wreckage of his restaurant. At this moment, a large man landed on the roof of a building nearby, who was looking at what was happening. He said the words that it looks like he was late. Gentlemen who were standing on the street and saw the dust. The guy turned to the young gentleman, asking him about the fact that isn't there a restaurant the abode of the Phoenix. Simon Xing looked in that direction in shock. Did someone dare to make a mess in the abode of the Phoenix? King Wu Shuang stood gravely in the midst of the rising dust. He headed towards the ruined restaurant. The man who was helping Mr. Song told the man in a panic that the guy was approaching. Trembling, he told him to do something. Behind the man were gentlemen who had been having fun at the hotel before. Mr. Song told them to shut up, as it's just a little trouble. The man got to his feet ready to fight again. He looked at the guy seriously and said the words that he was able to bring a man to such a state. Song Changjai charged again, shouting that now he had to kill the guy, otherwise he would not be able to live in peace. Suddenly, a huge man appeared between them, who had been watching them from the roof before. Both were surprised by the appearance of a man. The man threw Mr. Song aside with a wave of one hand. His sword flew to the side and stuck right between the legs of one of the gentlemen. People exclaimed that didn't it all start with the complaints of ordinary residents, so why is there such an important person in this place? The third of the 4 warriors. It was Yu Tian, who has the 9th level of true might. The gentleman rushed to greet His Excellency with hope, because it is such an honor to meet him here. Yu Tian uttered the words that the battle was over, and then looked at King Wu Shuang and told him that the guy was coming with him because the holy warrior wanted to see him. Wu Shuang was surprised. He thought that the man, like Song, is at the 9th level of true power. However, he didn't even feel his aura up close. Song Changjai stood up and asked the great warrior if he was sure that he could let the guy get away with everything. He asked me to look at what this guy had done. He can't just leave the royal family in disgrace. After all, this building belongs to Lady Xuan. Yu Tian turned around and menacingly asked if he understood correctly that Boss Song wanted to disturb the holy warrior. Turning around, Song Changjai fell silent in horror and walked away with the words that he would forget about today's incident. Residents who were watching what was happening shouted joyfully that this restaurant had been shortened, and they deserved it, because there was nothing to forbid them to enter there. Lai Hufa said that the great warrior arrived in time. If this had not happened, further developments could have led to coups in the Beiyu Kingdom. Yu Tian turned around and told the guy to go. Lin Tongyong ran towards them. The residents called out to the young gentleman and began to approach him. An elderly woman told him that they met a lot of different people on their way, but only he noticed them. She asked him to help them while sitting on her lap. King Wu Shuang told Granny to get up and not worry, as he would make sure their problem was solved. The guy turned to Tongyong with a request to take care of these old people for now. The girl agreed and told him to go to the holy warrior. Leaving, Wu Shuang told her to wait for his return and left with the great warrior headed on his way. On the mountain of the Holy Warrior, they were met by other warriors. A girl came up to King Wushuang with the words that her brother had come. She grabbed him from behind and said that while the winner of the exam is so handsome, it's a pity that she's too old for him. The man who was at the assessment of families told the fourth to stop. He will go with Wushuang to the Holy Warrior. He left the incident with the abode of the Phoenix to her. The girl whispered in the guy's ear to let him go. When the man and the guy left, Yutian summed up the type of the fourth, to which she asked if he was jealous. King Wushuang asked the man, he must be at the 9th level of true might. The man laughed a little and replied that it was exactly like that. King Wushuang said that he fought with Simon Yu. His strength level was equal to the 9th of true power, and he could feel their aura, unlike a man. He wanted to voice his guess, but the man beat him to it and confirmed it. As soon as a person reaches the 9th level of true power, every inch of his skin, internal organs, bones reaches the peak of strength in this world. At the 9th level, a person will somehow be able to sense things in the spirit world. We can say that at the 9th level, everything begins to unfold. The man asked what level the guy would reach if he broke through the true power, to which Wushuang suggested that there should be a level of spiritual power. The warrior confirmed the young man's guess, and then asked if he knew where the so-called spiritual power came from. Without waiting for an answer, he said that it was Taoism, a word that describes the structure of the world. Mighty warriors who could understand at least one of the 10,000 concepts reached a completely different level of strength. Wushuang asked if Uncle Tao was concerned, to which he replied that as much as possible. There is a difficult path from true power to spiritual power. We need to break through the passage. To break through the passageway, one must achieve perfection at the 9th level of true might. In the guy's past life, when a person entered Ascension, it was also said that he had to go through some kind of passage. But the guy never tried to break through there. They came to the gate to the palace of the Holy Warrior. He felt that a lot of doubts had settled in his heart. Perhaps the Holy Warrior will be able to dispel them. King Wushuang was wondering what kind of warrior this was. He pushed open the doors to the palace and saw a person inside, from whom energy flows emanated. He stepped inside and his feet touched the water that covered the entire floor. Whose silk it was, to which she replied that she had rather modest connections with the royal family, so she wasn't sure. At that moment, Simon Kyan appeared, who said that he knew where this silk came from. He said he was afraid the information might upset them. King Wushuang ordered him to speak, and Mr. Simon asked his son if he really knew, and if so, let him speak faster. The guy replied that it was the king of Redwood. This is silk from King Redwood's family. Wushuang's eyes lit up after these words. At the Redwood Palace, the prince approached the king and informed him that everyone was behind bars. The man asked how much they were missing, up to 360. The guy replied that over the years they could only reach the value of 268. He was the second son of King Redwood, He Yufei. The king replied that it was quite difficult to find virgins born in the year of the rabbit, in the second sunny month, between 5 and 7 in the evening. He Yufei turned to his father and said that during this exam, the third brother unexpectedly missed out on the first place. He wondered if it was possible that the royal families were deliberately suppressing them in order to prevent their kingdom from rising over the imperial capital. The king heard that recently in the imperial capitals, an ordinary student dared to speak out against the emperor's uncle and destroyed a sign that belonged to their restaurant. He Yufei asked why, to which the man replied, because the sacred land of Zhenwu stood up for this student, and his name is King Wushuang. The king is not sure, but it is possible that the sacred land deliberately arose to suppress the 4 royal families. He Yufei asked why they would do that. The king asked how then the offspring of ordinary aristocrats could acquire such power. After all, their emperor is too weak. He Yufei added the words that among the girls that they caught was the daughter of the king family. The prince suggested that her father interrogate her, to which the king agreed to do it tomorrow morning. He will personally interrogate her. By this time, King Wushuang was standing in front of a large building, and Tong Yao said that it was Redwood Palace, and then asked if the guy would really go there. Wushuang replied that an authoritative royal family, the head of an entire territory that harms its people, they dared to get on his sister's head this time. Tong Yao turned to Wushuang and said that it was still not worth being so careless, because the king of Redwood is guarded by elite warriors. There is also a rumor that at least 3 warriors out of a dozen of the 8th level of true power. There are also 4 elders of the 9th level of true power. The king of Redwood is at the top of the 9th level of true might and was almost able to pass an insurmountable passage. Tong Yao said that Wushuang had just been promoted to king, but it still had to be approved. She asked him why he should not go to the Holy Warrior. After all, if he steps in, then the King of Redwood will definitely let them go. The guy said that training, family status, all this can be obtained through work, unlike relatives. The path to the Holy Warrior will take from 2 days, and this is too long. Wu Shuang can't lose a loved one. King Wu Shuang thanked Tong Yao and said goodbye to her, and then quickly rushed off to the Redwood Palace. The guy landed on one of the roofs and thought that Tong Yao was right. If he acts rashly, not only will he not be able to save his sister, but he himself will be in danger, so it's better to explore the area first. He saw people. The prince and several servants were standing there. He asked them if they had finished, to which the people replied that everything was as the master asked. One man said that the old woman who came to the imperial city was somehow guarded by the sacred land of Zhengwu, so they didn't know where to start. Zhengwu got very excited, but they managed to escape. Yufei replied that there would still be an opportunity. The sacred land guys and said that they need to remember that if they are discovered, they will lose their heads. The prince told them to leave and use the same path. They accepted the order and took their leave. Yufei smiled. In the next instant, those men were pierced by lightning. King Wu Shuang thought that this guy looked quite weak. The guy did not expect that he would be so ruthless. Yufei was hailed by men and told that they had been working for him for 20 years, and then asked if the prince would just get rid of them like that. The guy instantly struck and said that he would not spare them for anything, since the sacred land of Zhengwu had already discovered them. After all, only a dead man can keep his identity a secret. Suddenly Wu Shuang spoke to the prince, who asked Yufei if he was. The prince turned around in fright and asked who it was. Wu Shuang quickly attacked the prince from the roof. While he was covering himself from the blow, he went down, striking a direct blow at the guy. This attack penetrated several buildings in a row, leaving a trail of fire in its wake. The Redwood royal family came out to the sound, consisting of 4 elders with the 10th level of true power. They asked who dared to disturb their peace. Then they saw the young man holding Yufei by the throat. The man exclaimed that they had an intruder and to be stopped. A servant burst into His Majesty's chambers, shouting that things were bad and someone had invaded them. And the second young master, Yufei, was taken hostage. The king exclaimed in shock, and then ordered the 4 elders to be summoned immediately. The king was burning with rage, and the servant replied that they were already there, but for the sake of the young master's safety, they were in no hurry to take any action. King Redwood exclaimed a question about how someone dared to invade his palace. Then he rushed outside shouting that this man would die in the same place where he was standing. King Wu Shuang, standing in front of the elders, asked the king of Redwood if he wanted to take his son. If so, they should leave this place. At that moment, the king appeared, who smashed the entire floor under him. He looked towards the guy and saw the injured Yufei in the hands of King Wu Shuang. The king rushed towards the guy shouting about how he dared to hurt his son. He shouted that he would destroy it. He attacked the guy, and the 2 forces collided in a duel, destroying the ground under his feet. The elders were shocked, as this guy was able to as a man, and then said that it was very reckless. Doesn't he want to keep his son alive? The king replied that he could and wanted to, but if the guy thinks he can manipulate by holding one of his sons in his hands, he is very much mistaken. The guy was thinking that the King of Redwood cherishes his sons very much, especially the second Yufei. Despite his young age, he is smart and quite strong. The guy said that then now he would see how the King of Redwood would feel if Wu Shuang ended his son's life.